हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज की वीडियो में मैं नया एक स्टोरी स्टार्ट करने वाला हूं। तो बिना किसी देरी के चलिए शुरुआत करते हैं। और ये स्टोरी शॉर्ट स्टोरी होने वाला है, 100 चैप्टर में ही कंप्लीट हो जाएगा। तो यानी ये ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा दो और एक और एपिसोड आएगा, उसके बाद ख़त्म हो जाएगा।
Chapter 1, Lord System, what do you mean you leaked the author's ID number? Douluo Continent, the era of Spirit Hall. Ding, transmigrator spirit power stagnation detected for 5 years, system awakening conditions met. System, do transmigrators really have systems after all? Inside a dilapidated thatched cottage, Jin Moyu, lying on a hard wooden bed, stiffened all over, looking at the glowing white light screen that suddenly appeared before him in a flurry. The four walls of this thatched cottage leaked wind, and the roof had several holes, with the cold air pouring wildly into the gaps. The youth's cheeks were emaciated, his skin revealing a sallow color from long-term malnutrition, and he wore coarse linen clothes, looking just like an impoverished destitute bottom-feeder vagrant. 5 years, a full 5 years. System, do you know how I spent these past 5 years? Jin Moyu propped up his weak body and sat up, speaking with a face full of sorrow and indignation, his resentment seemingly transforming into substance. Host, calm down, aren't we on the job on time? At most, it's just a tiny, insignificant bit late tilde. The glowing white light screen flickered slightly, the system's mechanical voice revealing a hint of trepidation. A tiny bit. Jin Moyu squinted sideways, his gaze extremely resentful. Are you sure you didn't just forget to ship it yourself? Opening square bracket ... closing square bracket. The light screen instantly dimmed, and the system directly muted its mic and played dead. For a moment, the air fell into a dead silence. Jin Moyu let out a long sigh, forcefully holding back his anger, and didn't say much else. 5 years ago, he was still a 13-year-old junior high school student on Earth, with a happy family, a younger sister, and a house. His biggest hobby was reading web novels, and on weekends, he also liked to take the old man's ID card to write novels for his own amusement. As a result, one day after school, while walking on the sidewalk, who would have thought that a bizarrely shaped purple dump truck suddenly went out of control, and his head unreasonably collided with the truck. With a darkening of his vision, Jin Moyu lost consciousness on the spot. The good news was that he died very painlessly, without feeling any pain, nor would he have to lie around as a vegetative person for a lifetime. The bad news was that he transmigrated to the Douluo world, and he even did a physical transmigration. Another good news was that Jin Moyu had read Douluo Continent and clearly knew the timeline he was in, the plot of the first part of Douluo Continent. Yanzas who frequently transmigrate to Douluo Continent all know that this time period is undoubtedly the golden developmental period for ordinary people transmigrating to Douluo Continent. As the top force on the continent, Spirit Hall monopolized most of the continent's resources, helped civilian spirit masters awaken their spirits for free, and also distributed basic spirit master subsidies. Unlike other eras where Douluo Continent was firmly controlled by Tenga Buddha ancestor, leaving no chance for a comeback at all. Douluo 3 was even of hellish difficulty. Although the god realm was dragged into a spatial turbulence, Tenga Buddha ancestor temporarily lost observation of the Douluo plane. However, Tang Hao and Ayan firmly controlled the globe, coupled with the two giant mountains of beast spirits, the Silver Dragon King and the Golden Dragon King, weighing heavily before him, and the Abyss Monarch of the Abyss plane was likewise not playing games with you. Not to mention Douluo IV, where one is only fit to be the dog of the Dragon God Crown Prince. All in all, Jin Moyu transmigrating to the Douluo era was undoubtedly fortunate. Relying on the foresight advantage of a transmigrator, as long as he could awaken a spirit with innate spirit power, even if it were a pig, he would have a chance to turn things around. However, even worse news came. Because it was a physical transmigration, as a solid earthling, it was fine that he couldn't compare to the hydrogen-breathing people of Douluo Continent, but the most fatal thing was that he couldn't even awaken a spirit. A person who cannot awaken a spirit is indeed very rare on Douluo Continent. But such people have no value whatsoever and can only be bottom feeders for the rest of their lives. For a full 5 years, he curled up in a small village near Soto City, relying on his youth and strength to do some farm work to barely scrape by. Fortunately, after suffering came sweetness, the transmigrator cheat system had arrived. That being said, a transmigrator, a system, a cheat, isn't this proper protagonist treatment. As long as it wasn't a MiHoYo savior type system, this wave of his would directly take off. Jin Moyu suppressed his inner ecstasy, his eyes full of anticipation, rubbing his hands impatiently as he asked, Lord System, I am your most loyal servant. Loyalty OOO. So, do we have a beginner gift pack? What kind of missions will be issued later? Can it make me directly invincible, beating Xiao Biasan with my fists and stepping on the Douluo planet with my feet? I know you're in a hurry, but don't be in a hurry first. Hearing this, Jin Moyu immediately stopped talking, sat up straight, and put on an expression of listening respectfully. This system's full name is the diary system. The host doesn't need to fight and kill, just by writing a diary every day, you can get rich rewards. How is it? Easy work, generous returns, are you super tempted? Jin Moyu. The thatched cottage instantly fell into dead silence, so quiet that you could practically hear a pin drop. The joyful smile on Jin Moyu's face instantly froze, and he sat blankly on the wooden bed, somewhat bewildered. Diary system, you can become stronger just by writing a diary. Jin Moyu's mouth twitched wildly, and he couldn't help asking, diary system. Just tell me straight, is it that kind of bullshit thing where I daydream in the diary, and as a result, every heroine in Douluo has a copy in her hands? System. 666, didn't miss a step, you know whether you're hacking or not. Do you take me for a fool? Who writes a diary if they're a decent person? In my past life, I was at least someone who wrote fanfiction. This kind of trope was something I already played out back in the day, and you still want to fool me? Jin Moyu let out a cold snort, straightening his back, his face filled with pride. System, hee, this kid isn't stupid. In fact, the truth was far more outrageous than Jin Moyu had anticipated. This diary copy would not only be given to a host of heroines in the Douluo plane, but heroines from other planes would also get a copy. Even outside the dimension, the handsome readers watching the commotion in front of the screen would also have a copy. Yes, that's right, you have to read it too. Host, please do not falsely slander the system. Honest systems like this one are already very rare these days. Hee, fine. Jin Moyu let out a sarcastic, sneering laugh, completely refusing to buy this act. Then do you dare to swear that the diary content can only be seen by myself, and absolutely no one else can see it? Just say whether you want it or not. Jin Moyu. Want. Oh my big brother, I was just joking just now, how could I possibly not want it? Jin Moyu's face-changing speed rival flipping a book, immediately putting on a flattering masked face and hastily begging for mercy. Sigh, just playing around a moment ago. He was crystal clear in his heart, stranded in Douluo for 5 years, unable to eat or dress warmly, and spirit awakening was even more remote. This system was his only capital to turn things around. If the system really ran away, he would completely rot in the dirt at the bottom for the rest of his life, with nowhere even to cry. Please host complete the first day's diary content as soon as possible. Upon completion, you can obtain a beginner gift pack. The system prompt sounded in his ear, and Chin Moyu temporarily stopped fussing over the matter of the diary copy being leaked. However, before writing the diary, Chin Moyu still lowered his voice to probe. System, besides not being able to pad the word count, our diary, can it protect me from being hunted down by the holders of the diary copies? This point was undoubtedly the most crucial, and it also determined the scale of what he would write in the diary. Whether to slightly expose himself, or simply write some complaints about the original plot while keeping his mouth shut about his origins. However, even with a writing style that didn't expose himself, there would still be a risk of exposure, only the risk would be slightly smaller. This is the Douluo continent, known as the sewer of fantasy after all. What, are you afraid of biological mother's binding? Host, just let go of your inhibitions and write the diary as you please. No one will dare pose a danger to you. The system's mechanical voice was filled with a tone of absolute certainty. Chin Moyu was half skeptical. Really? System, can you conveniently reveal your strength? The system fell silent for a long time. Host's request, system computing power being retrieved. Strength dimension calculation completed. ID card number, 440,902. A neat string of 18 digits floated uniformly in the center of the light screen. Chin Moyu's pupils shrank abruptly, and he blurted out, almost cursing, FCK, doxed. Isn't this more shady than the spring and autumn cicada? Wait. The beginning of this number, this ID number doesn't seem to be his. Before transmigrating, Chin Moyu was a native Guangxi fellow, and his ID card started with the two numbers 45. The one starting with 44 should belong to the neighboring Guangdong fellow, right? As if hearing the doubt in Chin Moyu's heart, the mechanical voice sounded slowly. Don't overthink it, of course, this isn't your ID card, it's the author's. F less than O, greater than CK, doxed. So powerful. Chin Moyu drew a sharp breath and said in shock. At this point, he was completely relaxed. Since the system had already said so, he would boldly and fearlessly write his diary, hee. Chin Moyu instantly put away his cautious posture, put on the smile of a sunny and cheerful big boy, and set about preparing to write his first diary entry. And the moment the diary was generated, Douluo I, 2, 3, IV, V, battle through the heavens, martial universe, the great ruler. In the hands of all the heroines and supporting female characters across various timelines, a magnificent diary copy appeared without any warning. Chapter 2, Upper Narrative Layer. In Heaven-Do City, the magnificent and resplendent Crown Prince's palace. Qian Runshui removed Shui Qinghei's disguised appearance, stripped off the Crown Princess court attire, and completely revealed her original maiden appearance. A gorgeous and luxurious ceremonial dress accentuated her slender and exquisite figure, while her bright golden hair cascaded down like a waterfall, making her a peerless beauty born to the world. The young lady sat gracefully in front of the vanity, a pair of fair, delicate hands gently brushing across her collarbones that seemed deep enough to keep fish, and her jade-white skin looked as if it could be broken by a breath under the illumination of the lights. Yet beneath such city-toppling beauty, Qian Runshui's eyes were covered with an unfathomable exhaustion. But even so, this fatigue did not break the young lady's stunning aesthetic, instead adding a touch of heart-fluttering pity. This session of the Continental Advanced Spirit Master League Tournament is truly brimming with talents, especially Tang San. Where on earth did the hidden weapons in his hands come from? Qian Runshui's red lips moved slightly, and her charming cherry mouth made people unable to help wanting to kiss her. Sigh, I will find another opportunity to try and recruit him. If that does not work. The second half of the sentence was left unsaid, but a chilling intent to kill quietly swept across the depths of her eyes. Qian Runshui turned and stepped forward, looking at the haggard yet beautiful figure in the glazed mirror, her mind inevitably drifting into a trance. More than a decade of lurking, wearing a mask, disguising herself as the heir apparent Shui Qing, forsaking a maiden's temperament, and burying the pride of the angel god. She had consumed a woman's most beautiful age, exhausted a spirit master's most suitable time for cultivation, and dealt with court political maneuvers day after day. Acting, forbearance, scheming. Was all of this truly worth it? It is worth it, all of this is worth it. The confusion flashed past in an instant, and Qian Runshui fiercely clenched her palms, murmuring in a low voice. There was no turning back anymore. From the beginning of the plan until now, this was her own choice, therefore, she must succeed, to live up to the time lost in the past, and to prove herself to that woman. The night gradually deepened. The evening breeze gently blew past, rolling up the silk-textured curtains. Qian Runshui gently sighed, and her gaze turned firm once again. She would always succeed, she would win. The young lady's delicate body gradually relaxed as she changed into a silk nightgown, preparing to go to bed and rest. Right at this moment, her eyes suddenly went into a daze for a split second. When Qian Runshui opened her eyes again, a notebook with a bizarre appearance had inexplicably appeared on the vanity. High-dimensional visitor Chin Moyu's diary copy, Qian Runshui exclusive. This is a diary, but just now there was clearly nothing here. Qian Runshui's breathing suddenly hitched, and her nerves instantly tensed up. Daring not to slack off, she hurriedly extended her soft mental force, instantly covering the entire Crown Princess Palace like vast ripples of water. However, everything around her was incomparably peaceful, and it seemed as though there had never been any abnormalities here, except for the notebook before her eyes. Being able to bypass the perception of the two-titled Douluo, snake lance and porcupine fish, and infiltrate the heavily guarded Heaven-Do Imperial Palace right under their noses, what kind of strength did the person behind the scenes possess? Fear instantly arose in the depths of Qian Runshui's heart, forcing herself to calm down before retracting her mental force, and holding the diary with a complex look in her eyes. Since it has come, accept it as it is. Then let her witness what on earth the person who placed the diary here intended to do. As the first page of the diary was turned open, the calm on Qian Runshui's face could no longer be maintained. I said sugar should not be added with 3 spoons. Little black fans are truly impolite, only knowing how to smear my idol all day long. In the future, I really will not be a little black fan anymore. Awakening a system after crossing over to Douluo continent for a full 5 years must mean some adult is targeting me. As expected, what netizens said about respecting San Xiao's practices was right. This little mouse here has already been a fervent fan of San Xiao for a long time. A 10-year veteran fan, reporting uninvited. Quote question mark quote. Qian Runshui wore a blank expression, dredging up countless question marks in the depths of her heart. Sugar plus 3 spoons, little mouse, and crossing over, system, what on earth are these terms? System awakening, is this some kind of latest spirit? The modern style, straightforward language of the diary's narrator made Jian Runshui somewhat unaccustomed to it for a moment, but she chose to adapt to this text style and patiently read on. To be fair, regarding the diary system, I feel this system is not any proper system either. What decent person writes a diary? However, having said that, just writing a diary allows me to get rewards for free. Putting it that way, I admit I am not any decent person either. Daily customizable diary theme. Today's first day diary theme is water, high-dimensional visitor, crossing over, and system. These three terms are brand new nouns derived from modern internet literature. Basically, anyone who has read novels can answer them. High-dimensional visitors are traversers from high-dimensional worlds, and they may carry special abilities that low-dimensional worlds cannot comprehend. The concept of dimension is relatively obscure and difficult to understand, but I do have a set of abstract ways to understand it. The third dimension is the three-dimensional world we live in, having three directions, front, back, left, right, and up, down, corresponding to the XYZ three coordinate axes of mathematical axes. Douluo continent is a standard three-dimensional world. Seeing this, Jian Runshui's expression shifted slightly. Although she did not understand what the XYZ coordinate axes were, she could barely understand the explanation regarding directions. A two-dimensional world is just a flat plan. The most intuitive examples are short videos, animations, and paintings. Here there are only up, down, and left, right XY coordinate axes. A one-dimensional world is even simpler, with only one direction, the left-right x-axis. The most intuitive example is text. Novels read ordinarily can completely be understood as a one-dimensional world. As for zero-dimensional, it is purely a single point without any direction, not even counting as text. By the way, a popular science tip: if anyone wants to reduce a three-dimensional body into a zero-dimensional one, it is recommended to crawl into a black hole and stay there for a period of time. These interpretations regarding dimensions were easy to understand, and Jian Runshui's originally chaotic thoughts suddenly cleared up. Although there were still many concepts Jian Runshui could not understand, these high-level vocabulary terms had never appeared in Douluo continent before. The young lady unconsciously straightened her posture, put away her contempt, and earnestly read on. After introducing dimensions, one must mention that dimensional reduction strikes are a complete, unresistible absolute crushing. Clever people must have discovered a blind spot long ago. A novel piled up from text is inherently a one-dimensional world, for example, the Douluo continent I crossed over to. Then, you will find that text can be written by authors in the three-dimensional world. To give the simplest example. Sheriff Black is a black sheriff in New York town, upright and righteous all his life, but the next day he was exposed as a hidden murderer, ultimately shot dead in public by the white deputy sheriff. This text has no logic to speak of. Setting aside being upright and righteous, why could a black person become a policeman in New York town? Why was the hidden murderer only discovered the next day? How did he become a sheriff, and how did he pass political review? As long as the author, who is the upper narrative layer, does not fill in the logical rationalization of this plot, this one-dimensional world is destined to play out according to this outrageous script, because the narrative layer author does not consider logic, and thus the script does not consider rationality. At this time, some well-endowed Yansis have new doubts. We merely casually dropped a line of text. Can we really create out of thin air such an illogical world? This involves a philosophical question. Zhuangzhou dreaming of a butterfly. You do not know whether you have turned into a butterfly, or the butterfly has turned into Zhuangzhou. Then, speaking of this, since we do not possess the means to observe low-dimensional worlds, how can we be so certain that the one-dimensional world created by this text does not exist? Invisible does not equal non-existent. This can also explain why dimensional crushing is unresistible. Like the Black Sheriff Black narrated just now, the writer can completely continue writing afterwards. On the third day, Sheriff Black safely returned to the police station. He actually faked his death as Zheng Li, and the crime of being a murderer was also framed by someone. After clearing his suspicion, Sheriff Black was reinstated to his official position and once again became the Sheriff of New York Town. Congratulations, the Black Sheriff of New York Town has returned once again, and the plan of the evil white deputy sheriff to remove blackheads has failed sad. Returning to the theme, high-dimensional visitors possess special abilities that low dimensions cannot comprehend. And the system is the most common golden finger of traversers. From another perspective, it is the special ability of high-dimensional visitors. Explaining three brand new concepts in one breath, the text of the diary paused slightly, as if the writer was pondering the next content. Speaking of crossing over, until now I still feel it is outrageous. Douluo continent is clearly just a world described in a novel, yet now it truly stands before my eyes. Did I cross over to a low-dimensional world? But that is not right either. To me right now, Douluo continent is also a solid three-dimensional world. Perhaps a sentence can explain it. In the containment object worldview, there is a noun called narrative layer. The world of Douluo continent is an illusory bubble existing within the delusional realm. And everything in this bubble is fancifully depicted by the hands of the writer. Douluo continent is essentially a fictionalized world. A few short lines of text were clearly and plainly transmitted out through the diary copy. Douluo I bibi dong, Rikshasa god is fake. Douluo I bo saishi, sea god is fake. Douluo tu xiao wu, god realm is fake. Douluo tu tangya, Tang San's ancestor is fake. Douluo I silver dragon king, Z's. Douluo 3 silver dragon king Gu Yuina, the dragon god is not false at all, you odious humans. Innumerable diary holders, who were still sighing in the last second about how easy to understand and terrifying Qin Moyu's explanation of dimensions was. As a result, in the next second, this sentence, all Douluo or delusional realms, directly shattered the worldview everyone had built over many years. Could Douluo continent actually be fake as well? Chapter 3. Even if fleeting life is an illusion, still love life. Inside the Crown Prince's bedchamber of the Heavendo Imperial Palace. This is impossible. What kind of nonsense are you talking about, you guy? Jian Runshui's fingertips clutched the diary tightly, her voice trembling uncontrollably. Transmigrators, people capable of traveling across different worlds. And what did it mean by saying that the Douluo continent we live in is a fiction fabricated by an author? If the world is fake, then what is real? No one was willing to believe the truth of these words, even if they felt shaken in their hearts, choosing to believe that this high-dimensional visitor, Qin Moyu. But believing these words was equivalent to denying their very existence. If the world is fake, then what do my undercover missions over the years and the hardships I've experienced amount to? I don't accept this. Jian Runshui's chest heaved violently, her tone somewhat out of control as she spoke. At the same time, as Qin Moyu wrote down these words, countless heroines holding diary copies erupted in incredible shock. If all of this was fake, wouldn't the people and things they cherished also be completely meaningless, pure nihilism? In essence, it truly was like that. Everything experienced by illusory characters was merely meant to amuse the people in true reality. It was cruel, but it was the fact. The so-called breaking of destiny and breaking of fate, perhaps it only happened because you were the protagonist, so the author allowed you to break your destiny. What was even more despairing was that their wills, characters, and obsessions never belonged to themselves, but were all bestowed by the so-called author. Countless people felt chills running down their spines, and a bone-deep sense of powerlessness welled up in their hearts. At this moment, Chin Moyu didn't feel shocked for writing such worldview-shattering remarks. Instead, he wrote down an even more outrageous statement. Perhaps the story of me transmigrating to the Douluo continent is being penned down by an author right now, and I am merely a character from someone else's pen. My previous remarks were still a bit pessimistic. In fact, there is another possibility. Everything experienced by our world converges into stories of the delusional realm, transmitted in some way into the author's inspiration. However, regardless of which possibility it is, it doesn't matter to me. This brother's mindset is extremely good. No matter whether this world is true or false, first living here, those heart-pounding emotions, unforgettable experiences, and remaining memories falling upon every living person are all real. The world is fake, but love is real. Regardless of the nature of the world, as long as I protect the people I cherish, all of this has meaning. True heroism is still loving life after recognizing its true essence. Spirit Hall. Bibi Dong sat upright on the Supreme Pontiff's throne, her slender jade fingers flipping back and forth through the contents of the diary, her small mouth slightly open. The more she read, the more alarmed she felt. Protect the people I cherish, and even if fleeting life is an illusion, still love life. For Bibi Dong, who lived in ancient times, she had never seen such transparent and heart-piercing words. This literary attainment deserved to be called deified. I didn't expect that this guy named Chin Moyu could calmly accept the destiny of perhaps only being a fictional character. Bibi Dong muttered softly from time to time about the heaven-shaking information revealed in the diary. She could not understand why Chin Moyu could so calmly accept the possibility that he was false. Through the layer-by-layer corroboration of the previous theories regarding dimensions and narrative layers, Bibi Dong had long since developed a shred of belief in this outrageous theory. And the reason that made Bibi Dong believe even further was that when she held the diary, the lingering hostility polluted by the Rakshasa god deep in her heart seemed to vanish instantly, and she craved the feeling of this moment incomparably. Chin Moyu's thought, which transcended this era, looking across the several thousand-year history of the Douluo continent, almost no spirit master had ever reached such an ideological realm. Precisely because of this, she found it hard to understand Chin Moyu's open-minded mindset. Perhaps the things Chin Moyu had experienced in the past allowed him to calmly accept all of this. Bibi Dong pondered this possibility in her heart. Indeed, before Chin Moyu transmigrated, wasn't the Earth he lived in a highly interactive, truly immersive AR game experienced by all living beings? Usually, we call this game, where quitting means complete disappearance, Earth Online. Why Chin Moyu could calmly accept the concept of Earth Online stemmed entirely from the eerie turning points in human history that he knew. At the same time, as if responding to the questions shared by the numerous diary holders and people like Bibi Dong who harbored the same doubts. The next second, the diary updated as usual. Actually, this is not hard to accept. The more knowledge a person learns, the more he will marvel at the wonder of the world, and the more he will marvel at the absurdity of the world and the unreality of reality. Does this world truly exist, rather than being an Earth Online, created by a deity? As everyone knows, Earth Online frequently experiences some unreasonable bugs, as if the creator was unsatisfied with human civilization progressing so smoothly and deliberately made numerical adjustments. In 1996, the most severe father of AIDS, the drug ritonavir, was born and was once hailed by the medical community as a life-saving divine medicine. This drug was stably mass-produced, curing countless patients. Its craftsmanship was mature, its assembly line was perfected, and it was without a single flaw. Yet one day 2 years later, without any warning, all pharmaceutical factories around the world suddenly could no longer manufacture this medicine. The formula hadn't changed, the process hadn't changed, and the experimental parameters were thoroughly memorized by heart, yet they could only produce another crystalline form of ritonavir. There is a specialized term in chemistry, polymorphic isomers. In short, the atomic structure and arrangement method of this crystalline item were identical to ritonavir, but they were not the same chemical substance. After consuming this medicine, it could not treat AIDS. Scientists racked their brains and couldn't figure out why a divine medicine that had been reasonably produced for 2 years suddenly could no longer be synthesized one day. To this day, the most reasonable saying circulating in the scientific community that can explain this is the tin pest phenomenon. Under low temperature conditions, white tin easily naturally turns into another substance, gray tin. As long as a tiny bit of gray tin appears and contaminates white tin, it will infect white tin like a virus. And those invisible fragments to the naked eye would instantly spread to white tin that could not be directly contacted, thereby triggering a domino effect infection. This theory reasonably explained the disappearance of ritonavir. Perhaps the universe's macro environment had changed, or perhaps the parameters of Earth Online had undergone a slight adjustment. In short, human civilization could no longer manufacture this divine medicine. Aside from these, there's the simplest bug. When you stare at a single character for a long time, you will feel that character gradually becoming unfamiliar, and even wonder if that character was originally like this. As for the last bug, the most severe father of all living creatures on Earth, why did dinosaurs collectively perish? Even if a natural disaster broke out, some dinosaurs should have survived. Yet the reality was that those dinosaurs that managed to survive seemed to be locked down by an invisible giant hand. This pair of dark hands deliberately tampered with the oxygen intensity of Earth Online, forcing the surviving dinosaurs to evolve, or degenerate. After much screening in the end, apart from giant species living in the ocean like blue whales that managed to survive by luck, terrestrial dinosaurs completely disappeared. Earth Online is about to update. The biological stats of dinosaurs were too overpowered, greatly affecting the server's ecological balance. To make way for the ape god, dinosaurs were nerfed into chickens. This is very reasonable. Admittedly, if these bugs are carefully reviewed afterward, rigorous scientific explanations can always be pieced together. Yet placed in an era of backward cognition, restricted by the understanding of the times, many people found it difficult to understand this kind of Earth Online bug. Unable to explain the anomalies of heaven and earth, they worship them as divine miracles. This is also why most physicists successfully converted to theology in their later years. Unexplainable. There is too much unreasonableness in this world. The smarter a person is, the more unreasonableness they see, and the more rule loopholes they run into. In front of this unknown forbidden zone of knowledge, their proud physical knowledge appeared so pale and powerless. When science completely reaches its end, theology becomes their only spiritual destination. Lines of handwriting slowly emerged on the diary, as if an invisible hand was writing across the air from an unknown corner. As for the diary holders, countless heroines looked at the contents emerging on the diary, their eyes seeming to flash with bright light, filled with shock, yet unable to grasp anything. Especially the heroines of the Douluo plane. They couldn't understand it, but they were deeply shocked. Can technology actually develop to such an extent? What is physics? Here, we all use spirits to reason with, logic. But the world depicted in the diary was completely different. There were no spirits, and cultivation did not rely on spirit power. Mortals had frail physical bodies, yet they could rely on so-called technology and physics to dismantle the rules of heaven and earth and analyze the origin of the world. Chapter 4, First Day of Transmigration, Walking on Thin Ice. On the other side, various heroines from the Douluo 4 Interstellar Federation era had unusual brilliance flashing in their eyes. Thanks to the Federation's advanced modern education, they had basically no trouble reading the modern remarks in the diary, but they also understood better the true value of what Chin Moyu expounded. Even in the Douluo 4 Interstellar Federation era, people focused more on improving their strength, and very few people would come down to think about such philosophical questions. Heroines like Bai Shoushou and Lan Mingchen held their exclusive diary copies, feeling their minds and souls trembling more and more as they read. Chin Moyu's unrestrained and imaginative ideas were filled with the unknown, and the unknown attracted the maidens' desire to explore. Curiosity wrapped around their hearts crazily like wisps of vines, making people feel an unbearable itching sensation in their hearts. Chin Moyu, what on earth is the background of this mysterious transmigrator? What kind of genius was he, and what kind of brilliant and prosperous civilization must the country he was in before transmigrating be? By comparison, the Douluo 1 era where Spirit Hall was located could be called a cultural desert. This was Douluo continent after all, setting aside these scientific knowledges like dimensions, physics, and chemistry. Even if a 9-year-old child could fluently recite the multiplication table, they could be hyped up as a genius prodigy and a reincarnated star of literature in Douluo continent. At the same time, the Supreme Pontiff Palace of Spirit Hall. Transmigrator, that is to say, this little fellow is right here on Douluo continent at this moment. What if we recruit him into Spirit Hall and confer upon him the position of elder? Bibi Dong gripped the armrest of the throne and murmured with deep eyes. What she valued was precisely this innate knowledge of Chin Moyu. And since the other party could be chosen by this eerie diary, they must possess extraordinary traits. Although most of the scientific theories in the diary were obscure and difficult to understand, and even hard for her vision to fully grasp, Bibi Dong had personally tried that simplest character recognition bug, staring fixedly at a single character. Sure enough, just as described in the diary, that character gradually became unfamiliar. At this moment, the shock in Bibi Dong's heart was hard to describe in words. She had personally verified Chin Moyu's theory. And precisely because of this, Bibi Dong's regard for Chin Moyu instantly rose by countless levels. Furthermore, to say nothing else, it could be seen from Chin Moyu's words that the other party knew the future trajectory of Douluo continent, and this point alone was enough to allow Spirit Hall to develop better in the future. I have to say, Bibi Dong was a veritable romantic brain, but when she wasn't being romantic, her brain might actually be online, right? Yu Guan, Gui Mei. A cold and majestic voice suddenly resounded through the grand hall, and two figures in the dark appeared simultaneously. Chrysanthemum Douluo Yu Guan pinched his signature orchid fingers, while beside him, Ghost Douluo Gui Mei had black mist surging around his body with a solemn expression. The two of them knelt on one knee, waiting for the Supreme Pontiff's arrangements. I am giving you a secret mission to search the entire territory for an ordinary person named Chin Moyu. Bibi Dong narrowed her eyes slightly, carefully reviewing the details in the diary, and said with an exceptionally serious tone, he is a male. And, this person is quite special, having no spirit power, living in a simple and crude environment, and speaking in a way that is different from normal people. Based on these fragments of words, Bibi Dong roughly guessed Chin Moyu's personality and behavior. Yu Guan and Gui Mei. Yu Guan and Gui Mei both froze on the spot, looking at each other with eyes full of confusion. Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff, is there only this little bit of information? Yu Guan knelt on one knee, his fingers pinching orchid fingers, and asked with a slightly bewildered tone. This, what difference is there from looking for any ordinary person? In the vast Douluo continent, anything can happen, and finding an ordinary person was akin to finding a needle in a haystack. Who would specifically pay attention to a commoner without spirit power? What, is having this much information not enough? Seeing the hesitant and troubled expressions of the two, Bibi Dong's gaze suddenly turned cold, and her aura quietly overflowed. The temperature in the grand hall plummeted instantly, and a piercing chill carrying coercion enveloped the entire venue. It's enough, Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff. Gui Mei beside him felt his hair stand on end, cold sweat seeping from his back. He hurriedly patted the dazed Yu Guan, and bowed in salute, saying, subordinates obey the command. The two of us will set off immediately to search. Yu Guan was patted back to his senses with a start, and hastily saluted to receive the order. In the blink of an eye, the two titled tool men hurriedly withdrew from the Supreme Pontiff Palace. The coercion inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace gradually dissipated, and the diary floating in midair flashed with silver light as handwriting emerged once again. The first day of transmigrating to Douluo continent and obtaining the diary system, walking on thin ice, I just want to survive cautiously QAQ tilde. Douluo continent is ultimately a fantasy world where strength is supreme. On this continent, ordinary people can awaken spirits, and only those with innate spirit power are qualified to step onto the path of spirit masters. However, as a transmigrator who crossed over in flesh and blood, I do not belong to this world, and naturally did not awaken a spirit, not to mention that I am already 18 years old, having missed the golden cultivation age for spirit masters. As an ordinary person without a spirit, I can only hope that the cheat system is powerful enough to give me a little novice gift back, preferably making me a titled Douluo directly, which would be more than enough during the Douluo 1 period. With the strength of a titled Douluo, as long as I don't provoke Spirit Hall, Sea God Island, or the fierce beasts of Stardo Great Forest, and stay low to develop, it's definitely enough. No spirit, this situation is a bit rare, huh? After reading this passage, Bibi Dong chuckled lightly, her tone lacking any hint of disdain or contempt. Instead, because of this matter regarding the spirit, her trust in Chin Moyu's identity as a transmigrator increased by a few more points. Although this trust had long since reached 90%. Just at this moment, a timid female voice sounded from the side of the hall. Teacher, can we really recruit this transmigrator to serve as an elder of Spirit Hall? Juliana cautiously glanced at Bibi Dong, whose expression had relaxed. Seeing that she was no longer angry, her body instantly relaxed a little. Coincidentally, it was already 10 o'clock late at night, and all was quiet. The reason Juliana appeared in the Supreme Pontiff Palace so late was precisely because during the day, Bibi Dong had gently patted the back of her head twice, then feigned anger and left directly through the back door of the hall. As witty as Juliana was, she instantly understood teacher Bibi Dong's hint. The 2 blows the teacher gave her head in the morning seemed very angry, but they were exceptionally light and could not count as punishment. Coupled with the fact that Bibi Dong always acted properly and never left through the back door, this kind of deliberate behavior. It was obviously not anger at all, but clearly hinting to Juliana to make a detour through the back door in the middle of the night. Her teacher Bibi Dong intended to give her special treatment behind closed doors alone. And right at this moment, this eerie diary appeared in front of Juliana, and coincidentally Bibi Dong also had an identical copy. The master and disciple had tested it before. Even if they took out the diary in front of Yu Guan and Gui Mei, or even spoke out some contents of the diary, the two titled Douluos were completely unaware throughout, as if they could neither hear nor see it. At this moment, the two women understood that this was a secret known only among diary holders. At this time, Bibi Dong glanced sideways at her quick-witted disciple, a trace of approval flashing deep in her eyes. Qin Muiyu having no spirit, falling into the eyes of the two, was actually a good thing. Rootless, baseless, and relying on no one, a character like a blank sheet of paper was the easiest to manipulate. What one seeks in life is nothing more than the four words: wealth, companion, method, and land. As long as Spirit Hall threw out wealth and status, and promised protection, they wouldn't have to worry about this transmigrator harboring knowledge, refusing to submit and wholeheartedly assisting Spirit Hall. We all have a bright future. Thinking of this, Bibi Dong's gaze lit up, and Juliana's cheeks carried a smile. The two of them successively generated yearning in their hearts, as if they saw the picture of the future Spirit Hall standing at the peak of Douluo continent, with Spirit Hall flourishing more and more. However, the subsequent diary content made the expressions of both of them instantly collapse. After being busy for a good while, the content for the first day is written up to here. I was already prepared to sleep, but the system actually said the word count was not enough. It told me to write a bit more content. Hey, I have an idea. Since I've already transmigrated to Douluo continent and caught up to the period before being bullied by Tang Buddha, as a qualified transmigrator, if I don't give Tang San some discipline, people in the transmigrator community are going to point fingers behind my back in the future. Douluo to Ayin, who did Tang San provoke or offend? Why target my son for no rhyme or reason? Douluo 1 Ayin, no, how, where are you? Someone is going to bully our child Wu Tilda, an incompetent wife QAQ. Douluo 1 Ning Rongrong. Douluo 1 Zhu Zuqing, third brother is such a good person, why fix him up? Douluo 1 Tang Yuehua, not targeting Tang San will make one look down upon by the entire transmigrator community. What kind of person is this kid anyway? Douluo 2 Meng Hongchen, such a pitiful. Douluo 1 Xiao Wu. Douluo 2 Xiao Wu. Douluo 3 Xiao Wu, you have already courted death. Douluo 1 Du Guyan, fix him well, I will forever support Lord Qin Muiyu. Chapter 5, the top demon king protects Asura god and scares people to tears. Since we are already talking about Tang San, we have to talk about the nominal destined protagonist and son of destiny of the first part of Douluo continent. Let's start with the good things first, and talk about the messed up things Tang San has done later, along with explaining why time traveling to Douluo continent without messing with Xiaobiasan will get your spine poked. Let's start with Tang San's origins. To be honest, Tang San himself is also a transmigrator, except unlike me, he traveled to Douluo continent from another wuxia plane. And deep down in his bones, Tang San is undoubtedly a faithful supporter of feudalism, which can be seen from how he destroyed Spirit Hall in the future and allowed the corrupt aristocratic systems of the Heaven Do and Star Luo empires to continue. Even after becoming a god, Tang San never thought of changing this. Therefore, after the destruction of Spirit Hall, commoner spirit masters lost free spirit awakenings and support policies for low-ranking spirit masters. Based on this alone, Tang San is utterly despicable. Anyone who didn't know would think that you, Tang San, were so pure and flawless, and never took the spirit master subsidies issued by Spirit Hall. But why do I say this is the good side of Tang San? Although I, as a member of the commoner class, have been cursing Tang San all along, everything has two sides. For certain people, maintaining aristocratic interests isn't that just Tang San's advantage. Indeed. Most of the female leads in the diary copies mentally acknowledge this viewpoint. As for the diary copy holders from the Spirit Hall faction, their faces all sank in unison, and anger surged within their chests. Destroying Spirit Hall, Tang San becoming a god, transmigrator, destined protagonist. The informational content of each of these pieces of news was immensely huge, so huge that certain people had already entertained the thought of completely slaying Tang San. Killing intent soared in the depths of Bibi Dong's eyes as she tightly gripped the diary. Killing intent had already sprouted in her heart. Eradicate the root of trouble in advance and eliminate future troubles once and for all. Not only her, but all the people of the Spirit Hall faction holding the diary all harbored the thought of executing Tang San at this moment. Just at this moment, the diary suddenly flashed with an eerie light, and text that did not belong to Qin Muiyu's handwriting emerged. High-dimensional visitor Qin Muiyu's diary. First, please note that this system steals the diaries of high-dimensional visitors. Do not expose your specialness in front of the host. Second, destined protagonists come with their own fortune locks. When encountering difficulties, many people will always appear to help the protagonist. Falling off a cliff will definitely lead to opportunities, being hunted down will definitely bring noble helpers, and desperate situations will always turn into auspicious ones. Third, the causal anchor point for Tang San's future ascension to godhood has been set. It is almost impossible for locals to kill a true destined protagonist. Fourth, one proof, eternal proof. Do not commit acts that harm the high-dimensional visitor Qin Muiyu, otherwise future, he, will personally descend and obliterate all unfavorable factors. Fifth, direct or indirect mutual harm between diary copy holders is prohibited. Violators will be executed immediately. Sixth, expand. When the 6 lines of cold rule text emerged on the diary together, completely different thoughts grew within the hearts of all diary holders. On the Douluo plain, Qian Runshui, Juliana, and other girls said vow after vow. Destined protagonist, I never believe in so-called fate. Tang San must die, even if Jesus comes, he won't be able to save him. Anchor point set. Locals can hardly kill the destined protagonist. The proud favored daughters of heaven all sneered with disdain. Being in the top forces of the continent, from the bottom of their hearts they did not believe in this so-called destiny. However, not long after, the subsequent diary content immediately slapped these people who refused to believe in fate right in the face. Seriously, that old fellow Tang San has truly heaven-defying luck, being protected by the God Realm's God King, Asura God, right from the start. Later, after Tang San was killed, Asura God even directly held swords to force the Food God and Nine-Colored Goddess to bestow divine inheritances upon Oscar and Ning Rongrong, casting the resurrection divine light to resurrect Tang San. As soon as these words came out, countless female leads on the Douluo plain instantly changed their expressions drastically. Douluo's Jian Runshui, damn it, can it still not be done? Douluo's Lingyu and Douluo, I originally planned to go and slay Tang San tonight, but I'll leave this first merit to the juniors. Douluo's Xiao Wu, so third brother has always been protected by Asura God. That's great. Douluo's Ning Rongrong, I became a god, yay. Douluo's Huo Wu, Tang San, is he really this powerful? Douluo's Zhangzu, I really envy Sister Rongrong. Douluo's Duguyan, I think we still need to be cautious about supporting Lord Chinmoyu. For this, I have prepared 2 sets of arguments. For a moment, some were worried while others rejoiced. Many girls on good terms with Tang San mostly wore joyous expressions. Especially upon learning from the diary content that Ning Rongrong would achieve the 9-colored goddess divinity in the future, it would be fake to say they weren't envious. Regarding 7 treasure glazed tile schools Ning Fengji investing in Tang San, many high-status young ladies had heard of it. In the matter of Ning Rongrong becoming a god, Tang San's help was definitely indispensable. And as the 7 treasure glazed tile school that invested in Tang San the earliest, they must have feasted heavily and withdrawn with a fortune, right? Many Douluo female leads successively revealed envious gazes, yet after a moment their gazes suddenly froze. However, coming back to the point. So what if Tang San becomes a god? So what if he is protected by the top demon king, the Asura god king? Being in the era of Douluo with the diary system in hand, I certainly won't watch helplessly as he follows his destined fate and ascends to the god position. As the destined protagonist of Douluo continent, Tang San's path of rise can be said to have happened naturally, so much so that you, a killer, perfectly concealed the hypocritical and double-standard villainous nature in your bones, and everyone around you subconsciously ignored this point. Thinking carefully, if it weren't for Tang San extending their lives, all those old era forces that once followed Tang San would have completely perished back in Douluo. And even with Tang San forcibly extending their lives, apart from Shrek Academy standing out uniquely, not a single one was able to continue thriving by the era of Douluo II. Tang San is like a giant mountain, bearing the corrupt and backward order of the old era. As long as he exists, it implies that people cannot let go of their obsession with the old era. Only by completely breaking this constraint can a brand new path be forged for civilization, for the era, and for future generations, rather than perfunctorily lying flat, leaving all hidden dangers for future generations to solve, and letting future generations habitually and lightly shirk the blame with the phrase, "This is a historical legacy issue." Those old fellows who tightly clutch the rebel of conservatism and refuse to let go, holding inexplicable fear and distrust toward the surrounding newly born culture, it is also time to kick them off the stage of history. I am not looking down on Tang San, nor am I holding contempt for the Asura god king. What I want to say is that everyone present on the entire Douluo continent is trash. Douluo's Ayin. Douluo's Xiao Wu. Douluo's Hua Wu, so arrogant. Douluo's Tang Yuehua. This Tang San is truly miserable, being targeted for no reason by such a resolute and decisive existence. Douluo's Duguyan. I retract 1 set of arguments, I will forever support Lord Chinmoyu. Douluo I's Tang Ya. Douluo I's goddess of life. Within the god realm, the goddess of life was originally leisurely watering trees and flowers. When the diary content updated, after reading it, her face was instantly filled with question marks. Not fearing the plane's fortune, and even holding contempt for the god realm's god king. Could it be that this high-dimensional visitor's so-called golden finger and system are extraordinary? At this moment, the goddess of life put away her lax mindset and raised her regard for Chinmoyu in her heart. I need to sit up and read this. Chapter 6, First Spirit Ability, Blue Silver Pole Vault. As I said earlier, Tang San and I are both transmigrators. However, there is an essential difference between him and me, and this difference is huge, just like 2 parallel lines that will never intersect. In his past life, Tang San was an outer disciple of the Tang sect in the martial arts plane. Because he secretly learned the inner sect's ultimate techniques and was discovered by the elder, he was driven to a dead end and had to jump off a cliff to prove his innocence, dying and transmigrating to Douluo continent. If I remember correctly, after his death, Tang San caught the attention of the Asura god, which gave him a chance to be reborn. The Tang sect is an assassin sect that trains assassins. Can you expect Tang San, an assassin disciple, to be very affectionate and righteous? Why did I say earlier that Tang San is only the nominal destined protagonist? Being transmigrators alike, today's Tang San is merely a Tang sect Tang San whose body was possessed by an extraterrestrial celestial demon. To put it bluntly, it is that soul possession routine from the cultivation world, and the one pulling the strings behind the scenes is none other than the Asura god himself. That old fellow, the Asura god, is extremely shrewd. He noticed Tang San, the destined protagonist of Douluo at a glance, and secretly pulled off a switcheroo. Tang San followed his example, taking the Asura god as his mentor, and directly trained the destined protagonist to Yu Hao like a dog in the era of Douluo II. However, this is also quite normal. Back then, Yin sacrificed herself to help Tang Hao break through to title Douluo. At that time, Tang San was merely an infant in swaddling clothes. How could he possibly escape unscathed under the encirclement of Jian Zunji and a group of spirit hall experts? Douluo Tang Yuehua. Is Tang San actually elder brother's son? Douluo Yin, how could this be? My son, if little San was already possessed long ago, can he still be considered the flesh and blood of Hao and me? In fact, Tang Hao probably sensed something was wrong long ago. Starting from when Tang San was 3 years old and began practicing the Tang sect's internal cultivation methods, Tang Hao paid no attention to him, drinking heavily and living in seclusion all day long. In the eyes of outsiders, he was just a decadent and derelict down-and-out father, but in reality, he was deliberately distancing himself. It wasn't until Tang San awakened his twin spirits at the age of 6, Blue Silver Grass and Clear Sky Hammer, or more accurately, the moment Tang San awakened the Clear Sky Hammer, that Tang Hao began to look at him squarely. This is also normal. With a vision of a titled Douluo, how could he possibly fail to see the oddities in his own son? Not to mention that old fellow Tang Hao is extremely shrewd. If you speculate deeply, even the matter of Tang San's mother Yin sacrificing her 100,000-year spirit ring back then was most likely the result of Tang Hao secretly planning it and going with the flow. Douluo Tang Yuehua, how can that be? Elder brother is not that kind of person. Douluo Yin, nonsense. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Douluo Tu Yin. Unlike the 2 women in Douluo Yin during the Douluo II period was noticeably more mature in disposition. Having experienced the warmth and coldness of human relationships and the floating dust of the mortal world, the ignorant mindset of the spirit beast faded away, and Yin's thoughts gradually grew closer to those of humans, understanding human nature better as well. Could it really be like this? Yin's cold and clear eyes flickered slightly as her fingertips gently stroked across the diary, murmuring softly in her heart. There was no fierce refutation, no collapsing cry, but deep in her heart, she had already believed this statement, regardless of whether it was true or not. There is a classic effect in psychology, confirmation bias. When you suspect a person, the truth is no longer important, because you will go to great lengths to verify your suspicion, and anything inconsistent with your suspicion will be turned a blind eye to by you. Once suspicion is born, the charge is already established. Of course, this is just a possibility, a result deduced in reverse based on the future plot of Douluo continent. We won't talk about this topic for now, let's wait until Yin encounters it in the future. To be honest, it's hard for me to evaluate this point. Putting myself in Tang San's perspective, never mind, it's also hard for me to understand why Tang San had to secretly learn it. A country has its laws, and a family has its rules. Since the sect is established there must be a way to progress upward. Why take risks to learn secretly? Although he is a genius, the reason why Tang San was able to secretly learn the intersex cultivation method was also with the tacit approval of the elder at the Pavilion of Cultivation Methods, turning a blind eye. Unfortunately, even if you are a genius, you violated the sect's rules, and accepting punishment is only natural. However, the most abstract part comes. Tang San was forced to the edge of Ghost Shadow Cliff, handed over his crafted peak masterpiece of Tang sect hidden weapons, Buddha's Fury Tang Lotus, to the sect elder, and after a passionate and tragic speech, chose to jump off the cliff to prove his innocence. Afterward, the classic Tang sect master saw Tang San's Buddha's Fury Tang Lotus, and only then felt remorse, regretting that he had driven a genius disciple to his death, watching the opportunity for the Tang sect to rise to glory once again slip through their fingers. At this time, the Tang sect master hypocritically came out to play the good guy, angrily scolding the elder who slandered Tang San. If you could craft Buddha's Fury Tang Lotus, you could also violate the sect rules. Opening his mouth to slap labels on people, acting as if you didn't hunt down Tang San. I just want to ask, what were you doing earlier? They truly are two of a kind. The shameless double standards of the Tang sect master are practically carved from the same mold as Tang San. However, setting aside the fact that Tang San violated discipline and rules, he is indeed a genius in crafting hidden weapons and also an outstanding assassin. An assassin. Third brother was actually an assassin. Inside Shrek Academy, in the student dormitory. Although it was already late at night, Xiaowu was not asleep. Instead, she lay on the bed with the diary hugged to her chest, her eyes complex. Put that way, it indeed makes sense. No wonder third brother carried all sorts of hidden weapons with him and possessed means that did not belong to this continent. Even the high and mighty schoolmaster Ning was willing to place bets to invest in him. Everything matches up now. Let me see, what other virtues does Tang San have? A staunch offender of feudalism, he constantly throws around phrases like courting death to others, but his tolerance for his own people is still quite high. Even for Yu Xiaogang, Tang San fulfilled his duty of a teacher for a day, a father for a lifetime. If I were Tang San, a mediocre trash like Yu Xiaogang, all show, misleading students, and ruining people's futures, would have been courting death long ago. Douluo I Bibi Dong. Douluo I Luer Long. Formerly Lanba Academy, now Shrek Academy. Seeing Qin Muyu openly slander her beloved Yu Xiaogang on the contents of the diary, Luer Long felt anger surge in her heart. Her eyes were bloodshot, she breathed heavily like an ox, and she spoke through gritted teeth. Bull's tea, Xiaogang is not trash. Extreme anger caused the spirit power around her to boil uncontrollably, and the surrounding air was scorched searing hot by the blazing spirit power. Luer Long stared dead at the diary floating in front of her, her eyes filled with both anger and anxiety, her heart full of a paranoid drive to protect her lover. She flatly refused to admit that half of the contents in the diary were true. In her heart, Yu Xiaogang serving as the wisdom corner of the Golden Triangle was by no means an undeserved reputation. Although Yu Xiaogang's own spirit was defective and he was unable to break through his bottleneck for life, he had extremely in-depth research on spirits, proposing the 10 core competitions of spirits that crowned the entire Douluo continent and was hailed as invincible in spirit theory. Luer Long clenched her fists tightly, feeling indignant in her heart. Xiaogang was merely trapped in his cultivation by his spirit defect, his vision, pattern, and theoretical knowledge. Who in the world can match them? What right do you have to maliciously smear and wantonly slander him like this? However, no matter how angry Luer Long was, it could not affect the exposure of the truth in the diary's contents. For the first spirit ring of the Blue Silver Emperor spirit, Yu Xiaogang almost chose a 10-year withered bamboo as a spirit ring. If it had really been equipped, Tang San's first spirit ability would probably have become the Blue Silver Pole Vault. Mother's Pole Vault works too. Speaking of the scene, isn't there also a 50-year-old Yu Xiaogang standing right next to it? If you're really short of spirit rings, choosing him wouldn't be out of the question. Wasn't it still ruined later on? Blue Silver Grass, a fine life attribute spirit, originally had a poor foundation, yet they insisted on taking the poison route. Blue Silver Grass is simply not suited to go down that path. This viewpoint even continued all the way to Douluo too. The Tang sect kept looking for Blue Silver Grass spirits with high talent to serve as sect masters, learning the spirit ring allocation of that bad boy Tang San. From this perspective, the decline of the Tang sect is well deserved. Tang San's spirit is not Blue Silver Grass after all, but the royalty among plants, the Blue Silver Emperor. Chapter 7. Affectionate Phoenix God, please wait another lifetime. Furthermore, Tang San later personally stripped away the poison-type spirit ring of the Blue Silver Emperor. Although it was to revive Xiaowu, no matter how one looked at it, it was also to allow him to choose a better spirit ring. Without saying too much or chattering idly, in the Douluo fanfictions I read in earlier years, the vast majority of time travelers basically chose to follow behind Tang San as his lackeys. If not for Douluo 2 and Douluo 3 step by step uncovering the dark materials, exposing Tang San's true face beneath the saintly exterior, as well as these disgusting things he had done, Tang San would still be the God Realm's perfect God King in the eyes of the world. However, having said that, if I remember correctly, Tang San seemed to only treat his own family and brothers as his own people. During the Douluo I era, those factions that hung out with Tang San basically all fell into decline by the era of Douluo 2 10,000 years later. Even the Tang sect, personally founded by Tang San, could not escape its curtain call. The 7 treasure glazed tile school ultimately saw the sword break and the bones shatter, and Fungi's hair turn white overnight. Even though it later became the 9 treasure glazed tile school, and Ning Rongrong and Oscar ascended to the god position, the two of them left behind no offspring. Douluo 2 only had Ning Tian, a minor female supporting character with a name, and by Douluo 3, even the name of the 9 treasure glazed tile school was gone, directly disappearing from the face of the earth. As for roadside factions like the 4 attribute sects, Tianshui Academy, and Blazing Academy, they didn't even leave behind their names. The most ironic part was the Tang sect. Tang San deliberately sealed away the true Tang sect unique arts, causing a fracture in Tang sect cultivation methods and the loss of top-tier hidden weapons techniques, which indirectly led to the decline of the Tang sect. As expected of you, Tang Buddha, you didn't even care about the Tang sect, just to make the entire Tang clan continent a place for you to raise Huo Yu Hao. Putting aside Tang San's own selfishness and intentionally failing to leave behind the Tang sect unique arts, as a first-class god sea god and half an Asura god, was it really that difficult for Tang San to prop up a mere Tang sect? Later, when the Sun and Moon Empire crushed the entire continent and was about to win against the Douluo continent, Tang San did not hesitate at all, directly pulling a Deus Ex Machina to forcefully rewrite the battle situation on the field. Who in the God Realm Committee would care if you, God King Tang San, broke the law and committed crimes? As soon as these words came out, the many heroines of Douluo I and Douluo 2 all wore expressions of sheer disbelief on their faces. In Douluo I, the atmosphere inside the spirit hall suddenly turned incomparably gloomy, and Juliana on the side didn't even dare to draw a full breath. Good heavens, the sea god, half an Asura god, the dual god king Lord Tangsan, he scared me to tears. Should the spirit hall just surrender? On the other side, Bibi Dong was not nearly as pessimistic, instead, she wore a pensive look. The sea god, the Asura god king, the coexistence of dual gods. Tangsan could do it, so there was no reason she, who also possessed top-tier twin spirits, couldn't. At the same time, far away on Sea God Island, thousands of miles away, the waves surged turbulently, and the light of the 7 sacred pillars flashed with brilliant radiance. So Tangsan is the successor personally chosen by Lord Sea God. Bo Saxi's gaze flickered slightly, her thoughts quickly sorting out the context and connection. Tangsan, also surnamed Tang, Tang Hao's son, bearing the clear sky hammer. She wondered if Tangsan had an inextricable relationship with Tang Chen. In Douluo too, Stardo Great Forest. Tangya and Bebe were currently leading Huo Yuhao, a new disciple who had just joined the Tang sect, as the group hurried back to Shrek City. After reading the series of explosive revelations in the diary, Tangya's footsteps paused slightly, and she quietly glanced at the thin, young boy Yuhao beside her, her gaze turning incomparably complex. Huo Yuhao was truly too miserable of a child, displaced and wandering, coming to the Stardo Great Forest all alone, his bumpy fate made people's hearts ache. Yet unexpectedly, such an ill-fated youth was actually the son of destiny of this era. She quietly glanced at the dim 10-year spirit ring on Huo Yuhao's body. With a first spirit ring of less than 100 years acting as the bottom-tier spirit ring, was he really the son of destiny? Why did these storytellers have to portray the protagonists under their pen so miserably? The protagonist suffers countless calamities, while the villain has a happy family. It seemed that even the writer of the diary copy, a youth named Shin Moyu, also seemed to have had a miserable start. These authors must be out of their minds. Tangya inwardly complained to herself. In contrast, as for the cruel truth revealed in the diary about Tangsan's selfishness in retaining a portion of the Tang sect unique arts, Tangya was unwilling to dwell on it. Lord Sea God must have a profound meaning for doing this. Speaking of the Asura God King's God position inheritance, I really cannot hold it in anymore. After finishing the entirety of Douluo, I only want to say that this is a grand play meticulously planned out by the Asura God, and the Sea God of the God Realm as part of their plan to step down from the God Realm. All living beings are merely pieces on this chessboard, entirely swept along by the great trends of the era. Those who conform to the era live, while those who go against the great trends of the era will ultimately end up battered and scarred. And the sole ultimate winner of this grand play is Tangsan, with the coexistence of dual gods. The incidental beneficiaries who followed Tangsan were only the Shrek 7 devils, with the remaining 6 all ascending to the God Realm. As for the sacrifices of this entire game, they were on the Spirit Hall side, Bibi Dong, the Rakshasa god who joined forces to kill Tangsan, and Qian Runshui, the angel god, who were merely tools paving the way for Tangsan. The Asura God King and the Sea God smoothly handed over their divinities and fled away to the God Realm, which is truly celebratory. However, from a conspiracy theory perspective, the endings of these so-called incidental beneficiaries, the original Shrek 7 devils, might not necessarily be all that good. Let's not talk about the pendant Xiao Wu first, there are plenty of tragedies awaiting her later, practically a handful at a time. Douluo I Xiao Wu. Douluo 2 and 3 Xiao Wu. Let's first talk about Ma Hongjun, the only single dog among the Shrek 7 devils. Leaving aside various despicable things this chubby kid did before he was even 10 years old, such as visiting brothels to listen to music, harassing decent women, and actively provoking female spirit masters. He originally had the opportunity to vie for the first-class divinity of the Fire God's God position, but unfortunately, he didn't strive hard enough, had to settle for second best, and in the end only managed to snag a second-class Phoenix God. Of course, for most limit Douluo on the Douluo continent, let alone a second-class divinity, even just becoming a divine attendant would have countless people fighting to take the position. But I only want to say, too small, your perspective is too small. Ma Hongjun's life tragedy was only just beginning. He and Bai Chenqiang fell deeply in love, weathered the storms to finally become a wedded couple, had children, and stayed together for a lifetime. Yet the rules of the God Realm were cold and merciless, a second-class divinity simply did not have the authority to bring family members into the God Realm. Later, Ma Hongjun sat alone in the God Realm, enduring the suffering of lovesickness year after year, forever unable to let go of his mortal wife. He also repeatedly begged Tangsan to lend a helping hand, but to no avail. A day in the God Realm is a year in the mortal world. Ma Hongjun could only watch helplessly as Bai Chenqiang aged bit by bit, moving step by step from a graceful beauty to her twilight years, and finally turning into a handful of dust. Sigh, affectionate Phoenix God, please wait another lifetime. And as everyone knows, at that time Tangsan, possessing the dual god positions of Asura God King and Sea God, if he truly wanted to bring his cousin Bai Chenqiang into the God Realm, it certainly wouldn't have been that difficult. But Tangsan was no good person. Being newly arrived, he hadn't even fully understood the rules of the God Realm yet. Furthermore, because of his dual god positions, and being top-tier divinities like the Sea God and Asura God, many gods had already grown dissatisfied with him. For the sake of his own official career, Tangsan could not possibly go help his cousin just because of a close friend's request. Admittedly, it's true that Ma Hongjun is my, Tangsan's, brother, and it's also true that you, Bai Chenqiang, are my, Tangsan's, cousin, but this precedent cannot be set. Moreover, Tangsan didn't just have one cousin. Wealthy in a bustling market, no one asks, poor in the deep mountains, you have distant relatives. There were plenty of people wanting to climb up by following the pole. Not to mention that Ma Hongjun lacked drive himself and missed out on a first-class god position. The status gap between a first-class god and a second-class god was worlds apart. Given Ma Hongjun's future status in the God Realm, he was simply not worth the high and mighty God King Tangsan taking risks for. Therefore, objectively speaking, this matter really cannot be blamed on Tangsan. Being able to bring the remaining 6 members of Shrek to find suitable divinities was already the utmost he could do within his power. As for blaming Ma Hongjun for not working hard enough, did his cultivation increase over all these years, and did he practice seriously? Without knowing the full picture, no comment can be made. We simply do not know what the trials of the first-class divinity of the Fire God were like. So when all is said and done, it wasn't Tangsan who harmed Ma Hongjun, but this cruel world that harmed you. Chapter 8. The friendship of our Shrek 7 devils is indestructible. Tangsan still has to conduct a political background check, after all. Helping the remaining 6 dependent teammates of Shrek find suitable divinity positions can already be considered going above and beyond. Of course, all of this is still paving the way for himself. The Shrek 7 devils reuniting and achieving godhood. In essence, it is just Tangsan cultivating his own faction within the God Realm Committee. I have to say, the setting of the God Realm Committee is truly abstract. Ascending to the God Realm and becoming a god, yet you cannot do as you please or live in eternal freedom, and instead you still have to be supervised by the gods of the God Realm. What difference is there between this and bitterly cultivating in the immortal cultivation world for a millennium to undergo the tribulation and ascend, only to be dragged off the mine in the heavenly realm and denied freedom for a lifetime? What is more, this brat Tang San is extremely cunning. While he speaks of close friends and how the friendship of our Shrek 7 devils is indestructible, in reality, they are about as close as superficial brothers. When his qualifications were still shallow in the early stages, he respectfully called Daimubai boss Dai. After achieving success and fame in the later stages, it was Daimubai this and Daimubai that, drawing clear lines of intimacy, status, and respect. In contrast, Xiaoyan, the protagonist of neighboring Battle Through the Heavens continent, respectfully addressed him as Elder Hai during his down and out early years. Even after ascending to the rank of a Dodi powerhouse in the later stages, his original intention remained unchanged, treating him with the same courtesy as before and affectionately calling him Elder Hai at every turn. To those who helped him, Xiaoyan has always kept it engraved in his heart, a kindness dripping with water shall be repaid with a surging spring. Douluo I bai Chenqiang. Douluo I Zhu Zuqing. BTTH Xiaomei, what? Xiaoyan is actually the protagonist. Isn't he just a good for nothing at the third stage of Doji? BTTH Nalan Yanren, is Xiaoyan the protagonist? So what, back then, I, Nalan Yanren, was determined to break off that engagement. Even if Grandpa comes, it won't matter. BTTH Yu Zuner, I just knew that big brother Xiaoyan was destined to become a powerhouse on the continent. BTTH Xian, Xiaoyan, what genius from where is this? Never heard of him, let's go eat first. Later, when the god realm fell into chaos, there was a highlight moment concerning Ma Hongjun. The god of destruction initiated a war against sea god Tang San. The god of destruction's underling, the god of desire, having experienced all greedy, angry, and obsessive thoughts, was completely captivated by Ma Hongjun's melancholic gaze and almost affected. In this plot segment, Ma Hongjun's tragedy was portrayed to the fullest. Phoenix god Ma Hongjun, relying on his deep love for Bai Chenqiang, directly broke free from the original sin judgment of the god of desire. The former evil fire phoenix transformed into the current phoenix god, not leaving a single trace of evil fire behind. This transformation shocked the god of desire. Phoenix god Ma Hongjun said with a grief-stricken expression, in the decades since becoming a god, apart from the hatred for my own incompetence, my heart has been left with nothing but longing and love for her. If I had known back then that failing to inherit the god of fire's divinity would mean I couldn't bring her into the god realm, I would rather not have become a god, and would rather have grown old together with her. Everything returns to dust. In the end, the phoenix became a god, lost the rain swallow, and lost its soul. Fortunately, the god of wrath was right beside them, otherwise, the god of desire, being a tier 1 god, might really have let Ma Hongjun go because of her own desires. Douluo I, Speed Clan. Inside the serene and elegant young lady's boudoir, Bai Chenqiang stood quietly in front of the window, her gaze fixed on the words on the diary that seemed to drip with blood word by word, remaining silent for a long time. After a long while, Bai Chenqiang lowered her eyes gently and let out a long sigh. Thank you, Ma Hongjun. Matters having reached this point, there was nothing more to say. At this time, she did not yet know Ma Hongjun, and had only heard that Lanba Academy had suddenly changed its name to Shrek Academy, making many people curious about the reason behind it. Having read about his solitude in the god realm for the next few decades and witnessed the ending where he guarded her for decades, the young lady's mood was incomparably complex. At this moment, the contents of the diary continued to update. As for the other deified couple, god of war Daimubai and goddess of speed Zhu Zuqing, it was another scene entirely. Douluo I Zhu Zuyun, little sister has become a god, that's wonderful. A tragic scene. Douluo I Zhu Zuyun. There's no need to mention how Huo Yuhao, a descendant of the Dai family, was trained like a dog by Tang San, nor is there any need to mention the matters of boss Dai Daimubai. Douluo Tu Shu Juju, Huo Yuhao turns out to be a member of the Dai family. The Dai family actually produced a destined protagonist, but why is his surname Huo? Aside from these two matters, as the former big brother of the Shrek 7 devils, Tang San on the surface didn't seem to have done anything too outrageous. Although Daimubai was promiscuous and full of bad records in his early years, he was a noble lord with status right there, so that made sense. However, the god of envy has a great quote, which can be called the clearest statement. By what right does sea god Tang San get to govern the god realm? He simply doesn't have the qualifications. Ever since he took power, the god realm has stagnated and has not made the slightest bit of progress anymore. The god of envy was right, the most supportive episode. From how Tang San forcibly transformed the entire Douluo continent into his own exclusive backyard garden, one can see what kind of nature Tang San has deep down. To put it bluntly, what impartial and selfless damn god realm. From the moment later on when God King Tang San renamed the god realm to the Douluo god realm, Tang San's ambition and desire for power could no longer be hidden. If the two god kings of evil and good weren't still out jungling actually on their honeymoon, Tang San would have even wanted to rename the god realm to the Tang realm. Douluo to Asura god scabbard high tier fusion material Xiao Wu. Douluo to goddess of life. As for the pair of 9-colored goddess Ning Rongrong and food god Oscar, to be honest, the content that follows is a bit conspiracy theoretic. Why was the 7 treasure glazed tile school able to change its name? Wasn't it because Tang San gave the immortal herb to Ning Rongrong, making up for the spirit defect of the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda? This monstrous kindness is also the reason why Ning Fengji was willing to exhaust the entire sect's strength and wholeheartedly support Tang San. What a pity, all of Fate's gifts have already had their prices secretly marked in advance, often, the free ones are the most expensive. The #1 auxiliary sect that was once infinitely glorious and stood prominently on the continent, the 7 treasure glazed tile school, was wiped out overnight, leaving only Ning Fengji and sword Douluo Chen Xin with a broken arm, and the former glory of the sect withered away completely. And during the final decisive battle, when Tang San was killed by the combined efforts of Bibi Dong and Qian Runshui, it was sword Douluo Chen Xin who dragged his battered body and risked his life to forcefully bring back Tang San's complete corpse from a sea of blood and mountains of corpses. If Tang San's corpse hadn't been complete at that time, no matter how awesome Ning Rongrong and Oscar were, they wouldn't have been able to execute the divine soul fusion skill resurrection divine light, and Tang San would have died without a doubt. And after completely pacifying Spirit Hall and securing his position as the supreme ruler of the Douluo continent, what had Tang San ever done for the 7 treasure glazed tile school that had helped him with all its might? I don't know, because the author didn't write it laughs. This piece of history wasn't mentioned at all and was brushed over with a single stroke. Of course, according to the snippets of information in Douluo 2, of all the forces that followed Tang San back then, only the flourishing Shrek Academy, the secluded Clear Sky sect, the backward 9 treasure glazed tile school, and the verge of bankruptcy Tang sect remained. Chapter 9. Standing before you is Xiao Wu, the Chinese anime heroine who walked on thin ice her whole life. There is a terrifying doubt hidden here that makes one shudder upon careful thought. As the lifelong painstaking effort of Ning Fengji, the 7 treasure glazed tile school is a top-tier sect passed down through generations. But why did Ning Rongrong and Oscar, after becoming gods, not leave behind any offspring of their own on Douluo continent? Douluo too only has the 9 treasure glazed tile school. Since it can exist, it shows that when the sect's tragic annihilation happened back then, a portion of disciples miraculously survived outside, preserving the sect's fire. Then, this becomes terrifying upon deep thought. From a conspiracy theory perspective, isn't it because the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda is already powerful enough on its own, a top-tier supporting tool spirit? If descendants possessing the complete bloodline of the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda were left on Douluo continent, the 9 treasure glazed tile school would inevitably rise again. By then, could the Tang sect personally established by Tang San still have a glorious era? As the cold truth was dissected, the mental states of all the diary copy holders were startled. Douluo Jian Runshui, deserve. Douluo Juliana, good riddance, meow. Douluo Ning Rongrong, will the future be like this? Grandpa Sword, Grandpa Bone, Dad, I am sorry. Inside the dormitory of Shrek Academy, the lamplight was dim. Ning Rongrong lay on the bed, her entire body curled up inside the quilt, her delicate body trembling uncontrollably. In the end, the sword broke and the bones shattered, Fungi's hair turned completely white overnight. This sentence clung to her like a nightmare, pressing down on Ning Rongrong until she could barely breathe. She dared not imagine what kind of tragic scene the future truly held. At the thought of Uncle Sword losing his arm, Uncle Bone dying in battle, her father spending his old age in loneliness and misery, and the sect's heritage being cut off, the young girl's nose instantly grew sore and red, her voice choked with sobs. Douluo to Ning Tian, how could it be like this? Tang San, our 7 treasure glazed tile school has paid so much, why must you treat us this way? Douluo Zhu Zuqing, wrong, alas. Of course, all of this is merely baseless speculation, but the accuracy of this suspicion is still very high. No matter what, after Ning Rongrong became a god, she did not leave behind bloodline offspring on Douluo continent to help the 9 treasure glazed tile school restore its glory. This is an indisputable fact. And do not use becoming a god and finding it hard to conceive as an excuse. Being gods just the same, after Xiao Wu became a god, she even conceived a pair of children, Tang Wedong and Tang Wulin. If it were not for Tang San, that father-in-law, interfering, Tang Wedong and Dai Yuhao's son Huo Zongji would have been born long ago. Poor little brother Yuhao endured his whole life, look at what kind of state he was adjusted into. And isn't Ma Xiao Tao, the descendant of that old rascal Ma Hongjun, living very comfortably in Shrek Academy in Douluo too? That is why I dare say there is a 90% certainty that this conspiracy theory is true. To be honest, if it were me, I would probably do the same. There is a well-known principle in the cultivation world. The first thing anyone who achieves the Tao and becomes an immortal does upon looking back is to sever the path to immortality. If a person is not ruthless, their heart is unstable. Solely on this point, Tang San actually has room to be whitewashed. Douluo Huo Wu, 6. Douluo Du Guyan, 6. Douluo Juliana, this can even be whitewashed. Douluo Jian Runshui, that makes sense, but was I calculated to death for real? That Tang San is completely unreasonable, he is a thorough and utterly despicable villain. And the final member of the Shrek 7 Devils, Soft Bones Douluo Xiao Wu, Tang San's most cherished wife, and also, the most useful tool person. Standing before you now is Big Sister Xiao Wu of Nine Academy, the original Shrek 7 Devils, Thousand Hands Asura Tang San's wife, Soft Bones Demon Rabbit, Soft Bones Douluo, Tang Sect Master's wife, King Lanhao's wife, Sea God's wife, Asura God Sword Sheath, 100,000-year Rogue Rabbit, Soft Bones Rabbit Spirit Beast who recultivated and took human form, sacrificed flesh and blood for love to provide spirit rings and spirit bones, revive my lover, performed a second soul sacrifice at Jolling Pass to become the foundation of Tang San's dual god coexistence, rank 1 Chinese anime couple with 14.1 billion comments, 3,599 suggestions to lock them in, the ignorant wife whose daughter's spirit was split by her husband, the mother whose son was sent to Douluo continent by her husband to endure flesh and blood separation, the grandmother whose grandson and granddaughter-in-law died on the spot upon first meeting them, who finally escaped to Fairy continent only to be relentlessly cornered step by step by the Tang God King, the Chinese anime heroine who has walked on thin ice her whole life, Xiao Wu. Advance notice, there is not enough space here for so many people. Secondly, in this lifetime, this number of people might expand to Douluo 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Looking across the entirety of Douluo this is not just a passionate story of a youth making a comeback, but also a history of the God King's abdication carefully orchestrated by the Sea God and the Asura God. From beginning to end, Xiao Wu's fate was long since doomed, no different from Ayan. From the very moment she met Tang San, she had already stepped onto the path of being plotted against. As early as their first meeting in Nine Academy, from when the 6-year-old Xiao Wu entered Nine Academy to become a work-study student, Tang Hao, hidden in the shadows, had already seen through her identity as a 100,000-year spirit beast. Tang Hao's thoughts were probably similar to how he treated Ayin, first letting Xiao Wu and Tang San cultivate emotional bonds, spending years day and night together, and personally burying the foreshadowing of Xiao Wu's sacrificial tragedy in the future. Spirit Hall set out for the Stardo Great Forest to encircle and suppress Xiao Wu, dispatching 2 titled Douluo, Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo. What was originally a foolproof matter was forcefully turned into a blessing for Tang San. Xiao Wu sacrificed, and the 100,000-year spirit ring and spirit bone entirely belonged to Tang San, allowing Tang San, whose spirit power had just reached the limit of the 5-ring spirit king, to successfully promote to spirit emperor. Later, Tang San flexed hard in front of Feng Xiaodian and Huo Wu, his 6th spirit ring directly shining with a crimson, dazzling 100,000-year spirit ring, shocking the entire audience. Not to say unprecedented by those who come after, at least this was without precedent. I have to say, this man Tang Hao is also very kind-hearted. At least he held back, not slaughtering the rabbit to make soup when Xiao Wu was 6 years old, but instead letting her enjoy an innocent and beautiful love before personally pushing her into the bottomless abyss. Truly moving and tragic. Douluo Xiao Wu. She was completely dumbfounded. You call this moving and tragic? Xiao Wu stiffened in place, her past sweet smiles completely dissipating, her heart filled with bewilderment and bitterness. She had never imagined that the love she guarded with all her might, and her unhesitating sacrifice, was from beginning to end a meticulously planned scheme. Is this the destiny of a spirit beast? Douluo Ayin, this plot sounds a bit familiar. Could it be, is Hao really someone who calculates step by step like this? Inside a dim secret room, a swaying, brilliant silver grass swayed slightly, its crystal clear leaves trembling gently as a single dewdrop silently slid down. Just like a beauty shedding tears, falling silently to the ground. From initially not believing it to now gradually wavering, Ayin could do nothing at all. Douluo Eru, QWQ tilde my poor daughter, quickly leave Tang San. He really is not a good person. Just like Tang Hao, Tang San can also be considered a kind-hearted person. When treating his own wife, it can be said, to use every means possible. Of course, at the very beginning Tang San still thought Xiao Wu was a human, and he might have treated Xiao Wu with sincerity. But the assassin's blood in his bones destined this relationship to be nothing more than cold and utilitarian. For a very long time after first entering Shrek, Xiaowu was just like when she was little, treating Tang San merely as an older brother. Until Zhao Wuji led the group from Shrek to the Stardew Great Forest to hunt a spirit ring for Oscar. At that time, the Titan giant ape sensed the aura of its friend Xiaowu and decisively rushed out of the forest to take her away. To outsiders, Xiaowu was forcibly abducted by a terrifying 100,000-year spirit beast in an extremely critical crisis. Tang San seemed to lose his sanity, rushing forward regardless of his life and safety. It was also from this moment that the young girl's naive reliance deep in her heart quietly transformed into shy affection. She was overjoyed, thinking she had met a mutual true love, unaware that from this moment on, her life's table was crowded with all sorts of tragedies. Chapter 10. Ghost Shadow Perplexing Trap can dodge any attack, but it can't dodge the various beauties offering kisses. Tang San did indeed rush forward regardless of his life and safety, but was he crazy enough about love to lose his mind? Not necessarily. A mere three-ring spirit master relying on flesh and blood to chase a 100,000-year Titan giant ape, looking across the entire spirit master's world, this is simply a colossal joke. Sure enough, Tang San's physical strength was overdrawn not long after the chase began, and coincidentally, the protagonist's second cheat arrived. The Millennium Spirit Beast, Tang San's benefactor, loyal to the very end of its bloodline, the Millennium Man-faced demon spider came looking for him. At this time, Tang San was instead in no rush to chase anymore, finding an excuse that he lacked the strength to pursue further, and peace-of-mindedly gave up chasing the Titan giant ape, ultimately fortuitously killing the man-faced demon spider. You're right, but the protagonist just happened to have no strength left, fortuitously killed the man-faced demon spider, so what if he stopped to absorb a spirit ring? Xiaowu was only snatched away by the Titan giant ape, not dead. Couldn't they wait a bit? Is she really the delicate? Doge. Tang San didn't even think that in this little bit of delayed time, if Xiaowu didn't know the Titan giant ape, she would have long been steamed, braised, or stir-fried. The more ironic part came later. After killing the man-faced demon spider, Long Gong Mengshu chased the man-faced demon spider all the way, rushing to catch up. A spirit Douluo and a spirit emperor, who even possessed a spirit fusion ability and were the immensely famous overlord dragon and serpent of the Jianggu, actually let a 2,000-year man-faced demon spider escape. What's more crucial is that these two veteran spirit masters actually couldn't recognize the age of the man-faced demon spider. A 2,000-year limit was simply not something a squishy spirit master like Meng Yiren could absorb. Afterwards, Zhao Wuji and his party searched over, and Tang San even had the mind to make a bet with her granddaughter Meng Yiren, ultimately winning the little beauty's heart. Under Oscar's instigation, Meng Yiren, who lost the bet, ultimately shyly offered a fragrant kiss on the cheek. As for Xiaowu, I guess she probably wasn't crying and making a fuss in some unknown corner, right? You're not panicking, are you? You're right, Ghost Shadow Perplexing Track is hailed as the fastest speed under heaven, able to dodge any attack, but it just can't dodge the active kisses of various beauties. Back then, every word was resolute and clanging, repeatedly professing love to Xiaowu, taking a public vow that whoever dared to bully Xiaowu would have to step over his corpse first. As a result, Meng Yiren's kiss wasn't dodged, Huohu's kiss wasn't dodged, Ning Rongrong's kiss wasn't dodged. During the Sea God 9 trials, Zhu Zuqing's kiss wasn't dodged either, and Ning Rongrong, kissed him again. Simply a double standard dog, extremely hypocritical. You're right, but it's in a man's nature. Tang San merely committed a mistake that all men would commit, wouldn't apologizing afterwards suffice. After all, Xiaowu was going to form the Shrek 7 Devils for a lifetime. If you want life to go on smoothly, sometimes you gotta wear a little green on your head. Besides, Xiaowu didn't even mind, watching with her own eyes as Zhu Zuqing and Ning Rongrong offered fragrant kisses. Wait, was Xiaowu resurrected at that time? It seems she was. Then let's put this aside for now. Anyway, the main person Xiaowu doesn't mind is all that matters. Since the girlfriend of the person involved doesn't mind, as pure bystanders shouldn't awkwardly blacken his name. Just quietly eat melons and silently leave behind a basket of vegetable leaves and rotten eggs. Although I'm not some pure love kind of person either, if it were me, I wouldn't dodge either, but let's kiss openly and above board. Having beauties in both arms and kissing until our lips go soft is totally fine. I have always believed in a saying, appetite and sex are human nature. So when encountering a beauty, taking a look is respect, keeping on looking is keeping on respecting. We've already transmigrated to the romance continent. If we don't date 8 or 10 wives, how can we live up to the performance of the grand transport driver? How can we live up to the cheat sent by Mother Earth? Douluo I Xiaowu. Douluo I Meng Yiren, can they be the same? Douluo I Ning Rongrong, he is different. Tang San gave me an immortal herb, and the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda as a monumental fortuitous encounter. Was I just a bit too overjoyed for a moment? Douluo I Zhu Zuqing, would I do such a thing? Douluo I Huohu, thinking back now, I was really stupid at the time. I was truly foolish, really. And Xiaowu, safely escorted back by the Titan giant ape, witnessed with her own eyes Tang San wholeheartedly absorbing the spirit ring of the man-faced demon spider without a shred of doubt in her heart. Was Tang San really anxious? However, absorbing the spirit ring was indeed quite urgent. After all, if he didn't strike while the iron was hot, the Millennium Spirit Ring would dissipate once it left the body. During this period, Xiaowu was nearly an airhead, completely oblivious to the viciousness of human nature, the kind who would help count the money even after being sold out. If Tang San were truly anxious about her safety, how could he possibly peace-of-mindedly absorb the spirit ring? I'm afraid by the time he leisurely finished absorbing the spirit ring and rushed to the depths of the Stardew Great Forest, all he would find left behind by the Titan giant ape would be some crap. Sigh, I can only say as expected of the romance continent, this continent truly does not raise idlers. Xiaowu was just like this, only needing to be a sweet airhead, rushing to her death for love at critical moments, brainlessly sacrificing herself. In contrast, Tang San had much more to consider with absorbing the spirit ring, paragon golden body, and intangibility. It makes me want to find a spirit beast wife, at least for the loyalty. Douluo I Xiaowu. Douluo 2 Xiaowu. Douluo 3 Xiaowu. Objectively speaking, you can bash Tang San however you like, but the one point that he deeply loves his wife cannot be bashed. Xiaowu sacrificed herself for him, with her 100,000-year spirit ring and spirit bone entirely returning to Tang San, and Tang San never abandoned Xiaowu either. At least he didn't seek other pleasures after becoming handsome. And to resurrect Xiaowu, Tang San even personally shattered his own first 6 hard-earned spirit rings as the Blue Silver Emperor, crippling most of his own cultivation and sparing no cost to bet his entire future. During the ultimate decisive battle at Jialing Pass, Tang San was killed by the joint forces of Bibi Dong and Qian Runshui, 2 gods. That year, the emptiness in Xiaowu's eyes remains unforgettable even now. Picture.jpg. It can be said that Tang San might be fake to anyone else, but his deep affection and partiality toward Xiaowu could never be fake. But then again, I suddenly understand Gangzi. Back then in the soul-hunting forest, if Tang San's first spirit ring had been a 10-year solitary bamboo, he could have used his first spirit ability, Blue Silver Pole Vault, to dodge a calamity. Gangzi's understanding this wave is 20 years ahead of Douluo continent. Truly, Tang San going to school makes me want to be taught by Gang again. Diary copy heroines, PFF. In the quiet midnight, the uncontrollable laughter of countless young maidens sounded at some unknown moment. Affection is affection, but it doesn't prevent me from cursing Tang San, nor does it prevent Xiao Wu's tragedy. In the era of Douluo IB Ultimate Douluo, the God Realm returned. At this time, Xiao Wu was practically no different from a corpse. She hurriedly glanced at her grandson Tang Xuanyu and granddaughter-in-law Bai Shoushou, who had reunited across lifetimes, as well as her son Tang Wulan who had been separated for many years, without even leaving half a tender word before passing away directly. And at this moment, Tang San, the God King who had already subdued the other God Realms and developed the Douluo God Realm into a great God Circle, slit his throat in less than 0.1 seconds the moment his beloved passed away, abandoning his God King God position to follow Xiao Wu. This unhesitating companionship through life and death was enough to reflect Tang San's unconditional partiality toward Xiao Wu. Of course, setting aside this filter where even looking at a dog is affectionate, is there a possibility that this was just a reason deliberately found by that lord in order to continue writing Douluo Continent V? Counting the Douluo series carefully, Douluo Continent Side Story, Legends of the God Realm, Douluo Continent 2, The Unrivaled Tang Sect, Douluo Continent Side Story, Tang Sect Heroes, Douluo Continent 3, The Legend of the Dragon King, Douluo Continent IV, Ultimate Douluo. Every book title is magnificent and grand, each having its own layout, but when it came to the sequel, Douluo Continent V, Reborn Tang San. Anyone who can easily keep a straight face at this book title, I am willing to call them a cracking bomb. Chapter 11, Weakness and ignorance have never been obstacles to the survival of a civilization. As for the current timeline, the All-Continent Advanced Spirit Master Elite Tournament hasn't started yet, and I don't know if Tang San has gotten any immortal herbs from that sucker Douluo. Douluo, that benefactor who invested in Tang San early on, can only be said to have backed the wrong person, just like Ning Fengji. Tang San completely doesn't treat you people as human beings. The ice and fire Yin Yang Well is a top-tier precious land nurtured by heaven and earth, filled everywhere with peerless immortal herbs. Taking just a single stock out would be enough to make spirit masters across the continent go crazy fighting and killing for it. Yet, Tang San had no intention at all of leaving even half a shred of fortune for you old poison. Any casual immortal herb from inside could solve the jade purple snake venom that has plagued Du Guyan for many years, completely eradicate her spirit's defect, and even sublimate and evolve her spirit. Even for Du Gubo himself, to say the least, breaking through a few ranks of spirit power to become a super Douluo would be a piece of cake. Sitting atop an entire treasury of immortal herbs, Tang San hoarded them all privately, unwilling to share even a fraction of the benefits with Du Gubo and his granddaughter. However, he was quite good to his own people. Each of the Shrek 7 devils got a top-grade immortal herb, and his good-for-nothing teacher Yu Xiaobing also received one. His spirit defect was resolved on the spot, and his spirit power broke through to rank 30. Without exaggerating, if not for the immortal herbs, whether the other 6 of Shrek could become gods would still be an unknown. Douluo Continent I, Du Guyan, detestable Tang San, I knew you harbored malicious intentions. Staring at the diary floating before her, Du Guyan trembled all over with anger, her pretty face flushing crimson as she gnashed her teeth. No, grandfather must be told about this. Du Guyan clenched her fists tightly, speaking with an indignant expression. She had already made up her mind that as soon as dawn broke the next day, she would immediately wake up her grandfather Du Gubo, who was in secluded cultivation and recuperation. She definitely had to go demand an explanation from Tang San and expose his hypocritical true face. However, the subsequent diary contents instantly made her composure crack somewhat. That being said, I feel that Tang San being abducted by Du Gubo to the Sunset Forest is quite unreasonable. Isn't that old fellow Tang Hao always by Tang San's side? Yet Du Gubo was somehow able to easily take Tang San away. Given the personality of that guy Tang Rishan, the only explanation is probably that he went to drink. As expected of the protagonist's biological father, he manages to slack off while protecting his child at the same time, having his own style. Tang San went missing for over a month, and Tang Hao paid no attention from beginning to end, unless he had been following by Tang San's side all along. Du Guyan. Tang Hao. That Clear Sky Douluo, who shook the entire Douluo continent, the youngest titled Douluo in history, one of the twin stars of the Clear Sky, who severely injured the former Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall with a single hammer, His Excellency Clear Sky Douluo. Could it be that throughout the entire process of her grandfather abducting Tang San, this top-tier god of slaughter had been hiding in the shadows observing? Terrifying the more one thinks about it. At the thought of a titled Douluo spying from the shadows every single second, Du Guyan went completely numb all over, fine cold sweat instantly crawling across her back. Du Guyan silently retracted the impulse to demand an explanation from Tang San in her heart. She wasn't admitting defeat, she was simply following her heart. Although the Jade Phosphorus Serpent Emperor was strong, and Du Gubo's poison arts were peerless under heaven, whether her grandfather could withstand the enraged Clear Sky Hammer was something she did not know. But Du Guyan knew that her frail little physique definitely wouldn't withstand a single hammer from Clear Sky Douluo. What a pity, Qian Runshui right now is still holed up in the Heaven Do Imperial family playing house games, and she even developed a cherishing talent mindset, plotting to recruit Tang San. I can only say, it's quite something. Qian Runshui, the future angel god, is very strong, right? Douluo Continent I, Qian Runshui, that's right, I'm clearly this strong. Deep within the Heaven Do Imperial Palace, Qian Runshui's gaze flickered slightly, a touch of curiosity and pride rising in her heart. She was born a proud daughter of heaven, her talent peerless throughout the world, and in the future she would even ascend to a god position and wield the supreme existence of the angel god. Since she would achieve the angel god, it made no sense for her to sit idly by and watch Tang San rise, right? Qian Runshui's eyes were filled with curiosity, inwardly anticipating what kind of future secrets this transmigrator named Qin Muyu actually knew. However, the subsequent diary contents nearly made her facial expression management break down. In the late stages of Douluo Continent I, Tang San, who had yet to become a god and only possessed titled Douluo Cultivation, almost beheaded the angel god on the spot relying solely on the top-tier hidden weapons of the Tang sect. The biggest flaw in Qian Runshui's life was never insufficient talent, but rather softness of heart and conceit. After ascending to the angel god position, Qian Runshui actually still thought of recruiting Tang San, who was her enemy. In the end, she was defeated by her own arrogance. This is something worth me keeping in mind. No matter when, you must never give the enemy a chance. Weakness and ignorance are never obstacles to a civilization's survival, arrogance is. Even more absurdly, Qian Runshui actually grew somewhat fond of Tang San, showing mercy again and again. This also explained why Qian Runshui was willing to give Tang San chances, ultimately ending up defeated and dead with her god position shattered. Douluo Continent I, Qian Renshui, impossible, absolutely impossible. Douluo Continent I, BB Dong, hidden weapons. Mere hidden weapons can actually slay a god. Douluo Continent I, Ning Rongrong, so Tang Sek hidden weapons are this strong. Should I tell Dad and have him look for third brother, buy a blueprint from Tang San? Douluo Continent 2, Tang Ya. Are hidden weapons really that strong? How come she never noticed? To be fair, for mere Tang Sek hidden weapons to be able to slay a god, it can only be said that Douluo Continent truly deserves to be the floor tile of fantasy worlds. Not to mention anything else, even the Earth from my past life, a world of ordinary people with no spirits, not even extraordinary power, where the average human lifespan is only 70 years, any developing country could effortlessly flatten the entire Douluo Continent. They wouldn't even need to use ultimate weapons like nuclear weapons, the upper limit of Douluo Continent's combat power isn't worthy of it. I admit your spirit is indeed very strong, but my marksmanship is not inferior in the slightest. Marksmanship is also a law, and ballistics is also the Tao. All roads lead to the same destination, Tao follows nature. Douluo Continent I, Qian Renshui, a gun. What kind of long spear can slay gods just like hidden weapons? Douluo Continent I, BB Dong, without a spirit, without cultivation, relying solely on nuclear weapons one can traverse the heavens and earth. Can technology actually develop such terrifying power? Douluo Continent 2, Shu Juju, this statement is not false. After the advent of soul-guided thermal weapons, the living space of spirit beasts has indeed been constantly compressed. Douluo Continent 3, by Ji, Sai. Douluo Continent IV, by Shosho, this is indeed true. I have to admit, Qian Renshui lurking in Heaven Do and single-mindedly focusing on recruiting Tang San is the most abstract operation I have ever seen, bar none. Under the identity of Heaven Do Crown Prince Shui Qing, going through all kinds of trouble and putting down her dignity to recruit Tang San, I just want to ask, is this recruiting an enemy for Spirit Hall? Douluo Continent I, Qian Renshui. Douluo Continent I, Shui Kei. To return to the undercover mission, I'm really curious, who on earth approved this mission? Douluo Continent is inherently a world where strength is supreme and the strong are respected, yet they sent the number 1 genius in 10,000 years with rank 20 innate spirit power and the ultimate angel god bloodline to go undercover in the Heaven Do imperial family. What difference does this operation have from making the high and mighty holy maiden lower her status to go undercover in a small family faction? The daughter of the world's richest person going undercover in a rural village chief's home, just to inherit their village chief position. Don't end up getting stuffed into a delicious cream puff outback model. Culture, faith, and family philosophy are undoubtedly the places that test human nature the most. Sending one's own descendant with the highest talent to someone else's home to be raised, aren't they afraid that the descendant might develop feelings over time and give rise to inappropriate affections? Coincidentally, not just Qian Renshui, isn't Xiao Shuner from Battle Through the Heavens also like this? She went undercover in the declining Xiao family of the 8 ancient clans and ended up falling in love with Xiao Yan. The dignified daughter of the patriarch of one of the 8 ancient clans, the apple of the eye of Ji Yuan at the peak of Doshang, a proud daughter of heaven, holding the 4th rank golden emperor burning heaven flame on the heavenly flame ranking, possessing the divine grade Dodi bloodline of the ancient clan, yet going undercover in the Xiao family of Wudin City, a remote corner of a remote corner with only Daodushi cultivation. But you don't say, Xiao Shuner at least invested in the right person, eating deliciously and withdrawing with millions. Dodi was only the starting point, later she crossed planes to ascend to the great ruler, becoming the matriarch of the endless fire domain in the great thousand world. Battle Through the Heavens heroines. Chapter 12, Diary Copy Rewards. Let's write here for tonight. Before I knew it, it's almost dawn of the next day. Closing square bracket. I wonder what the diary rewards for the first day will be, wishing for title Douluo Cultivation. Closing square bracket. In this era of Douluo limit Douluo are basically hidden from the world. Bosaishi guards Sea God Island and remains unconcerned with worldly affairs. Qian Daliu's gentleman's sword strictly adheres to his bottom line, and Tang Chen is still serving time. Closing square bracket. At this stage, as long as one wields title Douluo Cultivation, they can be treated as an honored guest in any faction. Closing square bracket. Qin Moyu slowly closed his diary, quietly waiting for the diary reward. He raised his eyes to look around. The dilapidated thatched cottage was in leaked wind from all 4 sides, and the pattering night rain seeped in through the gaps, the chill carrying moisture permeating the entire cabin. It's just a young man blowing some cold wind. His physique is very tough. How could it be so easy to catch rheumatism? Qin Moyu joked with deliberate ease, but secretly sighed in his heart. It truly lived up to the old saying, misfortunes never come singly. Speaking of this poem, Qin Moyu couldn't help but think of the line, ah, could I get a mansion of 1,000,000 rooms to shelter all the impoverished scholars of the world and make them beam with joy? Although he wasn't some noble saint, if he had the ability, he wouldn't mind lending a hand to help ordinary people on Douluo Continent. After all, when he first arrived on Douluo Continent, he had nothing. If it weren't for these simple and kind ordinary people, he might have starved to death on a strange street long ago. At the same time, across the heavens and myriad realms, the female protagonists and supporting female characters of different planes and timelines saw a new line of text emerge on the diaries before them. A new day begins. Based on the viewing level of the diary content, the exclusive system points for the diary copy holders are uniformly settled. Closing square bracket. Detected that the current host Qin Moyu was in Douluo plane, the following functions are now unlocked. Heaven's Mall System. Accumulated system points can be freely exchanged for treasures of the heavens and myriad realms, including divine weapons, immortal herbs, cultivation techniques, and technological creations. Closing square bracket. Douluo Spirit Ascension Platform System. Accumulated system points can be directly exchanged for enhancements, raising the age of spirit rings and spirit beasts without thresholds, breaking through cultivation shackles. Closing square bracket. Subsequent high-level functions of the diary system are under development, so stay tuned. Closing square bracket. As the voice faded, the gorgeous diary reappeared before their eyes, and a brand new screen suddenly unfolded. The dazzling array of treasures completely subverted the cognition of countless female protagonists. Taking Douluo Plane as an example, the group of female protagonists saw top-tier immortal herbs mentioned in the diary content, such as silk tulip, octagonal mysterious ice grass, and blazing apricot delicate. Not only that, the technology of later generations in Douluo also appeared in the system mall. Soul tool cannons, soul tool storage rings, baby bottles, 4-word battle armors, 6-word battle armors, god-grade mechas, warships, and many other unimaginable technologies. Meanwhile, the proud female protagonists of the Battle Through the Heavens plane were completely dumbfounded, their hearts stirring up monstrous waves. A casual swipe through the system mall revealed countless Earth-tier and Heaven-tier cultivation techniques covering the sky and Earth. These techniques, which would inevitably cause ancient sects and top families to fight head over heels if leaked outside, were simply as numerous as roadside garbage here. What shocked ancient clan female protagonists like Ji Yuzuner, Yao Ling, and Huo Ji was that lying on the pin top page of the mall was Source Ji, which had long been extinct and was essential for breaking through to Dodi cultivation. For nearly 1,000 years on the Dochi continent, ever since the conclusion of Tuo's ancient emperor, not a single person had ascended to the realm of Dodi. Everyone knew that Tuo's ancient emperor was the last Dodi, but no one knew how he achieved the status of Dodi. Perhaps in the future, the diary copy content would reveal the secret of attaining emperor status. Tuo's ancient emperor accidentally obtained the mantra of flame, and by continuously devouring heavenly flames, he forcibly refined the long-extinct Source Ji, thus certifying his Tao to become an emperor. The reason why the 8 ancient clans were powerful and stood at the pinnacle of the continent was precisely because their ancestors were once Dodi. But to this day, the Dodi bloodline was increasingly exhausted, and the heaven and earth Source Ji had completely withered away. The patriarchs of various ancient clans and countless top powerhouses sat in withered meditation for countless years, exhausting their lifespans, yet all of them remained trapped at the peak of Doshang. Only before passing away did countless powerhouses vaguely realize that certain substances were missing between heaven and earth, which cut off the path to emperorhood for later generations. Viewed this way, those Dodi powerhouses of antiquity who traversed the Dochi continent and crushed all clans were not only supremely talented, but also held Source Ji and completed the Great Tao, thus transcending the Saint Realm and ascending to Dodi. At this thought, the expressions of all the proud female protagonists of the ancient clans changed drastically, and their eyes instantly became fiery. They all realized that a new round of competition had silently begun. Just as Jin Moyu had written in the diary content earlier, strength is supreme on the Dochi continent. Nowadays, within the 8 ancient clans, there were powerhouses stuck at the peak of Doshang. Whoever could obtain Source Ji first would forge the first newborn Dodi in 1,000 years. The birth of a Dodi was enough to suppress the 8 clans, sweep across the continent, and look down upon the world with no rivals left. The women made up their minds to use all means to obtain system points and compete for the chance of Source Ji. At Shrek Academy, the lights in the girls' dormitory were dimly lit, and the evening breeze brushed gently past. Outside the dormitory door, Luo Long's footsteps lingered for a long time, her mind restless and tossing and turning. Ever since reading about Xiao Wu's tragic and bumpy fate in the diary, she had been restless all night, ultimately unable to help raising her hand and gently knocking on the door. Xiao Wu, are you asleep? The door opened in response, and the scenery inside came into view, making Luo Long slightly startled. Dean Erlong, you came too. There was more than one person in the dormitory besides Xiao Wu. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing were sitting aside, seemingly comforting the red-eyed Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu timidly hid behind the 2 women, sticking out an exquisite little face, her watery, reddish eyes carefully sizing up Luo Long. Deep in the young girl's eyes hid a thick sense of unease and nervousness, and her entire person exuded careful restraint. You, could it be that you all also have that diary? Luo Long suddenly realized, gently patting her forehead. Ma. Xiao Wu softly responded, her gaze exceptionally complex. She subconsciously stared at Luo Long, desperately trying to see a shred of malice from those familiar eyes. Watching her goddaughter's anxious and fully guarded appearance, Luo Long's heart ached with pity. Xiao Wu, don't be afraid. Rest assured, no one here dares to hurt you. Luo Long gently sighed, slowly stepped forward, her eyes entirely turning gentle, and opened her arms to steadily embrace Xiao Wu into her arms. The diary content warned about it, they don't dare to come and hurt you. Even if there really is someone blind enough to dare harbor evil thoughts against you, tell Mom the first time. Mom will protect you. The gentle and reassuring embrace, this unreserved favoritism and protection, instantly blew away the panic and fragility in Xiao Wu's heart. Mom. Xiao Wu's eyes instantly turned red, her nose sore and hard to bear, hugging Luo Long tightly, unwilling to let go for a long time. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing aside looked at each other and smiled, gently shaking their heads. Chapter 13. The emergence of 4-dimensional technology, the choice of the dragon god martial soul. Waiting for Xiao Wu's emotions to calm down slightly, Ning Rongrong took the initiative to step forward. With a sincere smile on the young girl's face, she held Xiao Wu's soft little hand. Xiao Wu, actually you don't need to worry too much. As her voice fell, Ning Rongrong's mind stirred, and a dazzling 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda rose from her palm. Its entire body was crystal white and translucent, surrounded by emerald green light. 3 spirit rings, yellow, and purple, lit up in succession, hovering around Ning Rongrong. Immediately afterward, Ning Rongrong took out her diary and clicked on the spirit ascension platform function of the system mall. The clear system points kept flashing, and a mere few dozen points were instantly consumed. In Luo Long's shocked gaze, the light of Ning Rongrong's original yellow second spirit ring surged drastically, its halo transforming layer by layer, and ultimately turning into a clear and translucent light purple. A millennium spirit ring. Even if it barely broke through the millennium limit, that was still a millennium for a second spirit ring. Wrong, what on earth is going on here? Luo Long's pupils constricted sharply. Even with her vast experience, she was full of disbelief at this moment. Previously, her heart was worried about Xiao Wu. As soon as the diary content ended, she hurried over to care for Xiao Wu and hadn't had time to look at the system mall. Ning Rongrong smiled faintly and explained, this is the spirit ascension platform function of the diary copy. It can consume points to raise the spirit ring age without any threshold. Zhu Zuqing at the side also nodded timely. Her spirit, the Hell Civet, quietly emerged, and her second spirit ring was shockingly also a light purple millennium spirit ring. It's just that our points are currently limited, and it's temporarily only enough to raise the second spirit ring to the millennium limit. Zhu Zuqing added, the Spirit Master Elite tournament is imminent. After discussing with Rongrong, we decided to first raise the second spirit ring to a millennium. A millennium spirit ring undoubtedly provides a huge boost to a spirit master's spirit ability, and even a spirit ring with an age of 999 years cannot bridge the gap. If that's the case, this is indeed possible. Luo Long stared dazedly at the 2 light purple millennium second spirit rings before her heart unable to calm down for a long time. She had lived for decades, roamed the spirit master's world for many years, and had even witnessed experts who were titled Douluo. But even for a titled Douluo powerhouse from a top spirit master family, the first and second spirit rings of their spirit could only be yellow century-old spirit rings. Today, she had truly seen everything. Amidst the shock, the ironclad rules of the diary system suddenly flashed through her mind. The diary system was so powerful that it could forcibly rewrite even the ironclad rules of the spirit master's world like spirit ring age, so the rules strictly prohibiting direct or indirect harm must be the same. Speaking of which, perhaps Xiao Wu's safety wouldn't need to be as worrying and terrifying as before. With a heavy stone in her heart settling down slightly, Luo Long let out a heavy sigh of relief inwardly. Meanwhile, Ning Rongrong by the side had a completely different mood. A trace of lingering complexity and desolation was hidden in the young girl's eyes. The power of the diary system was an existence that even she, the little princess of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, completely failed to understand. And the more powerful and omnipotent the diary system was, the more it could prove the absolute firmness of the diary's rules. Thinking of the sentence that the causal anchor for Tang San to become a divinity was set, and locals could hardly shake the ending of the destiny protagonist, Ning Rongrong's little thoughts at the bottom of her heart instantly withered by more than half. It wasn't to say that she had a huge opinion of Tang San, but the diary content revealed that after she became a divinity, she failed to leave behind any descendants, and the 9 treasure glazed tile school ultimately had no successors, making it difficult to continue its foundation. This was something that constantly worried her heart. Although this was only a guess, the current Ning Rongrong's trust in Tang San had undoubtedly decreased a lot. The general trend could not be changed, since open methods wouldn't work, perhaps secretly. The light in Ning Rongrong's eyes flickered slightly, her thoughts turning 1,000 times. She had already made up her mind to at least persuade her father to stay away from Tang San, which might preserve the foundation of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Early the next morning, the dawn broke. Qin Moyu got up early, expectation hidden in his eyes as he opened the diary. After an entire night, the diary system had already settled the rewards for the first day's diary content. Congratulations to the host for completing the first day's diary content, obtaining a novice gift package. Closing square bracket. The novice gift package is opening, obtaining the following rewards: ultimate optional spirit times 1, God bestowed spirit ring times 5, equivalent exchange technology. Closing square bracket. What? Equivalent exchange technology? Qin Moyu's entire spirit was refreshed, and his eyes were full of disbelief. He looked up and saw a completely rounded, magnificent sphere of light quietly hovering above the diary, emitting a texture different from the heaven and earth rules of the Douluo plane. Equivalent exchange technology, as the name implies, used everything in the world as chips to create something from nothing, perform equivalent conversions, and exchange for any item of equal value. This was a technological creation truly developed by a high-dimensional civilization. And what truly shocked Qin Moyu's mind and made his scalp tingle was not the heaven-defying function of this technology itself, but its origin. This was by no means a product of the Douluo plane, but a novel setting he casually wrote in his past life when he was young, after finishing a novel and getting carried away by a surge of enthusiasm. In an instant, countless thoughts frantically flooded into Qin Moyu's mind. Not only had he time traveled, but even the rewards given by the Golden Finger system included the technological creations he had once designed with his own pen. Coincidence? Qin Moyu secretly thought of this possibility in his heart. One kind of coincidence was that the system encompassed everything and happened to include this high-dimensional technology, and another kind of coincidence was somewhat spine-chilling, that the system had read the novel he wrote in his past life. A novel by a minor character like him could also be fancied by an existence like the system. Then the matter of his time travel, could it not be? In short, regardless of which coincidence it was, these things were far too bizarre and not something the current Qin Moyu could figure out. Rather than obsessing over the illusory truth, it was better to tightly grasp the solid opportunities right before his eyes. Let's not think about these first, the ultimate optional spirit. Qin Moyu suppressed his complicated feelings, and his gaze abruptly turned to another reward of the novice gift package. Novice gift package ultimate optional spirit. 1. Dragon God martial soul, God King level spirit. Closing square bracket. Spirit detailed explanation. The dragon god controls the origin of creation and chaos, and commands the 2 origin forces of creation and destruction. Closing square bracket. Its peak combat power surpasses the 5 supreme god kings of the god realm, and it is the true ancestor of the spirit beasts and the dragon race of the Douluo plane. Closing square bracket. Above god level spirits, a god king level spirit benchmarked against the supreme god king, dragon god. Dragon god martial soul, isn't this the path Lan Xuanyu was destined to take in the later stages of ultimate Douluo? Qin Moyu's gaze stared at the first spirit introduction, his heart beating wildly. The dragon god, the master of spirit beasts, the king of divine beasts, a terrifying existence that once surpassed the 5 supreme god kings of the god realm, with a supreme status and combat power peerless through the ages. To say Qin Moyu wasn't tempted would be fake. Looking across the entire Douluo plane, no spirit master could refuse the dragon god's inheritance, nor could they refuse this path leading directly to the supreme god king. But behind this power and authority, the dragon god itself also meant a heavy destiny and shackles. In Douluo IV, Ultimate Douluo, in order to inherit the dragon god divinity, Lan Xuanyu bore the deep blood vengeance of the entire dragon god realm, traced ancient secrets all the way, unraveled the truth of the destruction of the dragon god realm, and stubbornly shouldered all the karma and shackles left behind by the dragon god for tens of millions of years. From beginning to end, he had to remain absolutely sober and absolutely rational. He could not be confused, could not fall, and could not tolerate even a half-step mistake. Once his state of mind was lost, it meant Lan Xuanyu's ending was destined to be the same as the dragon god's, either losing control and going berserk to destroy the god realm, or willingly having his divine body slashed open by a sword from the Asura god, ending up dead and annihilated. Until finally, the rising dragon pillar and the golden dragon spear merged into the dragon god spear, which allowed Lan Tang Xuanyu to step into the divine star, trigger the dragon god position to descend once more, and become the second-generation dragon god. If he truly chose the dragon god martial soul, he would undoubtedly embark on the path of ascending to the supreme god king dragon god. But walking all the way down this path, the price was bound to be too heavy. Power and responsibility were always proportional. Not to mention much, Lan Xuanyu walked the path of the dragon god divinity for 1,794 chapters. If Qin Moyu chose the dragon god martial soul, he would at least have to walk for 800 chapters, right? What do we cultivate for? To be free and unfettered, to follow one's heart without breaking the rules, there was completely no need to pay off debts for the dragon god or fill in pits for the god realm. Thinking this key point through, Qin Moyu's mood instantly cooled down, and he then looked at the remaining spirit options. Chapter 14 Feat Core of the Herrscher of Reason. Novice Gift Package Ultimate Optional Spirit. 2. Core of the Herrscher of Reason, God King Level Spirit. Spirit Detailed Explanation. Divine Core is a 4th-dimensional technological creation, which can briefly grant 3-dimensional life forms the authority to ascend into 4-dimensional life forms. The specific functions of the Core of the Herrscher of Reason shall be comprehended by the host independently. Question mark. Qin Moyu was silenced on the spot, his eyelids twitching slightly. Were these perfunctory words not even going to be acted out anymore? Perhaps from the very first glance at equivalent exchange technology, Qin Moyu should have reacted long ago. Long before time traveling, Qin Moyu loved reading web novels. When he was younger, he often argued with netizens in the comment sections until his face turned red. A phrase like, "If you can, you write one yourself," angered him so much that he scribbled away randomly at that time, subsequently creating the technological setting of the Divine Core. The so-called Divine Core was a technological creation developed to transcend the shackles of the three-dimensional universe and benchmark against the fourth dimension. The sole meaning of its birth was to break the dimensional barrier, allowing life forms residing in lower dimensions to touch the origin of the rules of the four-dimensional universe. The Herrscher of Reason originated from the setting in Honkai. Honkai was a periodic disaster phenomenon, a civilization trial sent down by the Honkai god. The more developed the technology, the more prosperous the population, and the higher the overall level of civilization, the more terrifying the descending Honkai disaster would be. The core of the Herrscher of Reason was a conceptual entity he fused back then. Within the settings, shortly after the development of the Divine Core, future new human scientists successfully cracked the fourth dimensional authority of understanding and then injected this authority into the Divine Core, ultimately creating this technological creation. Once the core of the Herrscher of Reason was successfully fused, an ordinary person would instantly transform into a complete Herrscher of Reason, possessing heaven-defying abilities to analyze all things, reconstruct all things, and tamper with physical rules. The strength of the Herrscher of Reason was plain for all to see. It could be said that this core of the Herrscher of Reason could be called the strictest father and the most unsolvable judge of all technological civilizations. Whenever a technological civilization was born, developed, and progressed, as long as it failed to completely strangle the Herrscher of Reason at the moment of its awakening, it was destined to be unable to contend against the authority of reason. To this day, no technological civilization could defeat a fully developed Herrscher of Reason who wielded the truth of all things. At this point, the options for the ultimate optional spirit were fully revealed. One was the path of the dragon god divinity with ultimate physical body, invincible combat power, and carrying tens of thousands of years of karma. The other was the technological path of the core of the Herrscher of Reason, which analyzed all things, wielded the truth, and surpassed all laws and principles with dimensional technology. The strength of the dragon god was evident to all. Moreover, it was currently the era of Douluo. Soul guidance technology in this era was primitive and backward, and even the basic technological system had not yet formed, which was fundamentally unfavorable for the growth of the Herrscher of Reason. If it were Douluo 2, the unrivaled tank sect, the promotion speed of the core of the Herrscher of Reason would definitely advance by leaps and bounds, crushing the spirit system. After a brief contemplation, Jin Muyu already had the answer in his heart. System, I choose the core of the Herrscher of Reason. Hesitating for even a second would be a disrespect to the Divine Core technology. The birth of the Divine Core technology began with a group of crazy scientists who broke through the cognitive barrier of the three-dimensional universe and fortuitously glimpsed the mysteries of the fourth dimension. Using a frail human physical body as a container, they ultimately created an artificial Honkai god that could run through the timeline, freeze causality, and possess the ability of eternal verification. As for who was stronger when comparing the Honkai god and the dragon god, this was simply a competition between a numerical monster and a mechanism monster. One was a dragon god with no upper limit for progress, and the other was a Honkai god developing a technological civilization with an infinite upper limit. Which was superior and which was inferior was clear at a glance. And the most important point was that Jin Muyu was extremely familiar with the concept of the core of the Herrscher of Reason. The core of the Herrscher of Reason originated from the authority of understanding in the fourth dimension dark plane dimension. Its power came from dark matter, rather than relying on Honkai energy, which had extremely strong erosive power and came with disaster attributes. This also meant that even if he awakened the power of the Herrscher of Reason, it would not trigger the descent of Honkai. Without the backlash of Honkai energy on himself, and without the Honkai disaster and catastrophe, the core of the Herrscher of Reason only retained the unique, understanding, authority of the Herrscher of Reason. Jin Muyu's vision was never limited to the small corner of Douluo. His goal was to span across the heavens, and a Douluo continent could not trap his ambition. Since that was the case, there was completely no need to consider the dragon god martial soul, being trapped in the system of the Douluo god realm, and acting as a local tyrant limited to one side within the cosmology of sugar plus 3 spoons. Rather than acting tyrannically as a local snake, it was better to choose the Herrscher of Reason, hold the great Tao of technology in hand, and carve out a brand new path by himself. With his mind made up, the ultimate spirit awakening instantly activated. A gentle force surged from within Jin Muyu's body, rushing along his meridians toward his limbs and bones. Every cell throughout his entire body was emitting a joyful rustling sound, as if his body, sealed for over a decade, had finally broken free from the shackles of genes. Jin Muyu slowly opened his palms, and a brilliantly glowing, intricately structured spherical technological creation quietly emerged. Hum. An ethereal trembling sound that seemed to pierce through the soul seemed to ring beside his ears. Anchoring the fourth dimension, the coordinates of the dark plane dimension have been locked. Gene chain matching, soul anchor point has been locked. New universe detected, the divine core of the first generation Herrscher of understanding, eternal binding successful. As the voice fell, Jin Muyu's eyes suddenly changed. His pupils, which were originally as dark as ink, were entirely covered by silver-white lines, and intricate and complex gear patterns emerged, like an industrial machine that never stopped, carrying a cold divinity that analyzed all things and saw through their essence. Core of the Herrscher of understanding, all systems executing normally. I grant you wisdom, to understand the mechanism of all things, omniscience and omnipotence, the king of truth. Herrscher of understanding, challenging you is the name of truth. Ethereal and sacred mechanical whispers echoed continuously, and the youth's figure immediately disappeared into the third dimensional universe, crossing the dimensional barrier in an instant and stepping into a boundless dark void. Dark plane authority connection complete. Dimensional transition completed. Extending the highest regards to you, Your Excellency the first Herrscher born in this universe, the Herrscher of understanding. Jin Muyu kept his eyes tightly closed, and a gentle, ethereal sound rang in his ear. This was the intelligent assistant of the core of the Herrscher of Reason. Welcome, Your Excellency the Herrscher of understanding, to the dark plane. Is there anything I can do for you? Immediately, Jin Muyu slowly opened his eyes. This was the first time he had seen with his own eyes the fourth dimension that existed in the settings of his own novel and was also defined by the scientific community. Wherever his gaze reached, the magnificent scenery completely subverted the cognition he had established over many years. This scenery was a magnificent picture that was difficult for him to describe even by exhausting all words, a colorful pitch black. A contradictory and weird description. With Jin Muyu's meager cognition, if he were forced to describe it, he could only describe it abstractly like this. The dark plane universe was pitch black and boundless. There was no brilliant starlight here, nor was there a vast sea of stars. The surroundings were filled with boundless and extremely pure dark matter clusters. The real three-dimensional world was also covered with dark matter, but it could not be observed, and the scientific community had not explored the specific existence form of dark matter. But here, dark matter flowed clearly, being the sole origin constructing the dark plane universe, grand, mysterious, and breathtakingly sorrowfully beautiful. The dark plane was merely the tip of the iceberg of the fourth dimension. The two had a clear inclusion relationship. It was a part derived from the four-dimensional universe and a most basic corner of scenery in the high-dimensional universe. What was the tip of the iceberg? The reason why an iceberg looked magnificent and spectacular was because only 1/8 of it floated above the sea surface. The tip of the iceberg above the water was sunny and bright, while the main body of the iceberg beneath the water was cold and gloomy all year round. The dark plane before his eyes was that tiny sharp tip of the iceberg that the four-dimensional universe floated above the water. The truly complete fourth-dimensional heaven and earth was far from something he could peer into at this moment. With this shock in his heart, Jin Moyu subconsciously raised his hand to touch the slowly flowing dark matter fluid before him. There was no tactile sensation of physical collision, only a dead silence like chill piercing through his bodily sensation into his skin and flesh. Chapter 15. Lan Xuanyu, you wouldn't want to bitterly grind through the plot with all your hard work, only to have your god position intercepted halfway by me, right? Just as Jin Moyu was immersed in this dimensional spectacle and completely captivated, the spirit power within his body suddenly emptied out, and the consumption speed was terrifyingly fast. Merely pausing to observe the fourth dimension placed a terrifying burden of spirit power on a three-dimensional life form. Not daring to linger for long, Jin Moyu immediately reigned in the authority of the core of the Herrscher of Reason, actively deactivated his spirit avatar, and instantly escaped the dark plane. Inside the dilapidated room, spatial ripples gently echoed as Jin Moyu's figure materialized out of thin air. Standing in place, his chest rose and fell slightly, but an uncontainable fanaticism and excitement bloomed across his entire face. That was the fourth dimension just now. He was the first human in the true sense to step into the fourth dimension and catch a glimpse of the high-dimensional scenery with his own eyes. This was a magnificent scenery that countless scientists could never witness in their entire lives. At this moment, he was like a devout and sincere pilgrim, and his state of mind was already approaching perfection. Hearing the Tao in the morning, it is acceptable to die in the evening. At the very moment his emotions were stirred, a sea-like, majestic surge of spirit power refilled his limbs and bones, scouring his body's meridians. Ultimate spirit fusion complete. Host, Jin Moyu. Race, human. Spirit, core of the Herrscher of Reason. Innate spirit power, rank 50. Technology tree, equivalent exchange. How much? Rank 50 spirit power. Jin Moyu's pupils contracted sharply, and he instinctively cried out in shock. Is this the God King grade spirit that benchmarked against the Supreme God King, Dragon God? No wonder the spirit power he had exhausted and overdrawn in the dark plane earlier was fully restored again in less than a moment. Innate spirit power at rank 50, making him a spirit king right out of the gate, or of course, it could also be called the first stage of Gangxi's power. As everyone knows, Gangxi broke through his rank 29 spirit power at the age of 50. Contrast that with how he himself barely broke through to rank 50 spirit power at 18 years old. This talent should be much stronger than Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, right? Amidst his excitement, Jin Moyu did not forget his identity as a recorder. He raised his hand to summon the diary, preparing to record this morning's experiences. At this time, the sky was already faintly bright. The vast majority of people on the Douluo continent had already woken up. Without many recreational activities, the common folk all worked from sunrise to sunset, bustling about for a livelihood. The second day of time traveling to the Douluo continent and acquiring the diary system, calling the control tower, I'm about to take off. Waking up from sleep, the system finally delivered the diary content rewards into my hands. 5 God-bestowed spirit rings, 1 optional chance for an ultimate spirit, and a piece of high-dimensional technology. Besides that, because of the first day's diary content, the system additionally unlocked the video recording function and the plane shuttle function. The video recording function can directly record beautiful scenes from real life into the diary content, replacing text with videos. Simply put, isn't this just shooting short videos and doing live broadcasts? Why make it sound so complicated? Moreover, there are restrictions. It can only live stream some interesting and valuable footage. Videos padding out daily routines will be judged as invalid records. Oh, I get this. To summarize it in one sentence, it tells you to record a good life, but doesn't let you record real life. It's just that I've never been able to figure out, who on earth is this live broadcast meant for? And it has to be valuable. I always feel like the system is plotting some big secret. Heroines of the diary copies. Jin Moyu, who the live stream is for, I can guess it with my toes. Thinking of this, he felt somewhat curious in his heart, exactly who was constantly lurking around his diary. The plane shuttle function has quite a few selectable planes, but every cross-border time travel comes with unknown risks. To be safe, it's better to use it cautiously. Places like Battle Through the Heavens, Wudong Qiankun, and the Great Ruler are places where powerhouses are everywhere and can slap me to death with a single hand. I definitely won't rush to go there. At least wait until I can punch apart a daddy with one fist and suppress the martial ancestor, or have the strength in the Great Ruler plane to leave my name on the sky ranking before considering going over. Battle Through the Heavens Ziyan, so steady. Wudong Yingwanwan, so steady. The Great Ruler Luo Li, so steady. The heroines of the diary copies in the remaining planes secretly sighed in regret in their hearts. Ever since the system mall opened, the maidens' minds suddenly became active. Just because Jin Moyu was in the Douluo plane, the diary copy specially opened the Spirit Ascension platform function, but this function had no practical use for them. Until now, they still didn't understand what a spirit actually was, and what kind of donut a spirit ring was. Whether the spirit beast Xiaowu tastes good steamed, braised, or stir-fried. Furthermore, the treasures in the system mall were too precious, and they simply couldn't afford to exchange for them. Therefore, the heroines from the other planes desperately wished in their hearts that Jin Moyu would hurry over to their respective planes. Let's talk about the high-dimensional technology inside the novice gift package first, equivalent exchange technology. True to its name, equivalent exchange, as long as you provide enough matter, you can replace it out of thin air with another completely different kind of matter. With this thing, at least money won't be lacking anymore. Smashing a few rocks in the neighboring mountains can exchange for quite a bit of gold. After a little processing and smelting, gold can turn into heavy gold coins, finally shaking off those impoverished days. Only I didn't expect that the first time I used the top-tier technology of a dignified high-dimensional civilization, it would actually just be used to make money. What an ugly usage. But there's no helping it, drifting in the Jianggu, a single penny can stump a hero. However, thinking about it carefully, using it to exchange for gold doesn't really disgrace this high-dimensional technology. Many people don't know that gold is not an ordinary metal, but the scattered afterglow of a supernova explosion. This is a conclusion verified by modern astronomy, which means that the total amount of gold can be considered rare even in the universe belonging to the category of hard currency. Even if the sun explodes, it cannot produce half a gram of gold. The sun's mass is not enough to trigger a supernova explosion, requiring at least 2 neutron stars to collide violently. As a side note, a neutron star's mass must exceed 1.44 times that of the sun, but be less than 3.2 times the sun's mass. This is a compact celestial body formed after a massive star evolves to its late stage and undergoes a supernova explosion, being the densest celestial body apart from black holes. And this Douluo continent under my feet can at best be considered a planet. Crashing 2 Douluo continents together won't knock out any gold. Douluo Ichian Runshui. Gold is actually rare to this extent. No wonder the gold coin system has been able to be passed down to this day. Is this the wisdom of the ancients? Douluo 2 Xiao Xiao. Don't understand, but greatly shocked. Douluo 3 Gu Yuina. Gold is this precious? Wouldn't the lake of essence of life beneath her jade feet be even more precious than the entire Douluo planet? Douluo IV Yilingtong. Just search it, and this turns out to be true. I didn't expect Lord Qin Moyu to know so much obscure knowledge. Speaking back to the novice gift package, it truly shocked me fiercely. Among the 2 choice 1 spirit opportunity, one of the spirits actually turned out to be the dragon god. It's not some beast god addition, nor an ordinary dragon race, but the primordial spirit beast master of the Douluo continent, who fought 5 god kings alone without falling behind, the creator of the dragon god realm, and the dragon god ruling over 10 star systems. Douluo I Silver Dragon King, Z's. Douluo 3 Gu Yuina. Douluo 3 Bai Ji. Douluo 3 ZG. Douluo 2 and 3 Xiao Wu. Douluo 2 Goddess of Life. Good grief, if I choose the dragon god as my spirit, there will be plenty of fun to be had in the future. Douluo IV protagonist Lan Xuanyu's dragon god divinity position will be directly intercepted halfway by me. Douluo IV Bai Shosho. Douluo IV Lan Fuzzy. Douluo IV Nan Chang. Douluo IV Yilingtong. This Lan Xuanyu, no, I should say little classmate Tang Xuanyu, you wouldn't want to bitterly grind through all the plot work, only to have your god position intercepted halfway by me, right? Heroines of the diary. Douluo IV Nan Chang. Xuanyu's father's surname is actually Tang. Blue Silver Grass Spirit, innate full spirit power. Could it really be his Lan Xiao guessed, that Xuanyu's biological father is that legendary sea god lord? Chapter 16. Goddess of Life is not equal cold on the outside, clingy on the inside Muning Che. However, I ultimately gave up the dragon god martial soul. Although the dragon god is good, its upper limit has already been locked. The so-called supreme god king, it can only bounce around in the small circle worldview of the Douluo continent. Leaving the Douluo continent, the dragon god is nothing. Douluo 3 Gu Yuina. This statement isn't entirely correct either. As the supreme god king, the dragon god's dragon meat, dragon tendons, dragon blood, and dragon bones are all supreme treasures of heaven and earth. Using them to replenish yang energy should be quite good. Douluo 3 Gu Yuina. A warrior can be killed, but not humiliated. Qin Moyu, you just wait for me. Seeing this, Gu Yuina's face instantly darkened by more than half, and her heart was filled with a myriad of complex emotions. As the incarnation of the dragon god's benevolent source, the silver dragon king yearned immensely for the dragon god's authority. Yet in Qin Moyu's eyes, the dragon god had actually turned into a frog at the bottom of a well trapped in a small world, and was even being eyed to be thrown into a pot as a tonic. Gu Yuina clenched her jade hands tightly, biting her silver teeth, a mix of humiliation and anger rising within her. If she did not report this grudge, she was no lady. The tier of the Douluo plane is not high at all. Even the Douluo god realm with the most profound foundation can at best be considered a lesser chiliocosm, or perhaps not even reach that. Take battle through the heavens for comparison. The strength of a titled Douluo on the Dochi continent is roughly only that of a Douwang or Douhuang expert. A Douwang on the Dochi continent can condense Dochi wings and soar through the skies, whereas titled Douluos on the Douluo continent, aside from those with flight-type spirits, basically cannot achieve long-term flight. In battle through the heavens, the Doti is the strongest existence. Experts can control spatial origins with their bare hands, flip clouds and rain with a single thought, and obliterate tens of thousands of miles of mountains and rivers with a snap of their fingers. Their power system crushes the Douluo continent, and even crushes the Douluo god realm. The Great Thousand Worlds Great Ruler Plane is the ascending plane of battle through the heavens, with 2 layers of dimensional barriers, the middle chiliocosm and the lesser chiliocosm, separating them. With such a comparison, it becomes very clear. Anyone who chooses the dragon god martial soul and runs off to a high-dimensional universe like the Great Ruler is only worthy of being food for others, not even worthy of being a guard dog. This little friend dragon god, considering that your cultivation has not been easy, please enter my pot and sleep for a while. Women of Douluo. Looking at the diary's content, expressions of shock and trance appeared on the stunning faces of each and every heroine of the Douluo plane. Is this what they mean by, there are people beyond people, and heavens beyond heavens? The god realm that they revered as supreme was, in the eyes of higher dimensional planes, merely a frog at the bottom of a well in a corner. ... God realm, deep within the forest of life. Looking as far as the eye could see, boundless emerald spring water and misty, exuberant vitality enveloped all directions. This was the most tranquil and peaceful place in the god realm, as well as the residence of the goddess of life. Incredible, is the god realm that we stubbornly guard really at such a low tier? The goddess of life whispered softly. Standing by the spiritual spring and gazing at the truth of the plain tears revealed in the diary, her clear eyes were filled with deep emotion. Perhaps the god realm really should expand. At this moment, the goddess of life's deeply ingrained ideology quietly loosened. For a long time, she had always agreed with the radical strategy of sea god Tang San, believing that the actions of the conservative faction led by the god of destruction were too radical. The goddess of life only sought the stable development of the god realm and was always unwilling to proactively expand through war. But after Qin Moyu's analysis of the plain tears, she was made to see completely the insignificance of the Douluo god realm. Perhaps her husband, the god of destruction, was right. In fact, regarding the practice of the goddess of life supporting the outsider sea god Tang San instead of her husband, the god of destruction, there might be even deeper reasons. On the surface, the goddess of life was not a decisive god king who killed without blinking, and her decision to support sea god Tang San was entirely reasonable. But from a deeper perspective, perhaps it was because the goddess of life had long been unable to touch the god of destruction, leading to an unfulfilled marital sex life, which in turn caused a divergence in the ideologies of the two god kings. They say that when husband and wife quarrel, they make up by the end of the bed, but the god of destruction and the goddess of life didn't even have a chance to touch each other. With long-term unfulfillment, it was inevitable that the couple's ideologies would drift in opposite directions. Of course, this was just a possibility, it didn't mean this view was true. Nor did it mean that one should unilaterally conclude that there was an unknown transaction between the goddess of life and the sea god just because she publicly supported sea god Tang San at the god realm committee and opposed her own husband, the god of destruction. Nor did it mean goddess of life equals Muning Che. Therefore, please do not take things out of context. The goddess of life gently shook her head, suppressing the chaotic distracting thoughts in her heart, and her gaze fell back onto the diary copy. This youth Qin Moyu from a higher dimension possessed a vision and insight that far surpassed all living beings in this realm. Even the eternal and invincible dragon god martial soul could be rejected, so what kind of heaven-defying martial soul did he ultimately choose? Soon, brand new handwriting slowly emerged on the diary. Having given up the dragon god martial soul whose potential was restricted, I ultimately chose another ultimate martial soul named Core of the Herrscher of Reason. From the perspective of grade, both the Core of the Herrscher of Reason and the dragon god are god king grade martial souls. Awakening them immediately grants the spirit master an innate spirit power of level 50. Heroines of Douluo, H how much? Level 50 spirit power. As soon as these words were spoken, all the heroines of the Douluo plane froze together, their countless stunning faces filled with disbelief. Innate level 50 spirit power. How could this be possible? Isn't the highest starting innate spirit power for a spirit master level 10? Before the women could calm the shock in their hearts, the diary's content continued to update. On the Douluo continent, there has always only been the saying of innate full spirit power, but in fact, it is not that simple. Some truly powerful god-grade martial souls inherently possess spirit power exceeding level 10. For example, Qian Runshui's god-grade martial soul, the Seraphim, blessed by the angel god's divine force originating from the supreme pontiff lineage, granted her an innate level 20 spirit power when her martial soul awakened. There has only been this single case in tens of thousands of years, and the gold content of this is unquestionable. However, this continent has never lacked geniuses. Looking across the myriad heavens, myriad realms, and billions of cosmic dimensions, monstrous prodigies are as numerous as the stars, and destined protagonists are countless. Even though I hold a system in my hand and possess a prescient perspective, I dare not falsely claim to be a destined protagonist, and I always maintain a humble heart. A true grandmaster always harbors the heart of an apprentice. Just like Qian Runshui, with innate level 20 spirit power, god-grade martial soul talent, resources, influence, and background completely crushing Tang San, she even ascended to the angel god position early on. Yet ultimately, she still lost to Tang San. This precisely confirms a most simple principle: talent is a gift bestowed by the heavens, but how one's future achievements turn out depends on subsequent efforts. 30% is determined by heaven, while 70% depends on hard work. Qian Runshui won at the starting line, but lost in life's tempering. Insisting on wasting her youth on infiltrating the Heaven Do Empire, she only broke through to become a spirit saint at age 29. Putting this achievement in Douluo I, calling her a genius is completely reasonable. But if placed in Douluo 2, 3, or IV, it's simply not enough to look at. The key is that Qian Runshui's undercover mission was ultimately disrupted by Tang San, resulting in direct failure. When all is said and done, it comes back to that phrase, strength supreme. If Qian Runshui had abandoned political machinations and calculations, advanced to become a titled Douluo earlier, or even ascended to a limit Douluo sooner, the tragedy later on wouldn't have happened. Douluo I Qian Runshui, there is a tragedy. Douluo I Bo Saishi, Angel God, Qian Daoliu. Sigh, this is all destiny. Chapter 17, what is the fourth dimension? Coming back to my ultimate spirit choice this time, closing square bracket. The core of the Herrscher of Reason also belongs to a God King level spirit, wielding the authority of the fourth dimension, understanding. Closing square bracket. With a single thought, understand all principles of the world. With a single glance, penetrate the origin of all things, omniscient and omnipotent, recreating truth. Closing square bracket. The most basic core ability of this authority, understanding, is all things deconstruction, and construction out of thin air. Closing square bracket. Within the line of sight of the Herrscher of Reason, nothing can escape the deconstruction of the divine core. Closing square bracket. All matter, technology, spirits, spirit beasts, and even the spirit power drifting between heaven and earth will be instantly deconstructed by the divine core. Closing square bracket. Stripping away external appearances layer by layer, it reaches directly to the essence of molecules, atoms, and even more microscopic particles. Closing square bracket. After thoroughly understanding the principle of any technological creation, as long as sufficient raw materials are provided, it can ignore production lines and achieve creation out of nothing. Closing square bracket. If put in the most straightforward words, a single sentence can summarize the greatness of this divine core. Closing square bracket. The core of the Herrscher of Reason, transcending the shackles of the three-dimensional universe, benchmarks the technological creations of the fourth dimension, and possesses the authority to elevate low-dimensional life forms to the fourth dimension. Closing square bracket. As I said before, true dimensional reduction strikes are absolute crushing. This is never a contest of brute force, but an absolute barrier of life tears, leaving no room for any resistance. Closing square bracket. The pen in a writer's hand can directly define the form, rise, and fall of a one-dimensional world without needing to follow any logic. Closing square bracket. When a painter personally tears apart a painstakingly drawn scroll, from the perspective of the civilizations in the two-dimensional world, it is the overturning of the vault of heaven and the doomsday catastrophe of the shattering of the earth. It is a world-destroying disaster of collapsing heavens and shattering earth that they cannot understand with the cognition of their entire lives. Closing square bracket. Let alone the Herrscher of Reason, who is inherently the most uncrackable judge of all technological civilizations in the three-dimensional universe. Closing square bracket. To be honest, in the worldview of the Honkai plane, the Herrscher was originally the executor of the Honkai God's will. Closing square bracket. But only the successive instances of the Herrscher of Reason were all rebels, otherwise, the human civilization of the Honkai plane wouldn't have survived until now. Closing square bracket. Of course, the universe is eternally in the process of continuous entropy increase, and there is never an absolutely invincible power. Closing square bracket. Even the four-dimensional technology, core of the Herrscher of Reason, cannot escape the gradual law of growth. Closing square bracket. But as long as the Herrscher of Reason develops and takes shape, in the three-dimensional universe of the Douluo continent, I can easily achieve a dimensional reduction strike. Closing square bracket. Although a dimensional reduction strike is an absolute crushing blow, no matter how uncrackable the authority is, its landing still requires medium support. Closing square bracket. Just like a writer holding a pen can arbitrarily modify the trajectory of a one-dimensional world, and a painter tearing up a scroll can destroy the entire two-dimensional world. Closing square bracket. As for me now, I have only initially bound the divine core, and have yet to forge my own fourth-dimensional pen. Closing square bracket. Let's develop with a low profile for a while. When my strength takes shape, I wouldn't mind guarding my Douluo continent. Closing square bracket. Douluo Qian Runshui, guarding my Douluo continent. Heaven Do Imperial Palace Main Hall. Qian Runshui, disguised as Shui Qing, sat upright on the imperial throne, seemingly reviewing memorial documents, but her gaze never moved away from the diary copy from beginning to end. She inexplicably found that reviewing memorials and handling state affairs while secretly glancing at the diary updates gave her an exceptionally cozy feeling of slacking off. Guarding my Douluo continent. Qian Runshui's action of turning the memorial document suddenly paused, and a hint of astonishment flashed through her cold eyes. Has this young man's ambition bloated to this extent? Clearly, he had just awakened his spirit, and hadn't even touched the threshold of a titled Douluo, yet with a single open of his mouth, he spoke of sheltering the entire Douluo continent. If this can still be considered keeping a low profile, then she has nothing more to say. Could this divine core spirit truly possess incredible abilities? Qian Runshui furrowed her brows slightly, murmuring softly to herself. If not for this possibility, an ordinary spirit master would never be able to muster such confidence to look down upon an entire Douluo continent. At this moment, Qian Runshui recalled the dimensional theory deconstructed in the diary contents, and a bone-chilling cold inexplicably arose deep within the young girl's heart. Just the tip of the iceberg revealed from the text was enough for one to glimpse the despair of dimensional crushing. That was not the gap of spirit power, bloodline, or god position, but an absolute fault of dimensional tiers and life levels. It was the despair of low-dimensional living beings facing high-dimensional entities, thorough from beginning to end, with no hope of turning the tables. Not only Qian Runshui, but all the heroines of the diary copies also felt a curiosity pop up in their hearts at this moment, which was, what is the essence of the fourth dimension? Living in the third-dimensional universe, they could understand length, width, and height, the three major coordinate axes of the x, y, and z axes mentioned by Qin Moyu. But what kind of appearance would that unknown coordinate axis of the fourth dimension, which appeared out of thin air and was completely perpendicular to the three-dimensional space, actually have? As if responding to what they thought in their hearts, the diary system quietly prompted today's diary theme. I almost forgot to write today's diary content theme, let me take a look. Closing square bracket. What is the fourth dimension? Closing square bracket. This question is quite profound, and I cannot be certain that my answer is accurate, even though I have witnessed the fourth dimension with my own eyes. Closing square bracket. Why do I say this? Because the fourth dimension I witnessed utilize the technological means of the divine core, elevating to a four-dimensional organism to catch a glimpse of the tip of the iceberg of the fourth dimension. I call this dimension the dark plane dimension. Closing square bracket. If the boundless four-dimensional universe is compared to a giant iceberg, then the dark plane is merely the tip of the iceberg floating above the water. Closing square bracket. The iceberg seen by the world is magnificent and grand, yet little do they know that beneath the water surface lies the largest, coldest, and pitch-black main body of the iceberg. Closing square bracket. The vast and boundless dark plane, seemingly boundless, is but the most superficial corner when placed before the true four-dimensional universe, not even amounting to 100 millionth of the full picture of the fourth dimension. Closing square bracket. As for the fourth dimension, it is defined as the time dimension. Defined from a physical perspective, it is the four coordinate systems of the XYZ time axis. Closing square bracket. This is only an abstract understanding, a popular definition fitting the cognition of the three-dimensional universe, far from sufficient to interpret the true full picture of the four-dimensional universe. Closing square bracket. Ordinary people who have lived in the three-dimensional universe for a long time have long had their vision and cognition locked down by three-dimensional physical concepts, completely unable to intuitively imagine and describe the true concept of this fourth coordinate axis. Closing square bracket. Unable to peek into the truth of the high-dimensional universe, one can only generally bestow upon it the name of time, based on the external characteristics of the four-dimensional world for abstract interpretation. Closing square bracket. To be honest, I can understand this abstract definition. After all, I have personally experienced dimensional elevation and caught a glimpse of the true scenery of a corner of the four-dimensional universe. Closing square bracket. Under the gaze of a four-dimensional organism, all rules of the three-dimensional world will completely collapse. Closing square bracket. Any entity with a trajectory of action is no longer that fleeting picture, but possesses time after images derived from the attached entity. Closing square bracket. The colors of these time after images will appear slightly dim, just like a twilight elderly person pacing, constantly repeating the action trajectories of the past, present, and future. Closing square bracket. In popular terms, it is the innate ability of a four-dimensional organism's eyes to observe the timeline, overlooking the past, staring directly at the present, and foreseeing the future with a single glance. Closing square bracket. This is the reason why top-tier god-level civilizations name the fourth dimension time. Closing square bracket. Because of this, a dimensional reduction strike can be called truly uncrackable. Closing square bracket. Let's not discuss whether four-dimensional organisms can directly tamper with timelines. The young three-dimensional life of the previous second might have its time arbitrarily modified the next second, falling into a dead and lifeless state of twilight. Closing square bracket. The most intuitive gap. In the vision of a four-dimensional organism, all behaviors of three-dimensional organisms are traceable trajectories from the past, present, and future. Closing square bracket. The desperate resistance of three-dimensional organisms is like the futility of a marionette in the other's eyes. The ending was doomed from the very beginning. Closing square bracket. Chapter 18. Douluo must eat list whale glue. In fact, the essence of any cultivation system across the myriad realms points in one direction, dimensional ascension. The core of the Herrscher of Reason is a path of mechanical ascension that decodes truth, knocking on the dome of higher dimensions with the principles of technology and law. And in cultivation systems, aren't those immortal emperor mighty figures walking through the river of time and shuttling between the past, present, and future precisely high-dimensional life forms that have ascended to the fourth dimension or even higher dimensions? Take the cultivation system of the Duki continent as another example. Duzong powerhouses step into the void, Duzun powerhouses tear apart space, and Duxing powerhouses can even open up an entirely new pocket world. These seemingly otherworldly spatial abilities are essentially the manifestation of wielding higher dimensional power. Perhaps this brand new dimension can be abstractly named space. With the diary entry updated, Qin Moyu temporarily closed the diary and put aside his complex thoughts. Meanwhile, across the major planes of the myriad realms, the group of heroines stared at the reorganized diary contents, completely plunged into shock and deep thought. Ever since they embarked on the path of cultivation, their deeply ingrained cognition had been to temper themselves, refine their divine souls, break through realms, and comprehend a certain Tao. As for the concept of dimension, it came from a technological system they had never touched or heard of before. Through Qin Moyu's simple and profound analysis, they truly pushed open a brand new world gate, completely understanding what a technological system was. The so-called cultivation system was essentially a road of dimensional ascension that continuously broke through life levels and climbed upward. The Tao ascension that cultivators bitterly pursued fit perfectly with the dimensional ascension theory mentioned by Qin Moyu. At this moment, they instantly associated this with those great emperor powerhouses who overlooked all races and were invincible through the ages. These supreme powerhouses transcended the shackles of reincarnation and could shuttle through the river of time at will. Weren't such heaven-defying means exactly aligned with the time authority of the fourth dimension? Comparing the two, the originally obscure, difficult to understand, and vague technological system instantly established a clear understanding in their minds. And at this very moment, all the heroines across the myriad planes completely understood the terror of higher dimensional existences. A fourth dimensional powerhouse might not necessarily be equated with a great emperor powerhouse, but any supreme powerhouse who reached the pinnacle of the great emperor and wielded the authority of time must be a higher dimensional existence that broke free from the shackles of the three-dimensional universe. Many heroines born into top-tier aristocratic families instantly recalled the terrifying divine might of the great emperor supremes in their hearts. They had once been fortunate enough to witness firsthand those heaven-defying means by which the great emperor supremes traverse through eternal years and walk the river of time. If a fourth dimensional life form also possessed such time attainments as the great emperor supremes, these slaughtering means would be terrifying to the point of despair. Crossing the timeline with a single thought to kill the enemy while they were still young, completely eradicating all threats from the root, such means were inescapable and indefensible. A fourth dimensional creature did not necessarily mean it possessed the fearlessly invincible combat strength of a great emperor supreme in the current era, but its attainments in the time dimension could definitely rival or even surpass the great emperor supremes. As for the grandfather paradox involved herein, I crossed the timeline to kill you as a child because of your future threat, but since the child you was already dead, the future threat no longer existed. Then this timeline crossing hunt could not happen at all. This was a seemingly irresolvable causal contradiction, but ultimately, it was merely the cognitive limitation of low-dimensional creatures imprisoned by the three-dimensional universe. The behavioral logic of high-dimensional life forms was extremely clear. When predicting that you would threaten it in the future, it would proactively cross the timeline to trace back and kill you when you were still a child. This was not a means of reversing cause and effect, but a logical closed loop of effect first, cause later. Just like the authority of land, the eon of the hunt in the Honkai, star rail plane, the arrows of the rainbow appeared with the damage of the attack first, followed only afterward by the process of the arrow being fired. The arrows of the hunt were precisely the effect first, cause later, killer move that crossed the dimensions of causality. No matter whether the opponent was in the past, present, or future, as long as they were locked onto by the path of the hunt, they were destined to be hit before the arrow arrived. When you gazed at the trajectory of the arrow, the hunt had actually already successfully hit the target. Within the rules of the high-dimensional universe, all three-dimensional logical loopholes therein would be forcibly smoothed out and forcibly repaired by four-dimensional logic. A small village near Soto City. Chin Muyu lowered his head in deep thought, calculating silently in his heart. Although he relied on the core of the Herrscher of Reason to forcefully elevate his innate spirit power to rank 50, crushing all geniuses of the Douluo continent right from the start. Yet an awkward problem was also presented before him. He currently possessed only the foundation of spirit power, without a single spirit ring on his body. Not only that, but his physical constitution at this moment was also relatively weak, completely unable to support the terrifying foundation of a rank 50 Spirit King. Generally speaking, Spirit Masters at the Spirit King level could absorb 10,000 year spirit rings below 12,000 years, and absorbing spirit rings could also indirectly enhance spirit power. But if he rashly attempted to absorb a 10,000 year spirit ring, light results would be damaged meridians, and heavy results would be a shattered body. After much deliberation, Chin Muyu already had a plan in mind. I am probably the most outrageous and most pathetic Spirit King in the history of the Douluo continent, possessing the spirit power of a rank 50 Spirit King, yet not having a single spirit ring. The most urgent matter right now is to attach a god-bestowed spirit ring to my spirit, making up for my most fundamental shortcoming. Moreover, my current physical constitution is rather weak. I definitely won't be able to withstand it if I want to absorb a high age limit spirit ring. I need to take some time to acquire a batch of whale glue of different age limits, use the parsing of the core of the Herrscher of Reason, and rely on equivalent exchange technology to materialize a bunch of whale glue out of thin air. I wonder if there's 10,000 year whale glue for sale in the Douluo era. This is a severely buried supreme treasure of the Douluo continent. Whale glue can nourish a spirit master's physical body, broaden the toughness of meridians, and increase the upper limit of bearing spirit rings. The earlier it is consumed, the more exaggerated the effect. As the diary contents were reorganized, the expressions of the various heroines on the Douluo continent varied. Douluo Ichian Runshui. Whale glue can actually increase a spirit master's upper limit of bearing spirit rings. How come I've never heard of it? Douluo Ishuike. There's quite a lot of this stuff hoarded in His Majesty's little treasury. Douluo I Ning Rongrong. Whale glue. Isn't this bought by those nobles to invigorate young? My father occasionally acquires a batch privately and hoards it. How can it be a supreme treasure for tempering the physical body? Douluo I Lure Long. Whale glue. Right, there's such a good thing. Every time we sleep together, Xiaogang is unwilling to touch me. I refuse to stop at being spiritual spouses. Douluo I Yin. How was what he made me swallow before really whale glue? Across the entire continent in the Douluo era, people's understanding of whale glue still lingered on supplements that enhanced sexual fulfillment and nourished health to tonify the kidneys. No one ever thought about it in terms of cultivation. And what Chin Muyu casually pointed out was merely an inconspicuous little bit of cultivation common sense, yet it unexpectedly overthrew the unchangeable cultivation cognition of the Douluo continent for tens of thousands of years. What kind of aphrodisiac supplement was this? This was clearly a divine object capable of reshaping the physical body's foundation and completely rewriting a spirit master's cultivation talent and spirit upper limit from the root. Legendary immortal herbs were met by chance rather than sought, but the acquisition threshold for whale glue was relatively low. The vast ocean was boundless, other resources might be scarce, but what it lacked the least were giant marine spirit beasts capable of extracting whale glue. If one could monopolize the whale glue market and use it to cultivate the new generation of spirit masters, it would be entirely possible to cultivate many talented spirit masters with high spirit ring age limits. This was a proper strategic level resource. Thinking of this, many heroines of the Douluo plane brightened up, and their minds instantly became active. At this time, Chin Muyu did not yet know how much impact the exposure of whale glue's uses would have on the entire Douluo continent, and he continued updating his diary according to his initial thoughts. A god-bestowed spirit ring is a special spirit ring bestowed by divinities. The user does not need to hunt spirit beasts, and can endow the spirit with a perfect spirit ring through the god-bestowed spirit ring. According to the spirit master's spirit characteristics, it tailors the most compatible spirit ability while exerting pressure up to the maximum age limit spirit ring the physical body can bear. Simply put, the stronger the physical body's endurance capacity, the more terrifying the age limit of the spirit ring endowed by the god-bestowed spirit ring. Chapter 19 See God Poseidon. I feel that this world should not be like this. This is also one of the reasons why, in the later stages, aside from the spirit ring age limit boosted by sea gods cheating, Tang San's spirit could boast a whole host of 100,000 year spirit rings. After all, in the era of Douluo 100,000 year spirit beasts were few and far between. Xiao Wu herself counted as one, Xiao Wu's mother Eru counted as one, and Tang San's mother counted as one. Douluo Xiao Wu. Douluo Ru. Douluo Yin. This, are they secretly cursing me? When it came to the matter of the spirit ring, Tang San's inherent double-standard nature completely stopped acting, using almost every conceivable means to acquire spirit rings. At first, he even swore solemnly to Xiao Wu that in this lifetime he would absolutely never hunt down any benevolent spirit beasts, full of talk about righteousness and compassion. Yet, turning around to gather spirit rings for himself, he went straight to the Sunset Forest and turned on an unbridled mode of massacre, slaughtering countless spirit beasts. Just how low was the standard by which the ice clean and jade pure Tang San defined evil spirit beasts? Anyone who dared to attack him or Xiao Wu was definitely an evil spirit beast. As for why the spirit beast attacked him, well, never mind that. When others hunted spirit beasts, it was utterly devoid of conscience. When Tang San hunted spirit beasts, it was because the evil spirit beasts had already brought about their own path to death. In fact, the Douluo continent was inherently a place where strength was supreme. The matter of hunting spirit beasts could not be talked about in terms of good and evil at all. Wasn't the internal community of spirit beasts also governed by the survival of the fittest? This was merely a link in the food chain's ecological loop. What truly made people disgusted was Tang San's extremely hypocritical demeanor. On one hand, he wantonly massacred spirit beasts for personal gain. On the other hand, he wildly flaunted benevolence and morality, building up a nice clean and jade pure persona, acting like a whore while setting up a monument to chastity. The truth exposed by the diary contents was clearly displayed word by word. Especially for the young women of Douluo too who grew up listening to the glory of Shrek and the stories of the sea god Tang San, these few short sentences fiercely shattered the filter they had held since childhood. Douluo tu Tang Ya, it's not like that, history doesn't say it that way. Douluo tu Ma Xiao Tao, slander, how could this be true? You are not allowed to defame the 10,000-year glory of our Shrek Academy. Douluo tu Meng Hongchen, so that's how it is. I finally understand why every time I read the historical books of the Douluo continent, there's always an inexplicable sense of detachment. Douluo tu Ling Luokan, sea god Tang San, Shrek, so it was passed down in the same vein, hey. Douluo tu Yigui, history is written by the victors, and Tang San is simply a despicable villain. That being said, leaving aside those reclusive fierce beasts, the rare 100,000-year spirit beasts on land were countless in the vast ocean. Beneath the deep sea lay an old schemer who had endured for 10,000 years, just one step away from breaking the ironclad rule that spirit beasts are not allowed to become gods, infinitely approaching the realm of a million-year god beast, the deep sea demon whale king. Unfortunately, simply because this evil spirit beast was unwilling to believe in the sea god and occasionally preyed on the devil spirit great white sharks that believed in the sea god, its political stance was incorrect, and it was directly slapped with the label of an evil spirit beast by Lord Sea God. There were no monstrous evil deeds, no chaos brought to the four seas, but in this sea area, not believing in the sea god was the original sin. In the end, this peerless fierce beast was plotted against step by step, reduced to a stepping stone on Tang San's path to becoming a god. After ascending to the god realm, the quality of its spirit ring was exceptionally upgraded to the god level, which could be considered the fulfillment of its dream of becoming a god. It must be said that the deep sea demon whale king was insidious and cunning enough to be called a 10,000-year-old schemer. At the moment of its death, it hid a wisp of its soul inside the dropped equipment spirit bone, enduring and lying low for many years, waiting all the way until Tang San underwent the sea god ninth trial, when its soul suddenly appeared at a critical moment, almost snatching away the sea god divinity position. It was a pity that the general trend had been set. Within the home field rules controlled by the sea god, how could an evil spirit beast that did not believe in the sea god have the qualifications to turn the tables? Sea god Poseidon directly brought about a deus ex machina, fiercely taking action to completely annihilate the soul of the deep sea demon whale king. It must be said that the sea god really inherited this in the same vein. Douluo tu Tang San followed suit, and even surpassed his predecessor. When the Sun and Moon Empire annexed the two empires of Dolan and Tianyun and was about to unify the Douluo continent, sea god Tang San performed a deus ex machina, forcibly interfering in the wars of the mortal world. If it's not the Douluo continent I like, perform a direct deus ex machina. Douluo tu Juzi. Douluo tu Meng Hongchen. Douluo tu Shu Tianjun. Good, good, good. If you can't beat them, you cheat. The gods can't afford to lose, right? A suffocating wave of anger instantly surged into the hearts of the Sun and Moon Empire's heroines. Since sea god Tang San plays so outside the rules, don't blame our Sun and Moon Empire for directly flipping the table, discussing how to occupy the Douluo continent with a soft line policy under the gaze of the sea god. You provoke me, you've really kicked a cotton pad. I don't even know how Poseidon became a god in the first place. What kind of sea spirit beasts actually believed in this person? Douluo I Xiao Bai. Douluo I Bo Saishi. Sea god island, inside a special temple, incense curls upwards and holy radiance descends. Bo Saishi, the high priest who had served the sea god for 100 years, at this moment had her delicate brows tightly furrowed and her expression grave. The truth revealed in the diary contents was completely different from the history she knew. In the ancient books passed down from generation to generation on Sea God Island, Sea God Poseidon was a well-deserved saint with the common people in his heart. Before becoming a god, he was the world's top-ranked 99 limit Douluo. In the sea areas of ancient times, sea spirit beast overlords carved out territories and fought independently, and sea spirit master tribes waged war against one another. The flames of war in this sea area lasted for thousands of years, plunging marine living beings into abyssal misery. It was precisely at this time that Poseidon traveled alone across the four seas, suppressing the riots with his supreme limit Douluo strength, completely ending this chaotic era and bringing peace and order to the ocean. It was also this pure power of faith carrying the expectation of peace that, day by day and month by month, converged into the general trend of the era, and thus the sea god divinity was born. But at this moment, the step-by-step revelations in the diary contents completely overthrew the saintly image of Lord Sea God of Sea God Island. That sea god savior who pacified the chaotic times in the hearts of marine living beings had transformed into an ambitious person skilled in calculation, doing all this solely to harvest the faith of weak spirit beasts. The sea god is not a benevolent deity, he does not cherish sea spirit beasts, he merely collects faith to become a god. These two completely opposing truths left Bo Saixi's thoughts as chaotic as hemp. The faith she had guarded for 100 years actually collapsed one day, causing her state of mind, which had always been as calm as water, to gradually lose balance. That being said, since the anchor point for becoming a god was already set, it showed that Poseidon had a certain way with words, at least comparable to Grandmaster Yu Xiaoging. After all, Poseidon had achieved the position of sea god in the end as a human spirit master, relying on the faith of alien sea spirit beasts. Then the question arose, why didn't Poseidon choose to become a god on land? The root cause was also simple, it was precisely because the mountain of Spirit Hall stood right there. The Douluo continent of that era was already the domain of the angel god, and the populace spontaneously believed in the angel god. Even if Poseidon was a limit Douluo, he dared not snatch away the people's faith on the mainland. With no way out, the ocean where no one had set foot became his only shortcut to break the deadlock. However, how should a human spirit master make spirit beasts generate faith in him? In reality, there were many examples of this answer in the history of human civilization. Ahem, let's get back to how Poseidon managed to harvest the faith of spirit beasts. Although sea spirit beasts were a collective term, a strict food chain hierarchy existed among spirit beasts. This system determined that powerful sea spirit beast races were destined to be high and mighty dragon-like species, while weak spirit beasts occupied the vast majority. At this time, class antagonism, or rather, racial antagonism appeared. Powerful sea spirit beasts were naturally superior to all living beings, able to wantonly slaughter weak sea spirit beasts, while those weak sea spirit beasts occupying a large base could only wait for death. This was originally a phenomenon of the survival of the fittest. Even the sea spirit beasts living in the ocean had long been accustomed to this set of survival rules. Yet suddenly one day, a spirit master draped in the cloak of justice and redemption, standing on the high ground of morality and possessing the strength of the world's limit, Douluo, stood up. Friends, I feel that this world should not be like this. To be backward is to take a beating, and to be weak is to be slaughtered. Then why don't we unite all forces, and resist this group of evil spirit beasts that oppress us? Amidst the oppression of endless darkness, Poseidon's remarks were like a ray of dawn piercing the long night, bringing unprecedented hope of rebirth to all the low-level, weak sea spirit beasts. Chapter 20. Those cultivators among them, until before their deaths, all felt that they hadn't worked hard enough. At the end of the day, the thoughts of spirit beasts are still too simple. They simply can no longer play against the power struggles and scheming methods of human spirit masters. When have sea spirit beasts ever seen such remarks speaking up for beasts and inciting beastly hearts? Wouldn't this faith skyrocket like crazy? Word spreads from 10 to 100, and the power of faith increases exponentially. The faith of the entire sea area is completely monopolized by Poseidon. The path to becoming a god is as stable as flat ground all the way, enjoying the sea god position delightfully and evacuating millions. I can only say that this is simply because Poseidon was born in ancient times, taking full advantage of the air's dividends. The isolated sea area can be called a perfect information cocoon. All sea spirit beasts are trapped in the prison of faith he carefully wove, unlike the information age, where even a tiny bit of dark history can be dug up immediately. The nationwide craze for creating gods is mighty, but what remains consistent is that compared to blindly creating gods, the masses are often more keen on destroying this god with their own hands. Even if there is no dark history, in the process of information transmission, there will always be times when the information is distorted. Only truly talented and capable big figures with a sense of responsibility, only great people who can withstand the test of history like this, are worthy of the people's faith. However, Poseidon the sea god's actions, whether before or after becoming a god, are completely unworthy of his virtue. Poseidon the sea god is essentially Tang San born ahead of time with a changed skin. Douluo Shui Ke, this is the sea god. How is it 100 million points different from the classics recorded in the imperial palace? Douluo Qian Runshui, this seems to really be the case. Douluo 3 Gu Yuina, the divinities of the god realm are still so despicable. The spokesperson of the sea god, one of the three great limit Douluo in the world, the sea god Douluo Bosaishi known as invincible in the ocean, leaving aside her love-brain behavior. Why didn't the sea god choose her as the next divinity? Perhaps the root cause is because she isn't hypocritical enough. And from Tang San, the sea god clearly saw the shadow of his own opportunistic, selfish, and calculating youth, which is why he decisively passed down the god position. Douluo Bosaishi. Inside the sea god shrine, Bosaishi froze in place, her mind completely blank. This entry is simply divine. What does it mean that she isn't hypocritical enough, and to first leave aside her love-brain behavior? But thinking about it carefully, she has to admit that this statement makes a certain amount of sense. Of course, Bosaishi first denied the label of being love-brained on herself. For a long time, Bosaishi had always thought that the reason Lord Sea God didn't choose her was because her talent wasn't enough, or perhaps the sea god had no intention of passing down the god position. Those pitiful cultivators among them, until before their deaths, all felt that they hadn't worked hard enough. But until today, she suddenly woke up to realize that the god she devoutly worshipped was not noble at all, but rather extremely hypocritical. Was her talent not enough? Bosaishi couldn't help asking herself. Indeed, compared to Tang San, who carried heaven's mandate and was blessed with destiny, she was slightly inferior. Yet looking back at that era, her talent was the undisputed #1 person in the entire sea area, and she was truly invincible in the ocean of her time. As for loyalty, she spent 100 years guarding Sea God Island, protecting the entire sea area for the sea god. Yet in the end, the sea god still chose to pass the divinity to a despicable and double-standard Tang San. Although she only unilaterally learned of the destiny protagonist Tang San's despicableness from the diary's contents, these evaluations undoubtedly carried subjective bias. However, Jin Moyu's diary contents did not carry malicious slander. Instead, based on the experiences of Tang San that he understood, he analyzed Tang San from various aspects. Even though Tang San stubbornly adhered to feudalist concepts, which Jin Moyu himself extremely detested, he did not stint on his own praise. This was enough to show that the diary's unilateral personality analysis of Tang San was already enough to interpret this person Tang San's so-called ice clean and jade pure and hypocritical demeanor. Yet it was precisely such a person who was chosen by Lord Sea, chosen by the sea god to become the successor. For a moment, her idol's image completely collapsed. Bosaishi slowly raised her hand, covering her heavy chest. That heart, which used to be as calm as water, was beating frantically in her chest at this moment. At this moment, Bosaishi understood that she could no longer go back. Everything could no longer go back, that pious high priest who believed in the sea god. This can also explain why such an outrageous thing as Qian Runshui's golden liquid happened when Tang San was undergoing the sea god 9 trials. Douluo Qian Runshui. Golden liquid, what on earth is this? Qian Runshui's beautiful eyes suddenly narrowed, staring dead at this line of text on the diary copy, a strong sense of unease inexplicably rising in her heart. A woman's innate sixth sense told her that the content that followed would subvert her cognition. Tang San's sea god 9 trials and Qian Runshui's angel god 9 trials were staggered in time, but because a certain shameless divinity secretly meddled and twisted the two trials together, this illusion also became even more realistic. During the final love and lust trial of Tang San's sea god 9 trials, the one who appeared before him was precisely Qian Runshui. And in the final test of the angel god 9 trials, Qian Runshui's affection for Tang San was very obvious. Knowing it was an illusion, she also intended to indulge a little. The crucial thing is that this was a broadcasted plot, meaning the other 6 people from Shrek all witnessed this scene on the spot. Ning Rongrong and Zhu Zuqing blushed, while Xiao Wu had a vacant gaze. Douluo Xiao Wu. Douluo Ning Rongrong. Douluo Zhu Zuqing. Douluo Qian Runshui, FCK. Douluo Tu Tang Ya. This is the ancestor of my Tang sect. The angel god of the god realm had long since fallen, and the position of divinity couldn't even be passed down. This piece of history was not detailed, and it is only known that the angel god left in a great hurry. I guess it might have been the Dragon God War back then that led to the fall of the Angel God. Only that catastrophe that shook the entire God realm was enough to quietly bring down a level 1 divinity. After all, in the God realm, due to the reason of divine punishment, no matter what disputes exist, unjust killing of divinities is not permitted. Only through a public trial by the God realm committee does one have the power to dispose of a divinity. Even the 5 great God kings can never cross this ironclad rule on this point. However, this rule only binds within the God realm. On Douluo continent, the slaughtering among Rakshasa God, Angel God, Sea God, and Asura God is simply not bound by divine punishment. And at this time, this old fogey of a sea god took a look. The Angel God's inheritance has broken down, so your successor won't have anyone to take care of them. He might as well exact revenge and discuss your descendant successor. In the Love and Lust trial of Tang San's Sea God 9 trials, the ambiguous illusion of Qian Runshui inexplicably appeared. Who the mastermind behind the scenes is already very obvious. Douluo, goddess of life. This is the Sea God. That deity who was usually gentle to others, warm smiling, and calm and magnanimous in manner. A dignified level 1 divinity ruling over the sea area turned out to be so narrow-minded. Bound by the rules of the God realm and not daring to confront the Angel God, he instead turned around to bully a younger generation with no one to protect them, relying on secret petty actions to vent his anger and exact revenge. Even if it was just an illusion, this in itself had severely transgressed the rules of the God realm committee. How could a divinity interfere with the God position inheritance process of another divinity? What's even more outrageous is that he didn't even spare his own divinity successor Tang San, broadcasting his private love and lust trial publicly, wantonly trampling on other people's dignity and toying with human hearts. Where on earth is this any gentle deity? Even the most basic bottom line and moral integrity of a divinity are completely gone. Chapter 21. According to unofficial history records, Ji Yuina's father was named Ji Yu Fangyuan. Every time I pick up my pen to write about Tang San, I can't help wanting to go over and hit him hard with an elbow. Just like having excellent academic grades doesn't mean having an upright character, becoming a divinity only means a person's strength is strong enough and doesn't represent noble morals. Looking across all the divinities in the Douluo series, aside from the powerhouses who created their own divinity positions, the rest are just a bunch of incense gods. For divinities who become gods by relying on faith, I can't say they are completely devoid of gold content, but I can only say their gold content is approximately 0. If you only read Douluo, Tang San's so-called double standard and selfish behavior is actually harmless. But after reading Luo Yuhao's dog training diary in the Chengkan asking Love Valley in Douluo 2, and Douluo III's God King Tang's Deus Ex Machina, the root cause of the self-destruction of the Abyss Plane was buried by his own hands. A fine protagonist, what kind of shape was he trained into by Tang San? His daughter Tang Wadong accidentally ran to Douluo continent because she wanted to play. That reason is something only the foolish Xiao Wu would believe. Douluo 2 Xiao Wu, quote. As for Tang San's biological son, Tang Wulin, his life's destiny was full of twists, frustrations, and extreme misery. Especially his girlfriend Ji Yuina, from start to finish, she didn't look like a normal person at all. Douluo 3 Ji Yuina, quote. Ji Yuina, Ji Yu, I remember now. According to unofficial history records, Ji Yuina's biological father is Ji Yu Fangyuan. Thinking about it this way, Tang Wulin's tragic life experience instantly makes sense. Douluo 3 Lang Yaoju, quote. Douluo 3 Ji Yuina, what does this mean? Douluo 3 Xiao Wu, what kind of character is this Ji Yu Fangyuan? Could his strength possibly be even stronger than third brother? ... Qin Moyu raised his hand to close the diary, pulling back his chaotic thoughts. The most important matter right now was to acquire whale gum, absorb the god-bestowed spirit ring, and enhance his own strength. As a steady hater, before his strength could steadily crush Tang Hao, he wouldn't proactively go looking for trouble with Tang San. Just as he was about to set off, the recording function previously unlocked by the system flashed into his mind, and a strange expression instantly appeared on Qin Moyu's face. Recording, what a great image recording function. If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have thought it was a live broadcast. Qin Moyu inwardly complained to himself. But on second thought, if he recorded the past black material of Tang San and Yu Xiaogang, along with scenes of pranking the master and disciple, could it be considered valuable diary content? If such diary content were scored out of 100, he could at least get 91 points, right? Having confirmed his inner thoughts, small gleaming white spots of light instantly leapt out from the diary in his hand, suspending in midair, ready to record everything that would happen next in real time. Ding, live broad, cough cough. The image recording function has been activated. Introducing it to the host now. Text narration is the traditional way of writing a diary. With the development of the times, people began to continue writing diaries through images. During image recording, the host can synchronously record inner thoughts into the diary according to personal needs. The host can record with peace of mind. The diary content is absolutely safe. Please feel free to record daily diaries using image content. I believe you, you old scoundrel of a system with so many schemes. Hearing this slightly stiff introduction, Qin Moyu secretly sneered in his heart. It was obvious a slip of the tongue just now exposed the truth. This so-called image recording was clearly a reskinned live broadcast, yet it still wanted to let him rest assured while recording. Rules like absolute safety were obviously wordplay. Perhaps quite a few people could indirectly see the recorded scenes through the diary, and the image scenes themselves were part of the diary content. At the same time, the moment the recording function was activated, the diaries in the hands of all the heroines across the myriad realms who held diary copies flashed with light. The densely packed text pages instantly vanished, replaced by a clear and realistic real-time image. Simultaneously, all the heroines noticed the brand new changes in the diary copies. This mysterious diary that spanned across planes quietly unlocked the messaging function. From now on, they were no longer just readers who could only passively watch on the sidelines, but possessed the permission to communicate and exchange with other heroines holding diary copies. Yet at this moment, the brand new messaging interface was empty and silently still. Not a single person chose to step out and speak. Some astute heroines tacitly maintained silence one after another, lurking in the shadows and hiding the secret of holding a diary copy themselves. Combined with the information previously revealed in Qin Moyu's diary entries, the heroines had long since deduced a truth that people had no choice but to accept. This entire plane they lived in was most likely a fictional delusion realm under some author's pen, and all plots revolved around a destined protagonist. Then the question arose. None of them knew clearly whether they were benefactors helping the protagonist in this script, opposing villains, or insignificant passers-by. Aside from the diary's owner, Qin Moyu, no one knew this answer. But there was one point the heroines knew well. Rashly exposing oneself was undoubtedly revealing one's trump cards. If one was a benefactor to the destined protagonist's rise, then one might very well be plotted against by villainous female characters. By then, with the enemy in the dark and them in the light, their situation would be extremely dangerous. Granted, the diary copies strictly prohibited direct or indirect harm, but their families, clans, and related relatives were not in this category. As for villainous female characters, who knew what their true personalities were like? Paranoid yanderes, world-destroying enchantresses, tyrannical mad women, extreme love brains. Being women themselves, they knew best how vicious and ruthless those emotionally unstable female powerhouses could be. Under layers of concerns, this led to the diary copy's messaging interface having no one speak until now. This messaging area had virtually turned into a miniature dark forest universe, and no one dared to expose their uniqueness first. However, this dead silence atmosphere didn't last long. Driven by curiosity, there would always be some heroines with relatively pure minds who couldn't help but leave messages. Diary copy messaging interface. Douluo to Xiao Xiao, airdropping into a no man's land. Is anyone here? Douluo I Ning Rong Rong, are you someone from later generations? May I boldly ask, how is the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School developing now? At Douluo to Xiao Xiao. Douluo to Xiao Xiao, I don't understand this question comprehensively. Senior can ask Ning Tian for detailed matters. Douluo to Ning Tian, Ancestor Milady, I am here. The 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School is doing well, although it can't compare to Shrek Academy, can't compare to the Body Sect, can't compare to the Clear Sky Sect, can't compare to the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy, can't compare to Douluo I Ning Rong Rong. Douluo to Ning Tian, but at least, our 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School is stronger than the Tang Sect. Ancestor, please rest assured, with me around for a day, the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School will definitely not decline. The 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School is flourishing day by day. Douluo to Tang Ya. Douluo to Wufeng, greetings, Ancestor Milady. Ning Tian is very reliable. She will definitely be able to lead the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile School to flourish day by day. Douluo I Ning Rong Rong, stop calling me Ancestor, it sounds a bit weird. I'm still just a teenage girl, which is quite awkward. Douluo to Ning Tian, okay, Ancestor Milady. Douluo to Wufeng, okay, Ancestor Milady. Douluo I Ning Rong Rong. Douluo I Yi Ling Ling, Yan Yan, can you see me speaking? Douluo I Dugu Yan, crystal clear. Douluo I Yi Ling Ling, how magical, we can still talk across such a long distance. Douluo I Dugu Yan, I've already arrived home, and I'm annoyed to death right now. Grandpa trusts that scoundrel Tang San too much, and no matter how I try to persuade him, he won't listen. Douluo I Yi Ling Ling, old folks are like that, they always believe what they see with their own eyes and would rather trust outsiders than family members. Douluo I Dugu Yan. Douluo I Shui Yuer, this statement sounds so philosophical, I must chew on the words and study it word by word. Douluo I Shui Binger, little sister, don't learn bad things. Douluo I Jian Run Shui, it is indeed like this. Douluo I Juliana, oh. Could it be that there's a story here? Juliana remained silent, quietly picking up a small stool to prepare to eat melons, and moreover, melons concerning her own teacher. The unspeakable secret between the Spirit Hall Supreme Pontiff and the young master. Ever since obtaining this diary, Juliana's life had been full of fun, and from time to time she could see the black materials of many girls. Eating melons and gossiping were undoubtedly the most enthusiastic pastimes for a bunch of young girls, and she was no exception. What made Juliana immensely confident deep down was that someone like her, who was loyal to Spirit Hall, definitely wouldn't have any black material. This was also Juliana's mindset of eating melons with a clear conscience and without any burden. Chapter 22, Bird in a Cage, When Will It Fly? Meanwhile, clear images emerged from the diary contents, revealing the figure of the young Chin Moyu. Looking from afar, the youth had delicate facial features, sword-like brows and star-like eyes, distinct angles, and a pair of deep ink-colored pupils that seemed to hold a tranquil sea of stars. But if observed up close, the youth's skin was fair and translucent, and his delicate brows and eyes appeared exceptionally gentle and beautiful. His brows were like distant mountains shrouded in mist, and his eyes were like autumn water rippling, making him even more gentle and moving than most women in the world, resembling a natural-born beauty. Handsome and gentle coexisted, a visage that could kill both men and women. Described in modern terms, if Chin Moyu changed into a set of white silk-made attire, he would undoubtedly possess the innate trap physique. The only pity was that under such exquisite features, the youth's age of 18 was a bit old. Douluo Yi Ling Ling, is this Chin Moyu, the high-dimensional big shot behind the diary? What do you think, Yan Yan? Douluo Dugu Yan, I'm looking at him while sitting down. He's very handsome. Douluo Shui Yuer, he really is handsome. Your older sister here has fallen in love at first sight, ahahaha. Douluo Shui Binger, you foolish sister, you're simply lustful. Douluo Shui Kei, a person on the path like jade, a gentleman unmatched in this world, a pure guest amidst the paths with bones of jade, a single glance of astonishment falling into the mortal world. Douluo Yi Ling Ling, this poem is written so well. Princess Shui Kei has such fine literary talent. Could it be that you've fallen for young Master Chin Moyu, Tee tilde? Douluo Shui Kei, Imperial Father's health is getting worse by the day, and recently he's always worrying about my marriage, trying to find a good match for me so that I can stay away from the royal family's struggles. Douluo Jian Run Shui. Inside the Qing Palace of the Heaven Do Imperial Palace. The soft morning light shone upon the room full of silks and satins, and the furnishings inside the hall were all luxurious gold and jade artifacts. Shui Kei sat alone in front of the vanity, carefully combing her moon-white short hair. A moon-white long dress set off her slender figure, and the glazed mirror reflected the exquisite-looking young girl. The girl hugged a thick diary, the pages staying in the same place without being turned for a long time. The usually cute and lively girl had complex emotions surging in the depths of her eyes. The luxurious palace filled the room, making her thin figure appear increasingly lonely. Clearly being in this magnificent bedchamber, she felt as if she were trapped in an exquisite cage. After hesitating for a long time, Shui Kei finally mustered up her courage and asked the question that she had hidden for the entire night. Douluo Shui Kei, may I ask, my real older brother? Douluo Jian Run Shui, dead. Ever since you were born, the Shui Qing you saw has always been me, from beginning to end. Douluo Shui Kei. The cold and straightforward truth instantly shattered the last shred of luck in Shui Kei's heart, leaving behind only silence in the end. How keen Jian Run Shui's mind was. Being fellow sufferers in the ends of the world, their similar life experiences made her empathize as if it were her own. She gently comforted the preoccupied little princess. Douluo Jian Run Shui, rest assured, little sister Shui Kei, I can understand your feelings. For so many years, I have always treated you like my own biological sister. Douluo Jian Run Shui, although you have lost an older brother, you still have me. I can completely replace your older brother to cherish and love you, right? Douluo Jian Run Shui, if you don't want to get married, I have my own ways to make those court ministers who force you into marriage shut up completely. No one dares to dictate your life. Douluo Shui Kei, thank you, big brother. The warmth of companionship over many years surged into her heart. The estrangement in Shui Kei's heart completely dissipated, and she softly called out that affectionate title. It wasn't until yesterday through the diary that she learned of this long-buried secret. The real Crown Prince Shui Qing had long since died. The gentle older brother who had accompanied her, protected her, and spoiled her since childhood was always the Spirit Hall young master, Qian Runshui. After so many years of day and night companionship, that gentle, considerate older brother who protected her in everything, all of this gentle care was not fake. The conspiracies and calculations were real, but the many years of sibling warmth were undoubtedly also sincere and pure. Under the tug of war between the two, Shui Kei ultimately chose to let go, silently accepting Qian Runshui as an older brother deep in her heart. For her, as long as this older brother's pampering came from the bottom of her heart, as for the rest, she was unwilling to delve deeper, nor did she have the ability to delve deeper. Behind the glamorous princess identity was a destiny where even her own marriage could not be controlled. As a child of the royal family, she had recognized her responsibilities since birth. In the end, she was merely a chess piece in the game of imperial power, a bargaining chip in the court. Faced with this destined arrangement, she could do nothing. Douluo Ningrongrong, little sister Shui Kei, are you serious? But to be honest, Qin Moyu himself has peerless appearance and unfathomable strength. Compared to those imperial princes who only have status, it's a complete difference between heaven and earth. Douluo Ningrongrong, what's more crucial is that you hold a diary copy, allowing you to know his inner thoughts at all times and whether he is sincere. You don't have to worry about the unpredictable nature of human hearts at all. This sense of security is unmatched by anyone. You mean, all of your husband's inner thoughts are known to yourself? For a wife, this might be the greatest stroke of luck. Douluo Ningrongrong, sister, you must seize the future. If you drag it on any longer, Qin Moyu will be snatched away by other girls. Douluo Ningrongrong, let me tell you, many of the girls who can chat here have this intention, especially those lurking without bubbling up. They might have already prepared actions in secret. Ningrongrong's sincere persuasion was full of genuine consideration for Shui Kei, also because her relationship with Shui Kei had been very good since childhood. Among the upper three sects of the Douluo continent, the Clear Sky sect lived in seclusion from the world, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan maintained neutrality, and only the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School clearly took a side to assist the Heaven Do Empire. In fact, maintaining neutrality makes it easier to become the target of public criticism. Major forces will guard against your neutral variable. Choosing neutrality and not taking a side is actually more dangerous than choosing to take a side. And the Seven Treasure Glazed Tile School that chose to take a side can not only obtain the protection, resources, and money of the Heaven Do Empire, but also indirectly have one less enemy and one more friend. Diary copy message interface. Shui Kei bit her red lips, hesitated again and again, and still calmly uttered an unexpected remark. Douluo Shui Kei, it's fine, I don't mind being the minor one. Douluo Ningrongrong. Douluo Jian Runshui. Douluo Duguyan. As soon as these words came out, the entire message interface instantly fell dead silent, followed by dense question marks crazily flooding the screen. ... The message area of the diary copy was chatting enthusiastically, but Qin Moyu was completely unaware of all this. At this moment, he was holding the diary, his gaze falling on his currently handsome appearance, and a smile just right raised the corners of his mouth. It's alright, compared to 5 years ago, it's only about 78 points handsome. Qin Moyu muttered to himself in self-praise. Although he could no longer remember what he looked like 5 years ago. Thanks to the spirit awakening and the nourishment of his innate spirit power, his once malnourished body had already recovered. Not only that, his entire appearance and temperament were completely sublimated, creating this beauty that could kill both men and women. Spirits can affect a person's appearance. Wasn't it because Tang San's blue-silver grass spirit awakened and evolved into the blue-silver emperor that he gained such a handsome appearance? I don't know if it's my illusion, but I always feel like someone is peeping at my peerless appearance. Diary copy women. So strong, he can even feel this. Before everyone could recover, Qin Moyu's inner monologue was sorted out and updated once again. Chapter 23. Old habits die hard. A bad orange is still a bad orange. It should just be an illusion. The system guaranteed me that the diary contents can only be seen by me, and the video recordings are the same. Now I feel much more relieved. I was most afraid that my diary entries would be too loose-lipped and I'd accidentally offend some heroine who would then come looking for me and tie me up. Speaking of which, I am actually a bit looking forward to someone actually coming over, just to test the true strength of the core of the Herrscher of Reason. Little dragon god Lan Xuan, you could go toe-to-toe with divinities at level 70. Although the numerical values of the core of the Herrscher of Reason, which is also a god king tier spirit, can't compare, my spirit's mechanics are strong. Once I create the dimensional reduction weapon, the dual vector foil, let alone the dragon god, the entire Douluo god realm will be flattened into Van Gogh's paintings. Your spirit is indeed strong, but my spirit is not necessarily unfavorable either. Douluo IBB Dong, if they really come, don't be unhappy. Douluo 3GU Yuina, if they really come, don't be unhappy. Douluo I Goddess of Life, if they really come, don't be unhappy. Douluo Tu Xiao Xiao, if they really come, don't. Whoa, Goddess of Life, is that Lord Divinity? Douluo Tu Shu Tianjun, oh my god, this diary is too terrifying, it can even drag divinities from the god realm into watch. However, just as the voice fell, another Goddess of Life belonging to the period of the unrivaled Tang clan took the initiative to speak. Douluo Tu Goddess of Life, this is not strange. If the contents of the diary copy are real, then her life level is undoubtedly a higher dimensional existence. Douluo Tu Goddess of Life, compared to this question, I am also very curious about what kind of extension Moyu, such a special existence, can actually achieve. Douluo Tu Goddess of Life, I just have a question, are you really the past me? Douluo I Goddess of Life, genuine without a doubt, perhaps this is the wonder of the time dimension. Douluo Tu Goddess of Life, HMPH, wonder, why should a past me appear out of thin air? This kind of rhetoric is completely unconvincing, I will never believe it. Douluo I Goddess of Life, it seems that 28 years have passed, and the god realm has indeed made no progress at all, unwilling to even accept the existence of overlapping timelines. Cognitively speaking, you are not much stronger than the current me. Douluo Tu Goddess of Life, you just wait for me, blushingface.jpg. The entire message interface instantly quieted down, and the heroines holding diary copies watched with relish. Especially the women of the Douluo plane, being able to see a divinity bickering with herself, this mountain is simply more interesting than watching Tang San's black materials. At the same time, a money house in Soto City. Qin Moyu stood in front of the counter, watching the money house attendant hand over all the savings he had accumulated over 5 years. Weighing the thin money bag and pouring out all the gold coins, there were only 11 left in sight. Sigh, I'm really ridiculously poor. I wonder if people would laugh themselves to death if they saw this scene. A dignified time traveler holding a system cheat, yet so poor in Douluo continent that only 11 gold coins are left in his pocket. Chin Moyu shook his head gently, silently putting away the coins, and turned to walk out of the money house. Walking along the street, he happened to pass by the Rose Hotel. The sky was still early, but the young receptionist of the Rose Hotel had already arrived early to work, carefully tidying up the furnishings in the shop. Rose Hotel, back when Tang San first entered Soto City, it was here that he formed a bond with Dai Mubai. Later, I will drop by Shrek Academy along the way to determine the timeline. However, the receptionist of this Rose Hotel seems to be identical to her image in the Xuanji anime. That being said, I have time traveled to the anime Douluo Continent plane. To be honest, it's quite a pity. I originally expected to time travel to Teacher Emu's manga version of Douluo Continent. Ma Hongjun in the manga is not the lewd and lustful depraved embryo in the original work, but just a little fatty who simply suffered from the backlash of evil fire and could only alleviate it through overeating. Tang San lacks the shrewd calculations and unscrupulous city-bred depth to achieve his goals from the original work, and Yu Xiaobing has also gotten rid of his sloppy and ugly appearance. The overall character shaping is more positive and full. I don't know how much time has passed since Tang San first arrived in Soto City. After so many years, this young lady is still sticking to her post at the front desk. Don't the hotel leaders give her a promotion? Sigh, but it's normal. After all, Douluo continent has an ancient background, where human lives are like grass. Ordinary people on this continent work hard to earn money all their lives, and before dying, they still think they just didn't work hard enough. Douluo I Zhongzu. Douluo tu Zhong Nanan. Douluo I Purple Pearl. This heart-wrenching human sigh instantly made the diary comment section completely quiet down. Speaking of which, the folk customs of Douluo continent are still very simple. 15-year-old Dai Mubai often brings sister flowers to consume at the Rose Hotel. Ma Hongjun, who was less than 12 years old, had his evil fire surge to his brain from his phoenix spirit, and had to find a rural girl as a girlfriend. Later, when he even ran out of money, he had even considered the absurd act of forcefully seizing commoners' daughters. Douluo I Zhu Zuqing. Douluo I Bai Chenqiang. Oh no, there won't be my black materials later on, right? Inside the young girl's room, Bai Chenqiang was holding the diary copy and reading intently. As a result, when Ma Hongjun was suddenly exposed, her heart skipped a beat. Whenever Ma Hongjun was mentioned, the first thing the heroines of the diary copies thought of would definitely be related to her. I won't comment much on the coward Dai Mubai. He is a native noble lord of Douluo continent, and his values are already deeply entrenched. I don't understand, but I also don't respect it. Ma Hongjun is simply pure trash. With any evil fire going to his head, he couldn't control his mouth and ate himself into a little fat lump, and couldn't control his desires, hooking up with other people's little girls at such a young age. To put it bluntly, he just has weak willpower and zero self-control. Look at his descendant in Douluo too, Ma Xiaotao. Although her character is not that great and she seems to have killed a few innocent Shrek students, she still didn't rely on indulging her desires to suppress the evil fire. Sure enough, people cannot empathize with their yesterday's self. I want to take back my previous evaluation complaining about Ma Hongjun's deep affection. The reason why Ma Hongjun failed to inherit the Fire God's God position is purely because he is too much of a piece of trash. No wonder Tang San, such an exquisitely selfish person, was unwilling to help him. Old habits die hard, a bad orange is still a bad orange, and mud cannot be smeared onto a wall. Douluo I Bai Chenqiang. Fortunately, it didn't mention me. The young girl quietly breathed a sigh of relief. She was terrified that Chin Moyu would follow Ma Hongjun's path and dig up all sorts of entanglements between herself and him. At this moment, Bai Chenqiang had not yet met Ma Hongjun, and her previous favorable impression and filter towards him were solely based on that deeply affectionate evaluation in the diary copy. Perhaps it was only because of the experience of ascending in the god realm that Ma Hongjun became so outstanding. And Chin Moyu's phrase, old habits die hard, this highly philosophical remark, hit the young girl's inner heart like a heavy hammer. After careful understanding, Bai Chenqiang had a clear cognition in her heart. Ma Hongjun might not be a suitable match for her. On the other side, Ma Xiaotao, who was dragged out for comparison in public, immediately blushed and bubbled over. Douluo to Ma Xiaotao, what do you mean my character is not that great? Don't talk nonsense. Douluo to Ma Xiaotao, what does guild mean? You better make it clear. Douluo to Ling Luokan, correct, on point. Douluo to plain, inside Shrek Academy. Ling Luokan looked at the diary contents, silently nodding and agreeing frantically in her heart. If it weren't for Ma Xiaotao's status in the academy, she couldn't help but start swearing in the diary message interface long ago. I can only say that this group of old Shrek seniors is truly terrifying. As for Oscar, everyone says he is the most normal one among the Shrek 7 devils, but to put it bluntly, he is only normal by comparison. From the descriptions in the novel, Oscar and Dai Mubai are about the same age, but it seems he has also frequented brothels. However, Oscar is a bit better than Ma Hongjun and Dai Mubai, he didn't go frequently and indulge wildly. After meeting Ning Rongrong, he completely restrained his mind, cut off all distracting thoughts, and wholeheartedly kept himself clean. However, from my personal subjective perspective, Oscar's biggest reason is not self-discipline, but that he didn't have money to go whoring. Just like playing Three Kingdoms skill, if you don't touch Three Kingdoms skill, isn't it obvious that you lack money? Douluo continent is like this, going whoring at age 12 is a normal phenomenon. Anyway, it's hard for me to understand. Chapter 24 Lan Mengqin, Yuan and Wei Wei, why are you here? Meanwhile, Chin Moyu temporarily put aside his inner complaints about the diary's content. At this moment, he still had the video recording on. If he just wrote the diary plainly, he would easily be flamed by the diary readers for padding word count. Rose Hotel. Chin Moyu booked a private suite, which cost him a full 10 gold coins. As the heavy door closed shut, he prepared himself and began his money-making plan. At the same time, the women in the diary copies finally shifted their gaze away from the gossip, uniformly turning their curious eyes toward the handsome youth in the footage. Especially some young and innocent girls, upon associating making money in a place like the Rose Hotel with an exceptionally handsome guy, immediately began daydreaming. Diary comment section. Douluo I Shui Kei. Douluo I Ning Rongrong. Douluo I Yi Ling Ling. Holy crap, sisters, given Lord Moyu's stance, don't tell me he's going to sell his body. Douluo I Du Guyan. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Douluo I Shui Binger. Holy cow, is this something I can watch for free? How about I give some gold coins? Douluo I Yi Ling Tong. According to the Federation's laws, paying money counts as prostitution and will get you detained, but not paying makes it a free ride, so you won't be detained. Douluo I Shui Yuer. Little sister, you're not allowed to look, or you'll get styes in your eyes. Douluo I Huo Wu, Shui Yuer, don't slander him. Have you ever seen Qin Moyu's assets? Douluo Tu Xiao Xiao, I really envy the heroines of Douluo I for having the chance to go spend money at the Rose Hotel. Douluo I Shui K. Douluo I Zhongzhu. Douluo Tu Shu Juju. Douluo 3 Wu Sai Duo. Douluo 3 Dai Yuner, what does this mean? Douluo IV Yilingtong, less than or greater than. Douluo IV Yuan and Wei Wei, I'm seriously begging you. Douluo IV Lan Mengchen, even if you beg, you have to wait in line. Wait a minute, Yuan and Wei Wei, why do you have a diary too? Aren't you a guy? Douluo 3 Shu Xiaoyan, so there are guys in the diary copies too. I thought. Douluo 3 Shu Xiaoyan, at Douluo 3 Yuan and Yahui, are you there? Douluo 3 Yuan and Yahui, I'm not here. Douluo 3 Shu Xiaoyan, oh, aggrieved face.jpg. Douluo IV Yuan and Wei Wei, actually, there's a special reason for this. It really isn't what you guys think. Douluo IV Tang Yuge, HMPH, misfortune to the family. Douluo IV Yuan and Wei Wei, sister. Douluo IV Tang Yuge, don't call me sister. The melon-eating gossip in the diary chat will be temporarily set aside. Inside the sealed Rose Hotel suite, only a deathly silence remained. Qin Moyu raised his hand, and the gentle spirit power within his body suddenly surged. Deep within his meridians, the spirit power and dark plane energy fused layer by layer. He slowly raised his eyes, parting his lips to speak with every word ringing clear and resolute, Herrscher of Reason. Beep. An ethereal and clear water droplet sound drifted out, and an authority belonging to no power system in the Douluo continent instantly triggered a resonance effect. In the heavens diary copies, all the watching girls collectively felt their hearts tighten, locking their attention on the diary screen as a strong sense of crisis abruptly rose in their hearts. Time. Time itself cannot be captured. The more you want to grasp it, the more it's like grabbing a handful of loose sand. The harder you squeeze, the more the sand slips through your palms, impossible to control no matter how hard you try. But at this moment, Qin Moyu seemed to materialize this abstract concept, nakedly displaying the essence of time before them. Without a doubt, this seemingly calm display of the core of the Herrscher of Reason authority was an invaluable Dao opportunity for the diary heroines who craved to comprehend the Dao of time. Core of the Herrscher of Reason, connect to the dark plane, call upon the dark plane authority, understanding. The next moment, Qin Moyu opened his palm, and a snow-white, dazzlingly glowing, intricately structured spherical technological creation quietly emerged. His originally gentle and colored eyes suddenly darkened, and deep within his pitch-black pupils, a circle of gear-like patterns slowly rotated. An extremely cold sense of order washed over him. The youth shed all his gentleness, and the core of the Herrscher of Reason, in his hands fully displayed supreme four-dimensional authority. Core of the Herrscher of Reason, all systems operating normally. I grant you wisdom, to comprehend the mechanism of all things, omniscient and omnipotent, the King of Truth. Dark plane authority anchoring successful, dimension jump calibration complete. Greetings to you, the first Herrscher wielding truth, the Herrscher of understanding. As the voice fell, an invisible sound wave suddenly diffused, and an invisible void force field instantly spread out, completely isolating all outside sounds and detection. Qin Moyu's pitch-black deer-like eyes turned slightly, his expression indifferent and cold, his gaze falling upon the gold coin cradled in his right hand. The gold coin, the most basic universal currency of the Douluo continent, itself bore the function of the value scale of human civilization's monetary system. Herrscher of Reason, call upon the authority, understanding. Qin Moyu slowly closed his 5 fingers, firmly grasping the cold and heavy gold coin in his palm. In an instant, the gear pattern in his pitch-black pupils rotated at overspeed, the core of the Herrscher of Reason launched at full power, and the authority to analyze the origin of all things fully unfolded. Centered around his body, the surrounding colors of reality faded at a speed visible to the naked eye. Time seemed to rewind infinitely, and countless fragmented images emerged out of thin air, pouring into Qin Moyu's memory. The diary copy precisely captured this perspective unique to a Herrscher, and the recorded footage followed Qin Moyu's memory, simultaneously arriving at an ancient blacksmith shop. In a dim, smoke-filled field of vision, inside a crude room. The low wooden beams were covered in charcoal ash, the raging fire of the smelting furnace surged, and the scorching heat wave seemed to rush forward through the screen. Qin Moyu's consciousness, from a god's eye view, quietly overlooked this scene originating from the past. Pieces of crude native gold ore were thrown into the high-temperature smelting furnace, the impurities in the ore stripped away in the blazing flames, and the turbid golden liquid slowly precipitated. Artisans swung heavy iron hammers, repeatedly forging them thousands and tens of thousands of times as sparks flew everywhere. Once the golden liquid solidified and formed, the edges were polished, and it was die-cast into the Empire's exclusive patterns, ultimately forming neat and rounded gold coins. The source tracing of the core of the Herrscher of Reason did not stop at the forging process of the gold coin. Qin Moyu noticed some special memories. As the furnace fire gradually weakened, an elderly artisan covered in sweat put down his iron hammer, heavily exhaled a breath of hot air, looked at the brand new gold coins, and whispered instructions. The new batch of gold coins has been made. Quickly tally them and put them in storage. The newly arrived young apprentice next to him had his heart hanging the whole time, his eyes full of anxiety, and couldn't help lowering his voice. Boss, is this really safe? Secretly concealing gold mines and failing to report knowing about it, if the Heavendo Imperial family investigates and finds out, it's definitely a capital offense. Brat, keep your mouth shut. The old artisan's eyes suddenly turned fierce, and he hurriedly raised his hand to stop him, looking around vigilantly for fear that paper walls had ears. Let these words rot in your stomach. If you dare to spread them outside, watch out for your own life. Chapter 25. Initial display of the authority of the core of the Herrscher of Reason. After sternly reprimanding the novice apprentice, the old craftsman looked at the blazing furnace fire, his eyes seeming to see through the corruption of the imperial court. Do you really think the imperial family can cover the sky with one hand? Quote. The current Heavendo imperial family has long been weak on the inside, hollowed out, and tottering in the wind and rain. Quote. Emperor Shui has been plagued by prolonged illness and is long incapable of personally handling state affairs. The second prince, who had the best talent back then, inexplicably died prematurely overnight. Quote. Not long after, the third prince, who was at the height of his prominence, once again died bizarrely. The 2 crown prince murder cases that shocked the empire were all hastily concluded in the end, leaving them unsettled. Quote. When the old craftsman spoke to this point, he couldn't help but gently let out a sigh. In this kind of world, the imperial family itself is deeply embroiled in internal strife, so how could they still have the mind to care about a mine in a remote, barren mountain? Only by following the noble clans to do things can we safely survive in this turbulent world. Quote. When all is said and done, no matter how glorious the imperial power of the Heavendo imperial family is, it is nothing more than relying on noble clans to consolidate its imperial power and authority. Dynasties flow like water, but noble clans remain as iron. Quote. Every single word and phrase was merely the private whispers of a low-level craftsman. This was a piece of history with no written records, no eyewitness testimonies, and no records from any electronic devices. Yet this conversation, which should have faded away with time, was forcibly dragged out of time by Qin Moyu at this very moment. Before the Heaven's Diary, the group of watching maidens watched with bated breath, entirely shocked and speechless. Douluo tu xiao xiao, what kind of ability is this? It can even completely reproduce the entire process of a gold coin's birth. Quote. Douluo tu Ice Empress, it is merely an ordinary gold coin, yet it can trace back a timeline, and even display this unknown conversation of low-level people without a single error. Is this the spirit ability of a human spirit master? Quote. Douluo tu Snow Emperor, it is both a spirit and not a spirit. This is a unique authority belonging to a certain youth, part of an ability named omniscient and omnipotent. Quote. Douluo tu Snow Emperor, if ordinary spirits could also achieve this step, everything in the world would have no secrets left to speak of, and all spirit beasts would long ago have lost their habitats. Quote. Douluo tu Orange, there are never any absolute secrets in the world, as long as it has happened, it cannot escape his eyes. Quote. Douluo IV Lan Mengchen, is this scientific? Past events have long vanished with time, and without any spirit tool serving as a recording medium, how could he restore it so clearly? Quote. No one had ever expected that an inconspicuous gold coin could actually trace back a historical scene unknown to anyone. Heaven Do Empire. This is his spirit, the core of the Herrscher of Reason, which analyzes all things. Quote. Qian Runshui slowly put down the pen in her hand with which she was reviewing memorials, her beautiful eyes dazedly staring at that gorgeous, spherical technological creation within the diary screen. Divine Core. A power that did not belong to the spirit system of the Douluo continent, yet it eerily matched the essence of spirits, as if some existence had forcibly embedded it into the spirit system of the Douluo continent. This is truly a God King level spirit. Quote. Qian Runshui softly murmured, her tone carrying a trace of awe that even she herself failed to notice. Merely with a distant glance, she genuinely felt the terrifying majesty lying dormant within that divine core. Even the seraphim spirit was unable to catch a glimpse of its full picture. Ordinary spirit masters could only see the gorgeous anomaly of the divine core, taking it merely as some rare, special spirit. Only spirit masters like Qian Runshui, who bore powerful spirits, could clearly perceive the terror deeply buried within the depths of the divine core. That was a complete and utter condescension of a superior spirit over an inferior spirit, an oppressive feeling originating from the level of life. Douluo 2, Sun and Moon Empire. Meng Hongqian lazily lay on the soft large bed, a charming white dress setting off her skin as white and flawless as snow, her jade feet wrapped in crystal clear white silk gently swaying in the air. The maiden held the diary in her arms, her long eyelashes trembling lightly, a pair of beautiful eyes flashing with brilliance. Seemingly ordinary objects, in his eyes, are all recording mediums of time. Quote. If this ability were to be applied to spirit tools, Meng Hongqian pressed her small hand against her tender pink lips, her mind instantly becoming active. As a top-tier spirit tool genius of the Sun and Moon Empire and the granddaughter of Jing Hongqian, the master of Ming Hall, she saw through the essence of the divine core, authority at a glance, scientific research dimensional reduction. This was fundamentally not a combat spirit, this was a scientific research cheat plug-in sufficient to crush the entire spirit tool technological civilization. Countless spirit masters repeatedly deduced blueprints, facing technical barriers that were difficult to break through generations of trial and error, or even production techniques that had long been lost and extinct. For Qin Moyu, requiring merely a single glance at tracing the source, he could perfectly replicate them. As long as the object still exists, history will never dissipate. And this was merely the tip of the iceberg of that technology named the divine core. The underlying logic of the core of the Herrscher of Reason was that understanding meant control, and parsing meant replication. As long as one thoroughly understood the principles of spirit tool technology and possessed sufficient raw materials, one could ignore the production process, create items out of thin air, and replicate all spirit weapons. The terrifying constructive power of the Herrscher of Reason was enough to achieve forming an army by oneself, and one's own body alone was a war machine. Even an independent individual was an entire movable technological civilization, one person was a civilization. Such an insoluble authority was indeed worthy of the moniker of the most insoluble judge of technological civilization. No wonder he is so confident, this is still a spirit that has not yet acquired a spirit ring. Meng Hongqian's gaze shook, and she could not help but sigh with emotion. The spirit tool technology of the Douluo continent 10,000 years ago was barren and backward, completely burying such authority. Conversely, only the Sun and Moon Empire, with its flourishing spirit tool technology and thick scientific research atmosphere, could truly unleash the ability of this divine core. Meng Hongqian lay on the edge of the bed, lightly biting her red lips, a trace of yearning quietly welling up in the depths of her eyes, her heart already secretly starting to scheme. This was a top-tier potential stock that was hard to encounter in 10,000 years. If Qin Moyu could be pulled into Ming Hall, the Sun and Moon continent would definitely give birth to an unprecedented top-tier spirit master. The current Sun and Moon Empire truly needed a powerful spirit master far too much. The entire empire seemed prosperous and flourishing, but undercurrents were actually surging. I do not know since when, but the figures of the Holy Ghost Church frequently appeared in the cities, causing people to panic. On the other side, Qin Moyu's spirit power became critical, and he exited the spirit possession state. The retrocoursed memories before his eyes instantly dissipated like smoke, and he returned to the Rose Hotel, while the time experienced during this period was only a mere few seconds. Can power at the Herrscher level only achieve this degree? Quote. Qin Moyu gently shook his head, having a clearer understanding of his own combat strength and the boundaries of his authority in his heart. With a thought in his mind, he actively summoned the diary interface, putting his inner realizations into writing. What a pity, the core of the Herrscher of Reason of the Dark Plane Herrscher system is ultimately not the Herrscher of Reason of the Honkai system. Closing square bracket. The Dark Plane Divine Core originates from the dimensional technology created by the Xinguo civilization, mastering time authority, but it is merely dimensional technology benchmarking for dimensional time. Closing square bracket. As for the Herrscher of Reason of the Honkai system, its ultimate advanced form is the Herrscher of Truth, which has long jumped out of the limitation of replicating already existing things and possesses the supreme authority to create non-existent things out of thin air. Closing square bracket. For example, making God create a stone that even he himself cannot move, yet God should be omnipotent, so how could he not be able to move it? Closing square bracket. The mere physical rules of the fourth dimension, the time dimension, still cannot accommodate this level of authority. Closing square bracket. The Herrscher of Truth has clearly already touched upon the authority of a higher dimension, and only then can it achieve creating non-existent things. Closing square bracket. According to the dimensional level classification of the Xinguo civilization's technological Herrscher system, the divine core of the Herrscher of Truth is at least dimensional technology rank above the 10th dimension, the parallel universe dimension, at an even deeper level. Closing square bracket. Chapter 26. The red candles have yet to burn out, the joyful event is already in vain. According to the dimensional hierarchy of the Shinguo civilization, upon first mastering the divine core, the power rating is at the Herrscher level. Above this, there are even higher emanator level, throne level. With dimensions as the foundation, ultimately ascending to the pinnacle of the technological Herrscher system, the Eon level, proven once, proven forever, a single thought is eternal. Currently, I am merely newly entered into the Herrscher level, barely able to trace back historical images, and cannot even step into the timeline to change the past. Douluo tu xiao xiao. Ah, this time retrospection is already absurd enough, and it's still just an introductory Herrscher. Douluo I shui ke. I don't understand, but I'm greatly shocked. Douluo I ning rong rong. I don't understand either, but it's enough to know that it's very strong. Douluo I lure long. Changing the past, can that really be done? Shrek Academy. Lu Long stared blankly, looking at the 4 words, change the past, in the diary content, her mind seeming to return to that night back then. Back then, she and Yu Xiaobing were deeply in love, but Flender saw through it all and proactively stepped back. One person's fulfillment was better than 3 people's entanglement. Everyone thought this wedding would be the best ending. But on the wedding night, the blood relation truth that she and Yu Xiaobing were cousins was exposed, and the shackles of worldly etiquette and moral human ethics completely shattered all beauty. The red candles had not burned out, yet the joyful event had already come to nothing. Yu Xiaobing, unable to withstand the blow and suffering a mental collapse, fled the wedding scene in panic, leaving her alone to face the gossip in the shattered bridal chamber. If she could really go back to the past, she wouldn't care about any worldly etiquette at all. That night, she definitely wouldn't have waited for the wedding to proceed. Instead, she would have pulled Yu Xiaobing away without hesitation and found a hotel to just get it done right away. ... Who would have thought that the first time high-dimensional technology was used by me, it would actually be just for making money? It truly is the crudest usage. Qin Muiyu wrote down with a sigh, then restrained his mind, and, equivalent exchange technology quietly emerged in his palm. Herrscher of Reason, absorb dark matter. As the words fell, he reached out and gently swiped forward. The initially calm space suddenly tore open a dimensional rift, and ink black light spheres poured out. This was the materialized form that could only be displayed when dark matter was compressed to the extreme. As an efficient clean energy source, dark matter had application scenarios covering all things. Qin Muiyu intended to use equivalent exchange technology to transform dark matter into gold. Precisely because of this, such high-dimensional technology that ignored all costs was only being used to accumulate worldly wealth, which was why he self-deprecatingly called it a crude usage, truly using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. As everyone knows, the reason the industrial age was able to develop rapidly lay in one core, boiling water. In the steam age, the steam engine performed work through thermal energy, converting it into the kinetic energy of trains, thereby pushing open the doors to the industrial age. Even in modern times, controllable nuclear fusion was still converting nuclear energy into various potential energies, essentially still just boiling water under a different guise. Inside the hotel suite, the remaining spirit power within Qin Muiyu's body was rapidly consumed, and his gear-like eyes were spinning. And when the dust settled, looking around the entire luxury suite, the dazzling golden light all over the floor made people unable to open their eyes. Gold coins piled up like a mountain, and the heavy weight seemed to make the Rose Hotel floor sink slightly. This scene had extreme visual impact. What is called wealth rivaling a nation? The scene of a mountain of gold everywhere before one's eyes was the most intuitive and realistic portrayal. In the Heaven's Diary message area, the heroines of other planes were shocked, but no one spoke up. The main reason was also that there were no topics they could join in on. Furthermore, judging from the diary content, the level of the Douluo plane really couldn't be considered high class. They always felt that talking to them would somewhat lower their own status. They silently watched the spirits and spirit abilities pursued by the Douluo women, which were casually a few thousand, tens of thousands, or 100,000 years in age, yet their lethality seemed inferior to the great desolate imprisoning heaven finger that they casually cultivated for a few months. What kind of cultivation system was this, where breaking through realms actually relied on hunting spirit beasts? Weren't these all things one should learn oneself? On the other hand, the heroines of the Douluo plane had long been completely shocked by the gold coins piled up like a mountain filling the room. Douluo I ning rong rong. Holy cow, so much money. Douluo I xiao wu. Rong rong, even you think the quantity is exaggerated. Douluo I ning rong rong. That's naturally the case. Although the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda itself has the characteristic of treasure hunting, when the 7 treasure glazed tile school treasury was at its fullest, it was only a little bit more than here. Douluo I xiao wu. Who asked you about this? Douluo I lure long. So much gold, if Flender saw it, it would probably make his whole life worth it. Douluo I lure long. I wonder if a certain old woman has this much money in her private vault. Douluo I bibi dong. Gold coins are everywhere in the spirit hall treasury and are not worth mentioning. On the contrary, certain people have guarded the empty land academy for many years and probably couldn't save a single cent of savings, right? Douluo I lure long. You, detestable. Shrek Academy, Lure Long's face turned livid, almost failing to keep her composure on the spot. Her personality was fiery to begin with, and she couldn't stand her former rival in love even more, yet who would have thought Bibi Dong would come right up and use her influence to suppress others? Having influence is such a big deal. Who knows what the higher-ups of the spirit hall were thinking, to actually let an outsider like Bibi Dong sit in the position of supreme pontiff. Furthermore, when she founded Lanba Academy, her original intention was to take care of commoner children, never to amass wealth and profit. Lure Long was just about to argue with reason when a flash of inspiration suddenly struck her mind. She instantly suppressed her anger, a wicked smile appearing on her face. Douluo I lure long. Lanba Academy indeed doesn't make money, but I forgot to tell you, Xiaobing is right here at my academy now, and we are already living together tilde. Douluo I bibi dong. You. Spirit Hall main hall. Bibi Dong, sitting upright on the throne, suddenly stiffened, her cold and exquisitely beautiful face instantly flushed red, her mindset directly shattering. Douluo I Bibi Dong. So what, I am richer than you, and my power overpowers the continent compared to you. Douluo I lure long. Xiaobing is living with me. Douluo I Bibi Dong. I have more influence than you. Duoluo I lure long. Xiaobing is living with me. Duoluo I Bibi Dong. You're courting death, believe it or not, I'll find someone to deal with you right now. Duoluo I lure long. You can feel free to try. Duoluo I lure long. If Xiaobing knew it was you who did it, he would never forgive you in this lifetime or the next. Duoluo I Bibi Dong. F you. A single short sentence instantly shattered all of Bibi Dong's strong disguise, with a lethality comparable to Garen building last whisper, silenced and mentally broken. Duoluo I Bibi Dong. Smug villain, I am destined to become a tier 1 divinity Rakshasa god in the future, while you are at most just a tiny titled Duoluo. Douluo Ibb Dong, I will take Shaogang to live happily in the God realm, and you, my friend, after you die of old age, I will often come to visit your tombstone. Douluo I Luer Long. Douluo I Luer Long, you can't possibly win. Douluo Ibb Dong, mere Tang San, I didn't pay much attention to him before, let alone that nowadays, I am not the only one staring at Tang San and wanting to get rid of him. Douluo I Luer Long. As soon as these words came out, Luer Long was instantly at a loss for words and unable to retort. The theory of lifespan, even a titled Douluo still cannot escape birth, old age, sickness, and death. In front of a divinity with eternal lifespan, mortal companionship was ultimately pitifully brief. The diary copy message area was dead silent, and heroines from various planes successively revealed expressions of eating melons. This high-dimensional visitor's heaven's diary was simply the #1 melon-eating divine artifact of the heavens. Other worlds were all chatting about cultivation, discussing the great Tao, and talking about longevity. Only the heroines of the Douluo plane popped out massive melons of love, hatred, and enmity every few days. It was simply too interesting. At the same time, the little angel lurking in the Heaven Do Imperial Palace was already full of shock at this moment, her exquisitely beautiful face turning completely gloomy. Mother, what is this? Why? Qian Runshui murmured while clutching her chest, her golden heart beating violently at this moment. Ever since she was little, Qian Runshui had never understood why, as a biological daughter, her mother Bibi Dong was so cold and alienated toward her, without a single shred of warmth. Could it be? After her father passed away, her mother completely transferred her affections elsewhere, which was why she treated her so unfavorably. An absurd and heart-wrenching thought crazily surged into her mind, lingering and refusing to go away. Qian Runshui shook her head incessantly, wanting to dispel these messy thoughts, yet she couldn't stop her wild imagination no matter what. Chapter 27, Astonishing Attention. Meanwhile, inside the Rose Hotel. Looking at the mountain-like pile of gold coins, Jin Moyu raised his hand and waved it gently, and a ring-shaped storage spirit tool quietly appeared in his palm. The spirit tool technology of the Douluo era was extremely backward, and the forging craftsmanship of a large number of high-tier spirit tools had long been lost. Especially for storage spirit tools, the manufacturing threshold was extremely high, and the number remaining in the world was pitifully small. They had always been rare treasures treasured by major sects, and ordinary spirit masters could hardly see them in a lifetime. But for Jin Moyu, who held equivalent exchange technology, such treasures as storage spirit tools were simply not worth mentioning. Relying on the boundless dark matter of the dark plane dimension, as long as he was willing, he could refine a storage spirit tool in an instant. However, he had his own sense of proportion and would not recklessly abuse dark matter. The dark plane dimension was vast and boundless, and no one could determine whether other higher civilizations were lurking within it. Acting too unscrupulously to pry open the dark plane dimension was very likely to expose cosmic coordinates, and what followed would be a ruthless elbow strike by the dark forest theory. The storage spirit tool lit up with a soft, translucent white halo. In the blink of an eye, the mountain-like massive pile of gold coins instantly became empty, leaving not a trace behind. This sudden scene instantly snapped the women watching the drama in the diary copy back to their senses, and everyone froze in unison. Douluo to Xiao Xiao. Wait, was that just now a storage spirit tool? Douluo to Meng Hongqian. Strange, how could there be a wild storage spirit tool here? And the storage space looks quite large. Just as everyone was confused, Jin Moyu's mind stirred, and he updated the diary content. Fortunately, when tracing time just now, I noticed the storage spirit tool in the corner. This thing has a simple structure, and making it is still quite simple. Diary copy women. Was there really a storage spirit tool in that crude room just now? Douluo to Shu Juju. Storage spirit tool. Was it really in the backtracking footage just now? Douluo to Xiao Xiao. I was just focusing on watching the gold forging and chatting with those two artisans, and completely missed that a storage spirit tool was hidden here. Douluo I Shui Ke. If Brother Moyu says there's one, then there definitely is. There's absolutely no mistake. Douluo I Ning Rongrong. Douluo to Ice Empress. I see. What was retraced was not just images, but a complete and true historical scene replicated. Douluo to Ice Empress. It's just, he can finish analyzing this structurally complex storage spirit tool in just a few seconds. Douluo to Snow Emperor. It's just a matter of convenience, mind your own business when it comes to geniuses. Douluo to Ice Empress. Fine, now I truly appreciate the horror of the God core. In Jin Moyu's words, the Herrscher of Reason is like this. Douluo to Meng Hongqian. His attention is astonishing. We were all eating melons, and only he noticed these details. Douluo I Zhongzhu. So much money, he's truly wealthy enough to rival a nation now. Having money lightens the body. What the ancestor said is indeed right, money is a man's backbone. Next, I plan to purchase some whale gum and fuse the God-bestowed spirit ring as soon as possible. However, speaking of the Rose Hotel in Soto City, since I'm already here, I might as well drop by to check out Shrek Academy and confirm the current timeline of the Douluo continent. Jin Moyu casually stopped a pure passerby, handed over a gold coin, and asked the other party to guide him to Shrek Academy. A single gold coin was enough to cover a few months of living expenses for an ordinary family, so the passerby was immediately overjoyed and wholeheartedly led the way. The journey was desolate and rugged, far from human habitation. After walking around more than half a circle of mountain roads, Jin Moyu finally found an ordinary small village. Coming into view was a dilapidated academy gate. The wooden arch was crumbling, and the old plaque covered in cobwebs could barely make out the 5 large characters of Shrek Academy. Hanging next to it was a greenish portrait, looking like the head of a humanoid monster. The visual perception was eerie and comical, and even AI could draw better than this. The entire Shrek Academy was overgrown with weeds, having long since been deserted, and it was so desolate that not even a single mouse was left. As expected of Shrek Academy. Previously, reading novels only made me know this place was remote, but witnessing it with my own eyes makes me realize it's ruined to this extent. If I didn't know better, I'd think this was a garbage recycling station. When it comes to being stingy, throughout the entire Douluo continent, it has to be you, Flender, especially during the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Elite Tournament, where you even put advertisements on the students' uniforms. Being a dignified spirit saint powerhouse, it's one thing for the academy he runs to be so crude and shabby, but every year's enrollment routine is also terribly scammy. As long as students come to register, regardless of whether they succeed or not, the registration fee of 10 gold coins is non-refundable. Whenever a student's parents refuse to accept it and resist, the enrollment teacher directly displays the cultivation of a spirit emperor. Specially arranging a 6-ring spirit emperor to act as the enrollment teacher, it seems Flender still has self-awareness, knowing that this is an immoral thing to do. But you have to say, he clearly could have just robbed you directly, yet he still lets you experience the registration process. He's really something, I'm crying to death. Douluo Ihuo Wu, is this an academy? Are they really not robbers turning over a new leaf? Douluo I Luerlong, there should be other reasons. Douluo I Yilingling, normal academies only charge tuition upon admission. What kind of procedure is collecting a separate registration fee, and starting at 10 gold coins? This is too much of a scam. Douluo I Luerlong, the registration fee most likely comes paired with talent testing methods, it's not random fee collection. Douluo I Shui Yuer, is this an academy? Primitive jungle style, where does it look like an academy at all? Douluo I Luerlong, this place is so dilapidated, it must be because the students and teachers have all moved away, and it became like this after long-term neglect. Douluo I Shui Binger, little sister, don't talk nonsense. In my opinion, this Dean Flender must have specially chosen this place to save money, so that he doesn't need to spend money decorating the simulated cultivation environment. Douluo I Shui Yuer, damn, why didn't you say so earlier? Douluo I Luerlong. She gave up. As a former member of the Golden Triangle, Luerlong had to step up and speak out to find excuses to absolve Flender. If Flender used to be in the robber business, wouldn't she, a member of the Golden Triangle, also be labeled as a robber? But no matter how she spoke out, it couldn't reach the hearts of the public. Prejudice in people's hearts was like a huge mountain, and despite all her efforts, it was difficult to reverse everyone's views. Chapter 28. Spirit Masters who don't cause trouble or mediocre. If I remember correctly, when Tang San carried Xiao Wu to register for the first time, this place was quite lively, and there were a lot of people at Shrek Academy back then. Douluo I Yilingling, many people. Douluo I Shui Kei. Douluo 3 Dai Yunner. Douluo 2 Xiao Xiao, what does that mean? Douluo 2 Meng Hongchen, jealous of your talent. Douluo 2 Shu Tianjun, what are you all talking about? Douluo 2 Shu Juju, it's nothing, go play somewhere else. A parent said that this is a Spirit Master Academy recommended by Spirit Hall, claiming to be Shrek Academy where, as long as one graduates, they can become a Viscount of the Heaven Do Empire. This promotional pitch is something else. As soon as they open their mouths, they are drawing a pie in the sky about entering the noble class. Leaving aside whether one can graduate or not, this statement is indeed flawless. Shrek is a kind of monster, and the original intention of Shrek Academy is the Monster Academy. To put it bluntly, this place only recruits genius monsters and does not accept ordinary people. Spirit Masters over 12 years of age with spirit power below level 21 are not accepted under any circumstances. In reality, this is also a huge trap. Shrek Academy will conduct tests later on, and only genius Spirit Masters who are 12 years old and have a spirit power level no lower than level 25 can successfully enroll. If they really recruited people according to the surface standards, before Tang San and Xiao Wu arrived, the huge Shrek Academy wouldn't have been left with only 3 enrolled students, Dai Mubai, Ma Hongjun, and Oscar. Furthermore, whether you pass the test or not, this registration fee of 10 gold coins will under no circumstances be refunded, O tilde. Douluo 2 Meng Hongchen, that sounds too harsh, but then again, is Shrek Academy really like that? Douluo 2 Xiao Xiao, it's alright, I guess. Aside from our head teacher expelling students at the drop of a hat and being a bit strict, Shrek is still very good. Douluo 2 Ning Tian, expelling. It seems like apart from your class 1, teachers in other classes have never been seen expelling students. Douluo 2 Xiao Xiao. Douluo I Shui Kei, fortunately, this academy is not within the borders of the Heaven Do Empire. It seems Lambda Academy changed its name recently, holy crap. Douluo I Ning Wrong. Ahem, little sister Shui Kei, don't think too much about it. Actually, Shrek Academy is still very good, right? Douluo I Zhongzu. Zhongzu did not speak and simply remained silent. Inside the classroom, the young girl sat alone in the back row by the window, her frail figure exuding a hint of loneliness. Zhongzu looked at the bright sunlight outside the window. The sky had originally been clear and boundless, but in the blink of an eye, wisps of dark clouds quietly gathered, and the sky suddenly turned dark. Ever since the people from Shrek Academy arrived, the students' lives had visibly worsened by a lot. The teaching philosophy of Shrek's teachers was savage and extreme. A single phrase, spirit masters who don't cause trouble or mediocre, made the atmosphere within the academy restless and belligerent. What drove Zhongzu to distraction the most was that dead fatty, Ma Hongjun. He idled about all day with nothing to do, yet he kept pestering her relentlessly. Those greasy, frivolous, lecherous eyes that constantly stared covetously at her chest and skirt were truly disgusting. She, Zhongzu, was not the kind of girl to judge a book by its cover, but Ma Hongjun's appearance, character, and behavior were truly an assault on her senses. But what could Zhongzu do? She was merely a support system spirit master, and facing Ma Hongjun, who had connections, she could only lower her own presence. What left her the most helpless was the change in her beloved teacher, Luerlong. Ever since the Grand Master, Yu Xiaogang, arrived, her teacher Luerlong's mind was no longer on the academy at all. Closing her room door, she ignored all worldly matters outside. Zhongzu sometimes even suspected whether she had already been forgotten by her teacher. The disappointment deep in her heart accumulated day by day. Perhaps, once this Continental Spirit Master League tournament ended, she would just leave Lambda Academy. Shrek Academy, after all, was not the home she was familiar with. On the other side, Chin Muyu walked all the way back while holding his diary and began patting word count. With Shrek's enrollment conditions, the young spirit masters across the entire continent who can meet the standards are few and far between. Let alone coming to your scrap heap of an academy, going to any high-level academy would still steadily lead to success in the end. I really don't know who on Douluo continent is blindly hyping up Shrek. These people really love praising Shrek. Douluo I Ning Wrong. Douluo I Luerlong. For an academy, educating a genius into a genius is no big deal. Being able to educate a mediocre person into a genius is what truly requires real ability. But clearly, Shrek Academy has no real ability whatsoever. They don't even have a spirit master mimicry training ground, no medicinal baths to repair physical injuries, no spirit beast meat supply, and the cafeteria just serves plain congee and steamed buns cooked by villagers. The teaching staff is even more unspeakable. All the teachers are unorthodox spirit master Splendor met when he traveled across the continent in his early years. Before they even figured out their own cultivation, they actually dared to step onto the podium to educate students. Take Oscar's third spirit ring as an example. Back then, the entire Shrek personnel mobilized to hunt a spirit ring for him, and right at that moment, a coxcomb phoenix serpent happened to be driven all the way over by Meng Yiren and her grandmother, Chao Tianqiang. Zhao Wuji recognized that this was a coxcomb phoenix serpent, but he didn't know if it was suitable for Oscar. In contrast, Tang San confirmed it was a 1,000-year spirit beast based on the shape of the coxcomb phoenix serpent's wings, and accurately judged the spirit beast's stage as well as the characteristics of absorbing the coxcomb phoenix serpent spirit ring solely based on its body length. Tang San had followed the Grand Master, Yu Xiaogang since childhood and studied in the library of the Nuoding City Junior Spirit Master Academy for a very long time, so naturally he could easily recognize it. Yet just this introductory knowledge from a junior academy directly shocked the entire Shrek team. Oscar, the senior student, even exclaimed that Tang San was the encyclopedia of the spirit world. Aside from Xiao Wu, who had known all along, all the Shrek students, including the teacher Zhao Wuji, developed a different perception of Tang San. The dignified seven-ring spirit saint Zhao Wuji asked himself, when it came to basic knowledge of spirit masters, he couldn't compare to Tang San. Afterwards, he even humbly consulted Tang San on how to capture the coxcomb phoenix serpent. To be honest, this is knowledge that can be learned even at a junior spirit master academy. As a high-level spirit master academy, Shrek Academy actually hadn't taught it. The three senior students Dai Mubai, Ma Hongjun, and Oscar were completely unaware of this, which was enough to prove that Shrek Academy's teachers simply hadn't taught it, or perhaps even the teachers themselves didn't understand the basic common sense of spirit beasts. And as a Shrek teacher whose talent points were all invested in muscles, Zhao Wuji, naturally, didn't know this common sense either. Douluo I do Guyan, isn't this Shrek Academy way too incompetent? I feel like I could go teach there, and by the way, expand on some common sense about poisonous creatures for this group of students. Douluo I Lingling, not necessarily, right, our former teacher Chin Ming seems to have also graduated from Shrek Academy. Perhaps Shrek Academy has advantages in other areas. Douluo I do Guyan, teacher Chin Ming, he is indeed very outstanding. Perhaps it was my subjective bias, Shrek still has its advantages. Douluo I Huo Wu, advantages. For its lack of a cultivation environment, for its lack of cultivation resources, or because you can't even get a decent, filling meal there. Douluo I Shuibinger, I really don't see any advantages at the moment, but maybe there will be a plot twist later. Douluo I Luerlong, yes, a twist. Shrek Academy definitely has other outstanding aspects, it's just that we haven't seen them yet. Luerlong was practically on the verge of tears, bitterly maintaining her last shred of dignity. Finally, someone came out to speak a fair word. But before she could heave a sigh of relief, Chin Mui's diary exposed everything once again without leaving the slightest bit of leeway. Chapter 29 Chin Ming. At the end of the day, Shrek Academy has enrolled students for so many years, but those who successfully graduated are few and far between. Why didn't they graduate? Is it because they didn't want to graduate? Of course not. In fact, nearly half of the students died during spirit beast hunts and practical training in the spirit duel arena. If students running into danger while hunting spirit beasts is a matter of probability, the most ridiculous part is that the teacher leading Shrek's team is none other than the seven-ring spirit saint, the immovable King Zhao Wuji. There are only a handful of students in each class at Shrek Academy, yet even so, Zhao Wuji still couldn't protect them. And this flaw seems to be passed down through generations. In Douluo too, the Teodi Douluo Xuanzi, hailed as the supreme elder of the Holy Ghost cult, a dignified 98th rank super Douluo, still repeatedly showed negligence when leading training sessions, resulting in multiple accidents where students suffered tragic deaths and dangers. Douluo I Huo Wu, this isn't Shrek Academy a bit too exaggerated? Douluo I Shuibinger, indeed, it's one thing for a spirit saint to lead a hunt and cause students to encounter danger, but how can even a super Douluo leading training cause students to get into accidents? Is this student training, or is it sending them to their deaths? Douluo tu Xian Liner. Douluo tu Kai Mayer. Douluo tu Ma Xiao Tao. Back when Tang San and his group entered the Stardo Great Forest for the first time to hunt spirit beasts, they happened to run into an 8-member team led by Kanghui Academy on the way. Their team leading teacher was merely a 5-ring spirit king. If a team leading teacher like the 7-ring spirit saint Zhao Wuji brought students to the Stardo Great Forest and it was still this dangerous, wouldn't Kanghui Academy's approach be tantamount to sending students to their deaths? That is obviously impossible. Kanghui Academy is a high-level spirit master academy after all, which shows that a spirit king teacher leading a team basically won't run into problems. This is sufficient proof that Shrek's unorthodox teachers don't have an ounce of responsibility or awareness when it comes to protecting their students. And then there's that saying, spirit masters who don't stir up trouble are mediocre. Just because of this sentence, Dai Mubai actively provoked others, and Ma Hongjun became even more unscrupulous, staring at Kanghui Academy's pretty student uniforms and lewdly harassing their beautiful female students. What a ridiculous theory, it's nothing more than bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Even that little scumbag Xiao Bizan's Tang sect rules are 100 times more normal than this. All Tang sect disciples must not stir up trouble, you have already brought upon your own path to death. Douluo I Shuike, I can't help laughing a bit, isn't there a preceding sentence to this path to death? Douluo I do Guyan, looking at it this way, Shrek's atmosphere really isn't upright, and they're not good things at all. It was right for Grandpa to drive them away back then. The 5 core rules of the Tang sect are upright in every word. Do not deceive your master and destroy your ancestors. Do not commit rape, looting, and plunder. Do not leak sect secrets. Punishing evil and promoting good is the duty of the Tang sect. Do not defraud. To put it bluntly, without Ning Rongrong's identity as the little princess of the 7 treasure glazed tile school and the backing of Zhao Wuji as a spirit saint teacher, given the Shrek students' behavior of picking fights for no reason, the grass on their graves would probably already be 2 meters tall. Douluo I Shuike, ah, Sister Rongrong, you were there too. Douluo I Ning Rongrong, yes. Ning Rongrong's cheeks were burning at this moment, feeling so awkward and at a loss that she didn't know what to say. Douluo I Shuike, Sister Rongrong, you, listening to Brother Mo you put it this way, you were purely being used as a backing by Shrek. Douluo I Shuike, why don't you leave Shrek? The treatment at our Heaven Do Imperial Academy is very good, and it's very suitable for you. Douluo I Ning Rongrong. Later on the way to participate in the Spirit Master Elite Tournament, they were caught by Chrysanthemum Douluo of Spirit Hall. Everyone from Shrek Academy instantly turned coward and submissive, almost kneeling straight down. Here's a couplet dedicated to Shrek Academy. First line, facing Kanghui Academy with heavy punches. Second line, facing title Douluo with utter submissiveness. Horizontal scroll, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Douluo I do Guyan, well said. Douluo I Jian Runshui, well said. Douluo I Juliana, well said. In so many years of running Shrek Academy, the only one they can presentable is Chin Ming, who is known as the second youngest spirit emperor on Douluo continent. As for other, outstanding figures, Dai Mubai's original words were, Principal Flender would rather have a deficit than accept substandard students. Although Shrek Academy has very few students, the 14 students who truly graduated have every single one of them become world-shaking big figures. The most outstanding senior is even the youngest elder in the history of Spirit Hall, second in authority only to Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong. It's really hard to hold back a laugh. Shrek Academy was founded for only 20-odd years. Calculated by time, the oldest graduate is only 32 years old. And the hard condition for an elder of Spirit Hall is to be a titled Douluo. On the surface, the youngest titled Douluo in the history of Douluo is only the 44-year-old Tang Hao. To put it bluntly, bragging doesn't need a draft, and spreading rumors only takes a mouth. Relying on a completely non-existent, youngest Spirit Hall elder, Flender brushed past generation after generation. Throughout the entire book, this Spirit Hall elder never appeared. As for Shrek's most outstanding graduate, Chin Ming, his 5th spirit ring was merely a 1,000-year spirit ring. I wonder which teacher led the team. Don't they know that for a spirit master, the spirit ring age is not only the foundation of a spirit master, but also the upper limit of a spirit master's future achievements. Chin Ming's highlights in the novel are quite few, just Chin Ming leading Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and the rest of the Heaven Do Imperial team to head to Soto City to participate in the Seoul Duel Arena. Later, he recommended Shrek's teachers and students to settle in the Imperial Academy, allowing Tang San to immensely flex in front of Meng Shenji. The good news is that at the critical moment, Du Guyan brought her grandpa Du Gubo, which finally prevented Heaven Do Imperial Academy from suffering the vicious hands of Shrek Academy. With his teachers humiliated, Chin Ming also resolutely chose to resign and followed Shrek Academy away, while Shrek's teachers and students turned around and wreaked havoc at Luerlong's Lamba Academy. Douluo I Yi Lingling, Yanzi, awesome. Douluo I Du Guyan, of course. Douluo I Shui Kei, it's truly fortunate, Heaven Do Imperial Academy almost got wrecked. Douluo I Ning Rongrong. Douluo I Shui Kei, Sister Rongrong, I didn't mean you, I meant Shrek, no, not that either. I didn't mean that meaning. To be honest, with his respected mentor Flender being so insulted, anyone would have to show something. Chin Ming leaving Heaven Do Imperial Academy was an inevitable result. Even if he stayed, he would be looked down upon by other teachers and students. When Chin Ming first appeared, he appeared in the capacity of a mentor at Heaven Do Imperial Academy. At this time, he had already broken through to the 62nd rank Spirit Emperor. Zhao Wuji even said at the time that it probably wouldn't take long for Chin Ming to catch up with people like them. And indeed that was the case. When seeing Chin Ming again, he had already broken through to the cultivation of a spirit Douluo, and he was only in his 40s. What I transmigrated into was the anime version of Douluo Continent, and I remember Chin Ming's final ending vividly. Sigh tilde such a pity for a genius. In the later stages, Heaven Do Empire and Spirit Empire went to all-out war, with troubled times and the flames of war raging everywhere. As a mentor of Shrek Academy, Chin Ming still did not forget his duty as a teacher, leading students to the Spirit Beast Forest to hunt spirit rings for them. Regrettably, just as this operation was coming to an end, they encountered encirclement by spirit masters of the Spirit Empire. Only seeing ghost shadows and no spirit rings, it was precisely the Spirit Hall Elder, Ghost Douluo. No matter how high Chin Ming's talent was, he was ultimately only at the cultivation of a spirit Douluo. Facing the 95th ranked titled Douluo Guimei, he was obviously no match. Yet even so, there was not the slightest intent of retreat in Chin Ming's eyes. Instead, he told the students to escape first, while he alone blocked Ghost Douluo, fighting to carve out a path of survival for the students. Relying on the ultimate agility of his blazing wolf spirit, Chin Ming forcefully held off the encirclement of several Spirit Hall spirit saints. But under Ghost Douluo's absolute suppression of strength, all struggles appeared incomparably pale. In the end, Ghost Douluo condensed the nether ghost palm, instantly imprisoning his figure. 5 fingers tightly clamped onto his skull, locking away all paths of retreat. The next instant, the bone-chilling ghost claws directly pierced through his chest, passing right through his heart, soaking his clothes as blood gushed out. With his heart and lungs shattered and in a near-death desperate situation, what this iron-blooded mentor still cared about in his heart was the safety of his students. Chin Ming used his last remaining strength to tightly clamp Ghost Douluo's arms with both arms. Finally, I've caught your true form. Raging flames suddenly exploded from within his body, and his 8th spirit ability, Sacred Blazing Wolf Fire, erupted with full force. Flames filled the sky, scorching the earth. Ghost Douluo was tightly imprisoned and had nowhere to hide, forced to frantically urge a life-saving spirit ability to stubbornly resist. At the cost of his life, Chin Ming completed his final counterattack, forcefully inflicting heavy injuries on Ghost Douluo. When the last trace of firelight extinguished from the depths of Chin Ming's eyes, his body suddenly collapsed, but his spine of protection remained upright, and his philosophy of protecting students persisted to the end. At his dying moment, "Don't even think about harming my students," resounded through the forest, allowing Chin Ming's will to be passed down. The predecessor has passed away, but the spirit lives on forever. The diary chapter slowly came to a close. The previously bustling Heaven's diary comment section instantly fell into utter dead silence. No one bantered about Shrek anymore, everyone fell entirely silent, leaving only full shock at the bottom of their hearts. After a long while, inside Shrek Academy, Ning Rongrong finally sent out a line of solemn text, breaking this silence. "Thank you for your service and sacrifice. Salute to you." Chapter 30, It is fine, 1 minute is also great. Soto City, deep in the bustling downtown. Pharmacies of all sizes lined the streets, and the largest among them was the time-honored Baekeodang. This was the premier destination for spirit masters and commoners alike in the city to purchase medicine and seek medical treatment, with an endless stream of customers. Whale gum, a medicine used to temper the physique, is really hard to buy. I went to several shops, and they were all defective products of less than 100 years. I do not know how long they have been gathering dust in the warehouse. Chin Moyu stepped into the doorway, and an archaic diary floated out of thin air behind him, its pages trembling slightly as a strange phenomenon manifested on its own. Yet, by some destined rule, none of the passing pedestrians noticed this wondrous spectacle. Baekeodang was bustling with people coming and going. Particularly, the elderly uncles and aunties gathered here, chatting in 2s and 3s while waiting in line to get their prescriptions filled. For these elderly people recuperating alone, compared to their empty and cold homes, this place had instead become their most comforting resting spot. Chin Moyu ignored the surrounding chatting crowd and walked straight up to the counter. "Shopkeeper, let me ask you something." He intentionally lowered his voice and carefully leaned close to the plump middle-aged man. "Do you have whale gum here? I want the ones with good quality." The moment his words fell, the slightly noisy lobby instantly fell silent for half a second. Chin Moyu. No way, uncles and aunties, could this have been overheard? He subconsciously looked around. The group of elderly uncles and aunties in the lobby all turned their heads away, but their eyes looked very ambiguous, carrying a bit of tacit teasing. Young people are truly great, so full of energy. Tisk tisk, this young man looks quite upright and proper, yet I didn't expect him to be so weak. The young people nowadays, unlike when I was young, being a man of 7 times a night. Who can't brag? When I was young, I was even a man of 700 times a night. Meanwhile, the plump shopkeeper behind the counter raised his eyebrows high, looked at the young and handsome teenager with surprised eyes, and smiled leisurely. "Little brother, easy to talk to, easy to talk to. My Baekeodang has been open for many years, and we have all kinds of medicine here." Cough cough, let me correct one thing first. Chin Moyu's cheeks burned, and he hurriedly raised a hand to dry cough twice, trying to save his innocence. "Actually, I am not kidney deficient. A friend of mine asked me to buy it for him." The plump shopkeeper smiled even more ambiguously, waved his hand, and said expertly, I understand. Young man, you are blessed, knowing how to recuperate and nourish yourself at such a young age. Come, sit inside." Chin Moyu. Chin Moyu froze on the spot, the corners of his mouth twitching fiercely, completely speechless. It's bad, I can't clear my name anymore. My reputation of a lifetime has been ruined in an instant. Du Guyan from Douluo 1. Classic, I have a friend. Yi Lingling from Douluo 1. Yo, is the kidney-deficient brother here? Shui Yuer from Douluo 1. Isn't this the kidney-deficient brother? After just a few days, you've gotten so pathetic. Shui Binger from Douluo 1. Sister, don't learn bad things from them. Let's not look anymore. Shui K from Douluo 1. It's fine, brother Mo Yu, 1 minute is also great. Qian Runshui from Douluo 1. 666. Is this still my innocent sister? ... Heaven Do Empire, inside the Imperial Study. In the hall, sandalwood incense curled upward, and a thick stack of memorial reports was piled on the desk. Shui Qing, dressed in a plain white crown princess court robe, sat upright before the desk, holding a vermilion brush with fingertips. Dressed in luxurious crown prince attire, his expression was gentle and refined. Her action of holding the brush to review memorial reports did not pause. With the corner of her eye, she looked at Shui Kei beside her, her voice gentle. Sister, are you really planning to go to Soto City? Yes, Imperial brother, Shui Kei softly replied. Shui Kei had deliberately shed her usual luxurious and solemn Imperial palace gown, changing into a light, moon-white long dress. Her hands wore silk gloves adorned with pearl pendants, closely fitting her skin to perfectly showcase her jade-white wrists. The length of the moon-white skirt hem barely reached her knees, and as she walked, it vaguely exposed a small section of fair, slender calves wrapped in glowing white silk stockings. Seeing her meticulously styled outfit, Qian Runshui's fingertips holding the vermilion brush paused slightly, and she couldn't help asking, you wouldn't really have fallen for him, would you? How long had it been? Shui Kei had truly paid attention to Qin Moyu for less than a day. He was just a handsome youth who treated others sincerely, yet he made the usually aloof imperial princess care so much. Is this a love-brained state written about in the diary entries? As expected, the Douluo continent is full of talents and love. Qian Runshui suddenly came to a realization, and then her belief became incomparably firm in her heart. She was going to be a woman who ruled over the powerhouses of the Douluo continent, and she must never be hindered by mere romance. No matter what, she would never become such a love-brained person. Imperial brother worries too much. I just want to go and experience Qin Moyu firsthand. After all, he is a very special existence. Shui Kei gently shook her head, raised her eyes to look at Qian Runshui, her gaze clear and earnest. That being said, didn't Imperial brother also have the intention to contact him long ago? Shui Kei saw it clearly. Ever since the diary appeared and Qian Runshui locked onto Qin Moyu's location in Soto City, she had quietly mobilized personnel to act in secret. It's just that her, Imperial brother, had deep thoughts, and Shui Kei did not know the movements and purposes of those dark guards. After a brief moment of pondering, Qian Runshui completely reined in the calculation that flashed through the bottom of her eyes, changing back to that gentle older brother look. Very well, since you want to go, then go. Just in time to help me confirm and see what kind of evaluation this transmigrator has for me and the Heaven Do Imperial family. I will arrange for guards to accompany you in secret to ensure your safety along the way. Just remember, Qin Moyu's background is too mysterious and his thoughts are hard to guess. You must be cautious when getting along with him, and you must never completely pour out your heart to him. Hearing this, Shui Kei's heart leapt with joy, and she immediately bowed gracefully to express her gratitude. Thank you, Imperial brother. Looking at the anticipation between the young girl's brows and eyes, Qian Runshui slowly lowered her eyelids, concealing the deep, murky light at the bottom of her eyes. Soto City, Qin Moyu. In fact, what Qian Runshui truly cared about and guarded against was never Qin Moyu's special identity, but rather the eternal proof of a single certification, hanging high above the ironclad rules in the Heaven's Diary copy. Eternal proof of a single certification. Please do not perform actions that harm the high-dimensional visitor Qin Moyu, otherwise the future, he, will personally descend to obliterate all unfavorable factors. No one dared to verify the authenticity of this rule, at least she had no such intention. And Qin Moyu possessed the core of the Herrscher of Reason, which was a genuine God King level spirit. Merely the tip of the iceberg unintentionally displayed in the diary's recorded footage was enough to shake the power landscape of the entire Douluo continent. For this unstable factor, she initially wanted to completely obliterate it. But unfortunately, leaving aside the rules of the diary copy, even the tip of the iceberg revealed by Qin Moyu's spirit was already not something she could handle. Therefore, Qian Runshui decisively changed her strategy. There were no eternal enemies, only eternal interests, so she took the initiative to befriend Qin Moyu. And this was also the reason why she agreed to let Shui Kei leave the boudoir. Chapter 31 Absorbing the Spirit Ring, standing erect like a pillar. Spirit Hall, Supreme Pontiff Palace. The magnificent palace was vast and silent, filled with a chilling aura and a heavy sense of oppression everywhere. Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff. The Spirit Hall deacon kneeling below the hall bowed in salute, saying respectfully. On the Supreme Pontiff throne, Bibi Dong casually crossed her legs, a luxurious purple golden robe dragging on the ground, the luxurious fabric outlining her charming figure. Send a message to Elders Chrysanthemum and Ghost, and have them depart for Soto City immediately. Bibi Dong's slender purple eyes held a faint and aloof gaze, calm yet carrying an unquestionable tone. Remember, keep your attitudes gentle. You are inviting that youth to be a guest at Spirit Hall with courtesy. As you command, Your Holiness. The deacon dared not say more, bowing his head to respectfully receive the order, and back out of the main hall. In an instant, only Bibi Dong was left in the massive Supreme Pontiff Palace. Qin Moyu, I will let the two elders of Spirit Hall test the truth or falsehood of the diary. Bibi Dong parted her thin lips slightly and murmured softly. Deep down, she originally quite appreciated the mysterious diary. The diary's writing style was sharp, tearing off the masks of countless hypocritical people on the Douluo continent, every word true. But there was only one thing that made her quite displeased. That was Qin Moyu's text throughout, which mercilessly mocked Yu Xiaogang, comparing him to a hypocritical, cowardly, and incompetent good-for-nothing. Your diary is written very well, and Andy Dong likes it very much, but your attitude towards Yu Xiaogang is not good, and Andy Dong really dislikes it. A cold chill crept up into her eyes, and Bibi Dong's expression grew even more indifferent. She intended to have the two elders of Spirit Hall test the bottom line of the diary copy's rules. The spirit fusion technique of Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo, the polar stillness domain, was a top-tier spirit fusion technique on the Douluo continent that could imprison space-time and freeze all things, perfectly matching the so-called time dimension mentioned in the diary content. Given Qin Moyu's personality, he definitely wouldn't agree to the elders' invitation in his heart, and a conflict would inevitably erupt then. If the two elders could suppress or even capture Qin Moyu, it would be enough to prove that the so-called rules of the diary copy were just a lie. As for the result of failure, whether Spirit Hall encountered disaster because of this was unimportant to her. The only person she cared about was Yu Xiaogang. Whoever dared to slander Yu Xiaogang, no matter who the other party was, she would not let them off. In the small room in the backyard of Baikao Hall, Jin Moyu's cheeks were burning hot, holding a black box in his arms. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, he tiptoed away from the back door. Stored inside the wooden box was whale gum, ranging from 100 years to 1,000 years, and even whale gum from a 5,000-year-old sea spirit beast. At first, the fat shopkeeper refused to sell it no matter what, making various excuses that this 10,000-year whale gum had long been reserved by a certain noble lord and was worth 10,000 gold coins. Jin Moyu couldn't be bothered to exchange pleasantries and talk nonsense. His storage ring flashed with a faint light, and a mountain-like pile of gold coins crashed to the ground. The fat shopkeeper's expression changed on the spot, his smile extremely radiant. This gentleman is approachable and amiable, he moved me with his sincerity. At a price 5 times higher than the market rate, this 5,000-year whale gum was smoothly acquired by Jin Moyu. Avoiding the bustling streets all the way, Jin Moyu quickly returned to the Rose Hotel. He closed the room door and turned around. Dozens of pieces of warm, jade-like whale gum were placed on the desk. If someone who didn't know better were to see this scene, they would probably imagine on the spot that a fierce battle was about to take place in this hotel. I can understand that whale gum strengthens male virility, but why can it also enhance a spirit master's physical fitness? Jin Moyu looked at the whale gum on the table, a thoughtful look appearing on his face. Most people who consumed whale gum directly suffered from a rapid loss of effectiveness, wasting the medicinal effects in vain. This was why whale gum failed to gain attention and was considered just an aphrodisiac. Perhaps it is due to the special nature of the spirit itself, which can absorb the medicinal properties of the whale gum, thus possessing the miraculous effect of enhancing a spirit master's physical fitness. Speaking of this, Jin Moyu held a portion of 100-year whale gum without swallowing it directly in one bite. Under normal conditions, it presented as a solid state, feeling very soft, similar to soft and glutinous jelly. Consuming whale gum required melting it with extreme high temperature so that its medicinal properties could be completely stimulated. Although there were no conditions in the hotel to heat the whale gum, this was not difficult for Jin Moyu. With a thought in his mind, the diary materialized in front of him. The process of converting a solid state into a liquid state is called melting. Wanting to melt the whale gum essentially means using high temperature to accelerate the internal thermal motion of molecules within the object. Herrscher of Reason. The next moment, Jin Moyu's spirit suddenly appeared in his hand, the magnificent core of the Herrscher of Reason, flashing with a sacred halo. Accelerate the internal thermal motion of molecules within the whale gum. Pure spirit power lifted the whale gum, and outwardly there was no change at all. However, the microscopic world inside this piece of whale gum had already begun to undergo heaven-shaking and earth-shattering changes. In less than a moment, under the forced intervention of the Dark Plane Herrscher authority, the molecules inside the whale gum moved violently. Visible to the naked eye, the warm, milky white whale gum in front of him quickly turned scorching red, melting from the inside out. From the perspective recorded by the diary, the originally jelly-like whale gum completely turned into a puddle of liquid. This common-sense-defying scene left the women of the diary copy, who were situated in an ancient background, looking bewildered. Woo, what happened? Shouldn't whale gum melt from the outer layer to the inner layer? Without fire, how did the whale gum melt? Ning wrong, is it heated by spirit power? That's not right either. Wanting to control temperature purely with spirit power, the Spirit King realm shouldn't be able to do it this fast, right? Ning wrong. What's more, Jin Moyu doesn't even have a spirit ring, and he can't even be considered a spirit master yet. Ning Tian, ancestor, combined with the statement in the diary content, Jin Moyu's spirit itself can analyze microscopic particles at the molecular level, forcibly urging molecules to move against each other. The principle is similar to friction generating heat. Ning Tian, molecules are invisible to the naked eye and need a spirit tool microscope to be seen. This is very scientific. Ice Empress, molecular motion. I have never heard of this saying. The speed of human development these years is truly incredible. Rose Hotel. Jin Moyu precisely controlled the tolerance limit of his own physical body, melting 3 pieces of 100-year whale gum in succession and consuming them bit by bit. He detailedly turned the diary's recording perspective behind him. The diary image froze on the back of a youth in his slightly flushed cheeks, a scene that was both hazy and subtle. No, I can't take it anymore. It's already close to the upper limit of what my physical body can bear. Jin Moyu's breathing was rapid, and he felt extremely uncomfortable in his body. Under normal circumstances, if whale gum was consumed in small amounts from a young age, it could continuously enhance a spirit master's physical fitness. But Jin Moyu did not intend to be so slow. Instead, he consumed the whale gum all at once. When all was said and done, the spirit system of the Douluo continent was too backward, and could only serve as a means for his current strength transition. In the future, the core of the Herrscher of Reason would not need to rely on such weak power as spirit power at all. The upper limit of technological creations, power would only depend on computing power. With a thought, a deep ink black ball of light emerged out of thin air, and circles of strange halos were dazzlingly bright. Looking at this god-bestowed spirit ring exuding a bizarre aura, Jin Moyu subconsciously swallowed a mouthful of saliva. System, which deity bestowed this god-bestowed spirit ring of yours? It wouldn't really be the Honkai god, would it? This was naturally bestowed by this system. If you dawdle any longer, I'll record the image of you standing erect like a pillar in the diary content. FCK. Jin Moyu couldn't help cursing softly in his heart. Without time to complain, the god-bestowed spirit ring gradually fused, and the ink black halo enveloped his entire body. The next second, the pain of absorbing a spirit ring beyond his rank swept through his entire body. An unhealthy flush instantly appeared on the surface of Jin Moyu's skin, and countless microscopic blood vessels beneath his skin were being squeezed. But it was precisely this pressure of power that forcibly forced open his blocked meridians, allowing the medicinal properties of the whale gum to completely volatilize. During the process of absorbing the god-bestowed spirit ring, for every second more he persisted, the effect of the obtained spirit ring would be amplified by a fraction more. The core of the Herrscher of Reason flashed with brilliant radiance, and magnificent patterns continuously derived on the surface of the spirit. A pale white halo slowly rose up. As time passed, the color of this layer of halo continued to deepen, white, light yellow. Finally, the inscription of the patterns on the surface of the spirit ended, and the color of the first spirit ring steadily fixed at a deep dark purple, deeper in color than ordinary 1,000-year spirit rings. It's finally over. Jin Moyu let out a long breath of foul air, his tense body completely relaxing, and every inch of flesh and blood throughout his body transmitted a full sense of power. Immediately afterwards, he spat out a heavily compressed brownish black pill from his mouth, looking ugly and comical, just like the stretched legs and stare eyes pill rubbed out from Ji Gong's armpit. Of course, this was just Jin Moyu multitasking during the process of absorbing the spirit ring. Using the core of the Herrscher of Reason, he forcibly gathered the grease and metabolic impurities stripped from inside his body to his dantian area. Once the spirit ring absorption was over, he exhaled all the filthy impurities in one breath. The diary was recording the images, and he still paid close attention to his image. Unlike Ma Hongjun in the original work, who when absorbing the god-bestowed spirit ring for the first time, discharged full body grease mixed with blood streaks, covered in grime, that scene looked just like having undergone a weight loss liposuction surgery. Chapter 32. Turns out I have to piece it together myself after all. Qin Muiyu quietly sensed the strength of the first spirit ring lingering around his body, a trace of satisfaction flashing across the depths of his eyes. This god-bestowed spirit ring had a strength of about 7,000 years, which could be considered a decent starting point. And to achieve such a terrifying amplification, age was partly the reason, followed by his own profound spirit power foundation at the Spirit King level, which indirectly improved Qin Muiyu's physical constitution. Coupled with whale gum tempering his physique, this allowed his first spirit ring to exceed the upper limit of what an ordinary spirit master could bear when absorbing a third spirit ring. Qin Muiyu opened his diary, and the system panel clearly emerged. Spirit, core of the Herrscher of Reason. First spirit ring age, 7,000 years. Spirit ability, particle control. Passive resident, possesses ultimate control over all matter, able to clearly perceive the microparticles of the surrounding environment. Active release, instantly controls the motion laws of microparticles to achieve material state transformation. Material state transformation. Could it be melting, solidification, liquefaction, vaporization? Qin Muiyu slowly closed his eyes. Without needing spirit power to urge it, the passive effect of the first spirit ability triggered on its own. This time, his eyes were no longer pitch black. Instead, stars all over the sky and tiny specks of light as vast as a galaxy clearly presented themselves within his perception. Herrscher of Reason, first spirit ability particle control. Water element, condense. Qin Muiyu chanted softly in his heart. The next moment, the water vapor particles in the air, indiscernible to the naked eye, instantly condensed together. A droplet of water was born out of thin air, quietly floating in Qin Muiyu's palm. Water produced from nothing, shape condensed without a source. The heroines of the Douluo plane watched with baffled expressions. This was yet another situation that subverted common sense. Du Guyan from Douluo, are you sure he didn't hack? When he conjured gold out of thin air before, at least you could still see a pitch black mass of matter. Now look at him, directly creating things out of thin air. Ning Rongrong from Douluo, is this also science? Ning Tian from Douluo 2, ancestor, this is very scientific. The air is already filled with invisible water vapor. He is simply manipulating microparticles to complete the state transformation from gas to liquid. Jiyu Yuina from Douluo 3, this is water element control. That's not right either, this is purely physical knowledge. Leng Yaoju from Douluo 3, Nana, the effect of this spirit ability is similar to your element control. Judging by the spirit ring color, the age is probably around 7,000 years. Leng Yaoju from Douluo 3, perhaps your two spirits share the same origin, and you might even be able to unlock an exclusive spirit fusion ability. Jiyu Yuina from Douluo 3, Ba. Who shares the same origin of spirit with him? Particle control, elemental particles are also particles. This looks very similar to Jiyu Yuina's elemental power control, but she is purely a reckless brute who probably has no idea what microparticles, molecules, or atoms are. Jiyu Yuina from Douluo 3, who are you looking down on? You just wait for me. To be honest, I feel that the development direction of this spirit ability is very comprehensive. Not only does it possess a portion of the Silver Dragon King's element control power, but it also masters a deeper level of microparticle control power. As long as my spirit power is sufficient, it seems I can replicate that Guzheng plan. To be honest, this plan is a bit bloody. The proposition of the Guzheng plan comes from the novel The Three-Body Problem. On the boundless sea, in order to completely intercept the confidential information inside a cruise ship while preventing the possibility of the enemy destroying the data, humanity developed a nanomaterial called Flying Blade. Due to material limitations, this plan was recommended to be carried out during the day. If it were at night when everyone was lying down and sleeping deeply, it would be very likely to avoid the Guzheng cutting. During the daytime, however, more people on the ship would be in standing or sitting postures. And when the cruise ship passes through, the road ahead seemingly appears empty, but in reality, the scythe of judgment has already swung down. The hard and heavy steel hull of the ship is cut evenly like tofu. Immediately afterwards, the entire cruise ship begins to decompose layer by layer without the slightest hesitation, being divided into strips at intervals of 50 centimeters. The ensuing fires, explosions, and blood dyed the entire sea surface red. The enemies on the cruise ship died completely while standing, sitting, or chatting happily, eliminating the possibility of confidential qualifications being destroyed. As for the computers stored on the cruise ship, because the cut of the nanomaterial is sharp, using existing technology, the computers can still be repaired. The only moral issue is that everyone on the Judgment Day will not survive, and it happens completely unconsciously. Qian Runshui from Douluo, Yi Gui from Douluo 2. Jiyu Yuina from Douluo 3. So element control could reach this level, microparticle cutting. But just imagining this picture is full of evil and bloodshed. Placed on the Douluo continent, it is undoubtedly an evil spirit master method that makes people turn pale at the mere mention. First spirit ring 7,000 years, continuing to take whale gum should allow the age of the second spirit ring to increase to over 15,000 years. Herrscher of Reason, accelerate the internal molecular thermal motion of the whale gum. Qin Muiyu calculated inwardly. With one hand holding the 1,000-year whale gum and the other hand holding up his spirit, he began heating the whale gum once again. Swallowing a piece of whale gum into his stomach, he once again felt that scorching heat that seemed to overflow. Qin Muiyu hurriedly urged the god-bestowed spirit ring to begin integration. This time, the initial light of the god-bestowed spirit ring stayed at yellow, and gradually approached purple and light black. Until the moment it reached the critical point, the light collapsed and settled with a roar, and the color of the spirit ring finally settled into a deep, heavy, pitch-black 10,000-year spirit ring. The system panel on the heavens diary synchronized and refreshed. Spirit, core of the Herrscher of Reason. Second spirit ring age, 30,000 years. Spirit ability, accelerated world. Active release, consciousness breaks free from the shackles of the body, and the time flow of the macroscopic material world slows down drastically in perception. Accelerated world, is this an ability similar to bullet time? Brilliant light flashed in Qin Muiyu's eyes as he secretly compared the differences between the two concepts in his heart. Conceptually, bullet time refers to forcibly changing the time flow rate of the surrounding environment when a moment of crisis arrives, thereby avoiding the crisis. For example, when a bullet strikes, the time flow rate instantly slows down, and the protagonist easily dodges it. Accelerated world is different, it only changes one's own consciousness, allowing the brain's thinking speed to instantly surpass the physical body. From the perspective of ability strength, bullet time, which can rewrite the time flow rate of the outside world, is indeed more shocking. Directly distorting the time of the surrounding environment to give oneself faster speed is similar to Marvel's Flash. This is a pure numerical suppression. But accelerated world has an irreplaceable advantage. In the accelerated world state, a person's brain has more thinking time. A massive amount of thinking time is enough for him to deduce the flaws of the enemy's moves and the next step of action routes in a split second. With his current 20,000-year spirit ring age, 1 second of time is equivalent to 1 day in the real world. If the subsequent spirit ring age increases, the length of time will continue to amplify. And accelerated world only acts on the spiritual and conscious level, causing no physical aging, and the cost is almost negligible. What's more, from another perspective, bullet time essentially relies on external forces to interfere with time, and its upper limit is already fixed, whereas this can be replicated through technological means. One is the innate talent of the spirit, and the other is technological means. When all is said and done, accelerated world is itself an inherent ability of the core of the Herrscher of Reason, but simply because of the mischievousness of a certain existence, it was forcibly crammed into the spirit master spirit system. This resulted in Qin Muyu only being able to reclaim the abilities of the core of the Herrscher of Reason by absorbing spirit rings. After all that fuss, turns out I still have to piece it together myself. Figuring out this key layer, Qin Muyu's face was full of speechlessness. No wonder he always felt that the core of the Herrscher of Reason in his hands was far from having the powerful abilities described by its literal setting in his novels. Now that the truth was out, it turned out that the weakness of the spirit system completely restricted the authorities of the four-dimensional technology, core of the Herrscher of Reason. Chapter 33, King Crimson, Jump Through Time. My second spirit ring is already 30,000 years old, so can my third spirit ring break through just a little bit more? Qin Muyu said with a slight smile, anticipating inwardly. Immediately after, he grasped the most precious 5,000-year-old whale gum on the table. Having gone through the baptism of the first 2 rounds of God-bestowed spirit rings on his spirit, with the core of the Herrscher of Reason feeding back into his physical body, his physical fitness had already greatly improved. Theoretically, bearing the hot medicinal power of the 5,000-year-old whale gum was more than enough. Herrscher of Reason, first spirit ability, particle control. This time, Qin Muyu's spirit operated at full power. In an instant, gold gear-shaped patterns suddenly emerged deep within his pair of pitch-black eyes. The core of the Herrscher of Reason operated at full speed, releasing the first spirit ability. The microscopic particles inside the 5,000-year-old whale gum in his palm instantly became restless. Then, Qin Muyu swallowed the whale gum and began a new round of absorbing the God-bestowed spirit ring. Douluo I Duguyan, the first spirit ring is 7,000 years, and the second spirit ring is directly 30,000 years. Is this still human? Douluo 3 Dayuner, until even in our era, only the heirs of top families can have the treatment of possessing this spirit ring configuration. Douluo 3 Shu Xiaoyan, why didn't Qin Muyu display a new spirit ability this time? And what on earth did his previous sentence, turns out I still have to fight for it myself, mean? Douluo 2 Xiao Xiao, I'm also very curious. It sounds so hazy, and I am completely clueless. Douluo 2 Meng Hongchen, I think it must have been the spirit ability of the second spirit ring that made him realize a certain crucial point. Douluo 2 Meng Hongchen, or rather, it allowed him to see the true nature of his spirit clearly, which is why he made that exclamation. As soon as these words were spoken, the diary message interface instantly quieted down. Meng Hongchen's message seemed to be exposing the mystery of Qin Muyu's spirit. After a long time, Shuikei's well-structured message slowly appeared. Douluo I Shuikei, I guess that essentially, all of Mo Yuji's spirit abilities are innate origin abilities belonging to his spirit. Douluo I Shuikei, after all, a power like microscopic particle control doesn't sound like an ability a spirit could possess, it looks more like a technological means. Douluo I Shuikei, and as a four-dimensional technological creation, the core of the Herrscher of Reason sounds like a very profound dimensional technology. But currently in our eyes, the divine core hasn't displayed that kind of overwhelming sense of despair that crushes everything. Douluo I Shuikei, until Mo Yuji stabilized his second spirit ring, he carefully analyzed the spirit ability and finally figured out the key. Douluo I Shuikei, every time he absorbs a spirit ring, he is merely breaking through a layer of seal, bit by bit reclaiming the origin abilities of the four-dimensional technology, divine core. Douluo I Shuikei, instead of being like us, who must rely on spirit rings to grant the spirit brand new abilities. This thorough analysis instantly woke up everyone in the diary copy. Douluo I Ning Rongrong, holy shit, sisters, Shuikei Meimei, your deduction makes so much sense, it feels like it matches completely. Douluo I Ning Rongrong, I even suspect you might be the roundworm in his stomach. Douluo I Shuikei, I'm just inferring along the clues, it's not necessarily accurate. However, Mo Yuji's spirit system is indeed different from all of ours. Douluo I Yilingling, is this a meeting of minds? Her Royal Highness and Lord Qin Muyu match very well tilde. Douluo I Ning Rongrong, I think so too. You've even started calling him Mo Yuji. Shuikei Meimei, come on, hurry up and tie your Mo Yuji back home. Douluo I Shuikei. Meanwhile, the absorption of the God-bestowed spirit ring gradually came to a close, and the carving of the patterns on the surface of the core of the Herrscher of Reason spirit concluded. In the end, the third spirit ring suspended around Qin Muyu had its color fixed at a deep pitch black. Compared to absorbing a spirit ring from a 10,000-year-old spirit beast, a God-bestowed spirit ring itself does not cause mental shock. As long as the spirit master's physical fitness is formidable enough, the spirit ring's age will increase infinitely. Spirit, core of the Herrscher of Reason. Third spirit ring age, 70,000 years. Spirit ability, King Crimson King Crimson. Passive resident epitaph, short-term prediction of the future of death, 100% accuracy. Active release 1, erase the time trajectory of attack suffered by, epitaph, weed out all unfavorable timeline branches, and make all damage falling upon oneself return to nothingness. Active release 2, delete the time process and directly arrive at the result. King Crimson. Holding the diary, Qin Muyu's fingertips were trembling slightly as he subconsciously exclaimed out loud. He flipped back and forth through the diary, carefully feeling the strength of the spirit and the spirit ring, and quickly obtained an answer in his heart. First was the passive effect, epitaph. Relying on the strength of the 70,000-year spirit ring age, as long as there was any event within a day that could cause Qin Muyu's death, epitaph would proactively issue a warning. This was a passive ability to observe the future. Epitaph could foresee the future, but it did not possess the ability to change the future itself. This meant that if Qin Muyu observed his own death in the future, this future had already been anchored by epitaph, and he was bound to die regardless. The future was doomed to happen and could not be changed. However, the active effect of King Crimson happened to perfectly resolve this shackling limit. When, epitaph, observe a certain death future, King Crimson could actively launch time erasure to wipe out this future that had already been observed. This meant that the previously observed future was equivalent to being voided, and only Qin Moyu alone would completely retain the memory of this death. This was the observer effect. The act of observation would interfere with the result of the observation. The future Qin Moyu observed was only the future that would happen based on him not conducting the act of observation and could only be considered a possibility. With this ability, unless the enemy's strength far surpasses mine, otherwise I am basically in an undying state. Qin Moyu's emotions turned, and it took a long time before he calmed down and said in a deep voice. Unless he chose death himself. Herrscher of Reason, third spirit ability. Jump through time, King Crimson. Qin Moyu shouted in a low voice, and the core of the Herrscher of Reason operated at high speed. The entire space seemed to have been pressed with an invisible editing button, and the time process was completely deleted. At the same time, at a small stall around the Rose Hotel, an old man was making herbal tea for a customer when his eyes suddenly glazed over. The herbal tea he had finished making in his hands vanished, and a few brand new bronze coins appeared in his palm. The old man raised his head in a daze, while the customer who had originally stood in front of the stall preparing to buy herbal tea was already nowhere to be seen. From beginning to end, this mysterious customer seemed to have never existed. Meanwhile, the vision cut back to the Rose Hotel guest room. With a shift in the scene, Qin Moyu's figure hadn't moved a fraction, and he hadn't stepped half a step out of the guest room from start to finish, yet a cup of herbal tea emitting faint heat had appeared out of thin air in his hand. This unimaginable scene made the women of the diary copy freeze once again, plunging everyone into a daze. This time, they saw it crystal clear. Qin Moyu had never left the Rose Hotel, yet just like appearing out of thin air, a cup of herbal tea had appeared in his hand. The second ability actively released by King Crimson is quite useful. Effect before cause, directly deleting the process and arriving at the future result in one step. Douluo I Ning Rong Rong. Douluo Tu Ning Tian. Douluo 3 Dai Yunner. Douluo I Du Guyan. What happened? Its creation out of nothing and appearing out of thin air again. Is this science too? At Douluo Tu Ning Tian. Douluo Tu Ning Tian. I don't know. Is this reasonable? Douluo 3 Shu Xiaoyan. What on earth is this ability of King Crimson? What does it mean to delete the process and directly arrive at the result? Isn't this a bit heaven-defying? Douluo Tu Meng Hongchen. I finally understand now what effect before cause means. Douluo Tu Meng Hongchen. Normal logical cause and effect is, Qin Moyu leaves the Rose Hotel, comes to the herbal tea boss's stall to buy tea, and then returns to the Rose Hotel. This is the complete process of Qin Moyu holding the herbal tea in his hand. Douluo Tu Meng Hongchen. However, his third spirit ability, King Crimson, time deletes this process, retaining only the result of Qin Moyu holding the herbal tea in his hand at the Rose Hotel. Douluo Tu Meng Hongchen. This ability is simply unimaginable. Douluo Tu Shu Juju. Outrageous. It's fine without explanation, but once explained, it feels even more brain-burning. So this is the true ability of Qin Moyu's spirit. Douluo Tu Shu Juju. Doesn't this mean that as long as he wants to leave, deleting this process directly means no one can stop him? Douluo Tu Meng Hongchen. Theoretically it is like this, but it's hard to make people believe this is an ability a spirit master can control. Just as everyone was immersed in the shock of King Crimson's time deletion, Yi Lingling suddenly blurted out a sentence. Douluo I Yi Lingling. That being said, I understand this ability, but there's one question. Did Qin Moyu pay money for buying the herbal tea? Douluo I Du Guyan. Douluo I Ning Rong Rong. Douluo Tu Shu Juju. Douluo Tu Meng Hongchen. You fellow, your focus is truly novel. ... Inside the Rose Hotel, the atmosphere suddenly tightened, and a dead silence silently spread. Qin Moyu's gaze suddenly turned gloomy. The next moment, a demonic crimson slit suddenly split open at the center of his brow, and the meandering blood-colored line spread like a living thing. A profound crimson demonic eye slowly opened at the center of his brow. Core of the Herrscher of Reason third spirit ability epitaph forcibly triggered. And this meant that within the next 24 hours, someone in secret had fulfilled the conditions to trigger Qin Moyu's future death. The air in the room suddenly became icy cold and piercing. Qin Moyu's eyes were profound and deep, a flash of biting coldness sweeping across the depths of his pupils. Interesting, let me see. He murmured in a low voice, who on earth caused future me's death? Herrscher of Reason, third spirit ability. King Crimson, jump through time. In an instant, time rewound infinitely, and the authority of King Crimson blasted open. Chapter 34 Inches Core of the Herrscher of the End. Night had deepened and the time was nearing midnight, but the streets were still brightly lit. As one of the two most prosperous major cities in the Baloch Kingdom, Soto City had never been bound by a curfew. Qin Moyu walked leisurely toward the direction outside the city, holding a dozen skewers of warm barbecue in his hand. Just as he was walking along a secluded street, a shrill cry for help from a woman pierced the night. Help, someone is molesting me. The shrill cries for help pierced the night. Qin Moyu paused for a moment, but wasn't drawn over. Eating the barbecue in his hand, he continued walking out of the city. Almost at the same time he turned around, the cries for help in the alley stopped abruptly, replaced by two ambiguous and exasperated whispers. Damn it, we didn't fool anyone again. Are you deliberately messing with me? You got to have all the fun. Don't rush, don't rush. Let's wait for the next person and continue discussing philosophy. The ambiguous and lingering whispers clearly drifted out. Qin Moyu didn't care about these tricks. Regardless of the era, rather than being overly benevolent, it was better to be a bit selfish. Since it wasn't someone I knocked down, naturally I have no need to help them up. Before long, Qin Moyu passed by a dilapidated temple and pushed open the wooden door covered in spider webs. Chrysanthemum and Ghost Douluo will still find their way here. He murmured softly, but now, the warning of King Crimson has disappeared. As soon as his voice fell, the scarlet magic eye at the center of Qin Moyu's brow suddenly closed, and the passive effect of Epitaph vanished. The ability of Epitaph was very powerful. As long as within a day there existed anything that could pose a danger to him, it would issue a warning. In the first layer of future visions retraced by Epitaph, he had met the two-titled Douluo of Spirit Hall at the Rose Hotel, and some unpleasant things had happened. He saw himself being controlled by the polar opposite stillness domain, and subsequently taken away by Ghost Douluo, boarding the carriage of Spirit Hall and heading toward the direction of Spirit City. Immediately afterward, Qin Moyu used his third spirit ability, King Crimson, erasing this trajectory of the future from time. After changing his position and coming to this dilapidated temple, the second layer of the future vanished instantly, and the danger had been resolved. But how it was resolved, the answer would perhaps soon rise to the surface. At this time, the diary recording had long since been closed. Holding the diary, Qin Moyu faintly had a guess in his heart. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing the second day's diary content. For using the image recording function for the first time, you have obtained a diary reward. Congratulations on obtaining the following rewards. Core of the Herrscher of the End, 6-word battle armor, God tier mecha. Core of the Herrscher of the End. Crowned with the name of the End, the essence of its power represented ultimate destruction and the endpoint of all order. Chin Moyu vaguely still remembered the setup of this core. When scientists were developing the Dark Plane Herrscher, the core of the Herrscher of the End should not have been born. But bizarrely, when they fused the original 14 Herrscher authorities together, right at that moment, the 15th Dark Plane Authority, the End, naturally came into being. The birth of the core of the Herrscher of the End seemed as though it was destined. Herrscher of Reason. A cold glint flashed in his eyes, and he shouted in a deep voice, "Analyze the Dark Plane Authority, the End." At this moment, Chin Moyu already understood why the prompt of epitaph stopped abruptly right here. If it was the core of the Herrscher of the End, even if it was just a tiny shred of power, the so-called polar opposite stillness domain was simply nothing to fear. Core of the Herrscher of Reason, all systems executing normally. I grant you wisdom, to comprehend the mechanism of all things, omniscient and omnipotent, the King of Truth. Dark Plane anchoring successful, locking onto target, the End. The next moment, Chin Moyu's figure vanished abruptly, leaping into a pitch-black, boundless dark plane. The dark plane was still in that same appearance, a colorful pitch-black, surrounded by fluid-like dark matter. At the end of his vision, a deep purple, cocoon-shaped technological creation floated before him. Core of the Herrscher of the End. It was not a spirit, but a true four-dimensional technological creation. Although it does not possess such a powerful concept as the Herrscher of the End, the requirements it places on the host itself are also much smaller. Chin Moyu's mind remained calm, carefully recalling the setup of the core of the End. The prerequisite for fusing the core of the Herrscher of the End was not the 3 questions of the End, but gathering the preceding 14 Dark Plane Herrscher cores. However, bearing the name of the End was not baseless either. It inherently possessed abilities similar to those of the Herrscher of the End. The first was material collapse, releasing a large-scale dimensional stance to disintegrate all physical entities at the molecular level. The second was the integration of all Herrscher authorities. The core of the Herrscher of the End acted like a Herrscher administrator, able to freely mobilize the power of all Dark Plane Herrscher such as lightning, ice and snow, space, domination, death, and understanding. The third was the dominance of space-time laws. As a technological creation benchmarked against the fourth dimension, the time dimension, the core of the Herrscher of the End could create an independent domain, crossing timelines to draw upon its own power from the past, present, and future. And this was the grand finale of the Dark Plane Herrscher system, the core of the Herrscher of the End. To destroy this core, there was only one method: use a more powerful dimensional power to achieve dimensional crushing. And this could only be achieved by a technological creation born from the sixth dimension, the causality dimension. This was why, even though the core of the Herrscher of the End could draw upon future power to bless itself, it could not reach the power of the Herrscher of the End. The cores, developed by the Dark Plane Herrscher system, were unable to summon authorities exceeding the fourth dimension, the time dimension. Once it exceeded the boundary of the fourth dimension, it would completely fail. As expected, the complete form of the core of the Herrscher of the End is simply impossible to fuse. Chin Moyu attempted to fuse the core, and unsurprisingly, he did not succeed. To be precise, if the system hadn't forcibly transformed the core of the Herrscher of Reason into a spirit, relying solely on Chin Moyu himself, it would have been impossible to obtain the authority of understanding. The sole metric for fusing a core was knowledge. When the mastered Dark Plane dimensional knowledge reaches a certain limit, when the cup is full, it overflows. Breaking through this limit would allow one to fuse the core. As for fusing the core of the Herrscher of the End, the Dark Plane dimensional knowledge required to be mastered was even greater. One had to completely master all preceding cores. Chin Moyu was not discouraged by this. Instead, his heart was incomparably joyful. What was the hardest part of developing technology? It was the correct direction. Choice was greater than effort. Countless scientists studied diligently all their lives, ultimately trapping themselves in a dead end and wasting half their lives. Once the path was walked wrongly, all efforts would be in vain. But he was different. Holding the core of the End, Chin Moyu was equivalent to directly standing at the end of the path. He only needed to continuously analyze the authority of the End to step-by-step analyze all the Dark Plane Herrscher cores. This saved him from knowing how many generations worth of detours. Chapter 35 Inches Thought Seal. Outside Soto City, in a desolate and uninhabited suburb. Old ghost, are you sure he is here? Outside the dilapidated temple, 2 ghost-like figures stood quietly. Chrysanthemum Guan pinched an orchid finger, and his slender, feminine voice made it difficult to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Beside him, Gui Mei had a blank, expressionless gaze, and nodded stiffly. Just at that moment, the temple door was pushed open. 2 elders of Spirit Hall, coming to find me in the middle of the night in this desolate wilderness. I wonder what business you have. A handsome black-haired youth walked out slowly. Chin Moyu wore a smile on his face, as if he had been waiting for them for a long time. At the same time, the spirit power around his body suddenly surged, and his spirit was quietly released. 3 spirit rings, purple, black, and black, rose from beneath his feet. Such an outrageous spirit ring configuration that subverted common sense instantly stunned Chrysanthemum Guan outside the door. He instinctively took half a step back, completely freezing in place. How is this possible? Chrysanthemum Guan squeezed his voice, making it sharp and harsh, his face full of disbelief. Didn't the intelligence report say that Chin Moyu was just an ordinary person without a spirit or cultivation? But what was going on with these 3 spirit rings before him, this heaven-defying configuration of 2 blacks and 1 purple? Let alone ordinary spirit masters, even the top geniuses of Spirit Hall could not reach it. Could it be that he awakened twin spirits? Countless guesses surfaced in Chrysanthemum Guan's heart, and then he suddenly realized. No wonder His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff specially sent the 2 of them to invite the other party. Such a shocking talent was indeed worth Spirit Hall pulling him over at all costs. After the shock, Chrysanthemum Guan restrained his usual prudish posture, his expression becoming much more solemn. Little friend Chin Moyu, His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff intends to invite you to visit Spirit Hall. I wonder what little friend thinks. The youth who could possess such terrifying talent perhaps had a considerable force hidden behind him. Old ghost, what are you standing there stupidly for? Chrysanthemum Guan frowned, secretly elbowed the motionless Gui Mei beside him, and felt secretly anxious in his heart. Chin Moyu took all of this into his eyes. The slight smile on his face slowly faded, his gaze suddenly turning cold, and he said in a grim tone, Spirit Hall's personal invitation really flatters me. After saying that, he stepped forward and said mockingly, but what if I refuse? No one has ever dared to refuse Spirit Hall's invitation. As soon as these words came out, Chrysanthemum Guan's expression also turned a bit colder, his feminine face stained with a hint of ferocity. Little friend Chin Moyu, seeing that you are young yet possess such talent, please do not ruin yourself. A chrysanthemum, a little ghost, what big words. Chin Moyu sneered, looking down at the two of them indifferently. Chrysanthemum Guan, I overestimated you. Up until now, you actually haven't noticed anything wrong. Wrong, what do you mean? Literally. The next moment, the light in Chin Moyu's eyes suddenly turned sharp. A part of the power of the finality, authority had already been analyzed by him. And this power precisely benchmarked the domination of the laws of time and space, borrowing the power belonging to his own future from the future timeline. Herrscher of Sentience, all systems executing normally. Divine grace grants me wings, controlling the state of mind of all living beings, inverting fantasy and reality, crowning the king of spirit. Herrscher of Sentience, grant you an illusory dream that cannot be escaped. He whispered, drowned in the eternal kaleidoscope illusion. ... At the same time, outside the dilapidated temple in the real world, the figures of Chrysanthemum Guan and Gui Mei had long since frozen in place. The two spirit hall elders had stiff bodies, and their eyes were empty and unfocused. From the very first moment they stepped into this place, Chin Moyu had already mobilized the power of the Herrscher of Sentience divine core, silently invading their spiritual sea of consciousness. The so-called conversation was all part of the illusion. In Chrysanthemum Guan's illusion, only he and Chin Moyu had a conversation, and the same was true for Gui Mei's illusion. The finality, authority slowly dissipated, and Chin Moyu temporarily lost the future power blessing, but during this period he had already made all the layouts. Chin Moyu raised his eyes, looking coldly at the two-titled Douluo in front of him who had completely degenerated into puppets. After a moment, he took out a meticulously constructed machine. This was the technology he had previously built relying on the power of the Herrscher of Sentience divine core to manipulate human hearts. Thought seal, this was the technology Chin Moyu admired the most. This technology could engrave an indestructible belief into the spiritual sea of consciousness while preserving a person's personality and thinking conditions. If compared in a vulgar way, the thought seal was a hypnotic mobile phone that directly bypassed thinking logic, completely rewriting a person's thoughts and never doubting its rationality and logicality for life. Even the most extreme lovesick brain, after the belief correction of the thought seal, would completely change its stance. Bibi Dong, it seems you also have a diary. Chin Moyu stroked the cold surface of the machine, sneering in his heart. That the diary content would be exposed was already within his expectations. But what he didn't expect was that the system had clearly told him that as a diary writer, he just needed to be bold and write the diary as he pleased, and no one would pose a danger to him. He didn't know what this, dared not, specifically represented. But even so, Bibi Dong still let the two spirit hall elders, Chrysanthemum Guan and Gui Mei, come over to court death. Chin Moyu shook his head secretly. Sure enough, he was unable to understand the thinking mode of a lovesick brain. Perhaps it was just because of emotional instability that she rashly sent two spirit hall elders over. For a woman who put sentimentality above all else to sit atop the peak of power, chaos in the world was an inevitable result. But regardless of whether the other party acted on a whim or a deliberate layout, from the moment Spirit Hall made a move against him, they were enemies. Chin Moyu carefully recalled the feeling just now. The blessing of the future body lasted less than a minute. Resolving the two weakling titled Douluo Ju and Gui would be a breeze, but wanting to eliminate Bibi Dong under the eyelids of Qian Daoliu and the group of Spirit Hall elders still had a tiny bit of difficulty. Friends who often kill people all know that killing a pig is easy, but dealing with the pig's interpersonal relationships is difficult. It was better to play along with their scheme and make use of Chrysanthemum Guan and Ghost Douluo's hands. An arrogant lovesick woman probably wouldn't expect that her most loyal subordinates would actually betray her. Immediately, Chin Moyu looked at Chrysanthemum Guan and Gui Mei with dull eyes in front of him, and the thought seal in his hand quietly lit up with a faint shimmer. Being loyal to Spirit Hall was inferior to being loyal to him. ... Spirit City. Chin Moyu's hands were bound by spirit power shackles, letting the two Chrysanthemum Guan and Ghost Douluo escort him. At this time, all the spirit power around his body had dissipated, making him look like an ordinary spirit master who had been completely subdued and unable to resist. All the way through countless grand halls, they finally reached the power core of the entire Spirit City, the Supreme Pontiff Palace. On the Supreme Pontiff throne in the deepest part of the Grand Hall, Bibi Dong wore a purple gold Supreme Pontiff robe dragging on the ground. Her deep purple eyes were cold and aloof. She sat upright on the Supreme Pontiff throne, her body surrounded by the power of overlooking all living beings. The huge hall was empty and desolate, with no guards on duty. At the same time, Chrysanthemum Guan and Ghost Douluo escorted Chin Moyu into the center of the Grand Hall, their postures respectful. After a moment of silence, Bibi Dong finally spoke, her majestic voice echoing through the entire Grand Hall. Audacious. This sovereign ordered the two of you to go to Soto City to sincerely invite little friend Chin Moyu to visit Spirit Hall and treat talented people with courtesy. How dare you act on your own authority, behaving so recklessly and rudely, forcibly confining a distinguished guest, simply losing all the face of Spirit Hall. As her words fell, Bibi Dong's eyes suddenly turned gloomy, feigning anger. Her thick spirit power coercion was precisely applied, intentionally avoiding the youth directly in front. Bang. With a heavy, muffled sound, Ju and Ghost Douluo's bodies trembled, their legs suddenly bending as they heavily prostrated themselves on the ground. The hard obsidian ground echoed with muffled thuds from their kowtows, their foreheads pressed tightly against the ground, scraping out tiny wounds as wisps of blood mixed with dust slowly oozed out, looking disheveled and terrified. We were reckless, foolish, and crude in our actions, offending little friend Chin, and we hope little friend will forgive us. It was the two of us who misunderstood His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff's intentions and acted on our own accord. This was definitely not His Holiness's original intention. Ju and Ghost Douluo apologized with terrified and sincere tones, their postures extremely humble, perfectly cooperating with Bibi Dong's script. For a time, the atmosphere inside the Supreme Pontiff Palace was set off just right. Bibi Dong's gaze instantly softened, and she looked down from above, her tone carrying just the right amount of apology and gentleness. Please forgive me, little friend Chin Moyu. It is my poor discipline that allowed my two subordinates to act recklessly, and you have indeed been wrong. Bibi Dong said gently. She looked at Chin Moyu in the center of the hall, entirely adopting the posture of a fair, magnanimous, and considerate superior. The whole act was played by her with genuine emotion and without a single flaw. Unfortunately, the audience below had seen through all the schemes right from the start. Chin Moyu stood quietly in the center of the grand hall, watching the hypocritical grand drama before him, the last trace of patience in the depths of his eyes completely exhausted. The play is over. The disguised smile in the depths of his eyes gradually faded, replaced by a piece of icy indifference. Bibi Dong. Chin Moyu raised his eyes, looking straight at Bibi Dong on the high throne, and said word by word, if I didn't guess wrong, in your hands, you should also hold a diary copy, right? As soon as these words were spoken, Bibi Dong's body on the Supreme Pontiff throne suddenly stiffened, her cold and arrogant eyes drastically changing. After a brief moment of shock, she quickly reined in her mind, the astonishment in the depths of her eyes fading, replaced by a trace of mockery. So what if it is, and what if it isn't? Bibi Dong's tone was cold, carrying a condescending mockery, refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Chin Moyu, I originally thought you were a talent who understood the times, but it seems that is not the case. Bibi Dong's eyes carried inquiry as she playfully looked at the bound Chin Moyu. I am very curious, clearly in a desperate situation, what kind of backing gives you the courage to actively fall out with me? In her eyes, Chin Moyu was merely a prisoner bound by spirit power shackles, completely at her mercy. Watching her look of thinking she controlled the entire situation, Chin Moyu only felt it was absurd in his heart. I am very curious, what was the reason that made you come looking for me? Chin Moyu asked doubtfully. As soon as these words were spoken, they instantly stunned the high and mighty Bibi Dong. Anger instantly ignited in the depths of her eyes, and the chilly spirit power around her surged, filled with a biting killing intent. For someone who is about to die, it doesn't matter to tell you. Bibi Dong's gaze suddenly became fanatical. If you hadn't insulted my Xiaogang, perhaps I would have considered leaving you a path to survive. This was a lie. In fact, even if Chin Moyu hadn't fallen out and instead chose to join Spirit Hall, after his utility value was used up, Bibi Dong would still have discarded him without hesitation, showing not a shred of mercy. Just this, just for the trash you Xiaogang. Chin Moyu's eyes were full of speechlessness, his tone carrying deep incomprehension. Shut up, what qualifications do you have to insult my Xiaogang? Bibi Dong instantly flew into a rage, the majestic spirit power coercion around her exploding violently, causing the entire Supreme Pontiff Palace to tremble as a grim killing intent swept across the entire venue. Her eyes were frantic and paranoid, as if every word was weeping blood, fully displaying a pathological state. Not just you, Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon, 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, Heaven Do Empire. All those who once looked down upon, cursed, or slandered Xiaogang must all die. Those who stood by with folded arms and never lent a hand to help Xiaogang, silence as being an accomplice, and they are equally deeply sinful and unforgivable. To be honest, I still have to thank you. It turns out that after becoming a god, one can bring family members to the god realm. She slowly raised her eyes, sweeping her gaze across the entire empty and majestic Supreme Pontiff Palace, with not a shred of compassion for human life in her eyes, only the deep-seated malice accumulated over half her life. Since the person I yearn for day and night has suffered all the cold eyes, mockery, and betrayal of the world, then this cold, merciless, and indiscriminate Douluo continent has no need to exist. Chin Moyu stood quietly in place, speechless for a moment. With a normal person's mindset, it was hard for him to understand Bibi Dong's twisted and pathological state of mind. So, this was the reason why Bibi Dong ascended to become the Rakshasa god in the later stages, establish the Spirit Empire, and launch wars. It was not because she wanted to rule the world, nor was it for her own ambition, but simply because someone on this continent had uttered insults against Yu Xiaogang and someone had watched coldly without helping Yu Xiaogang. Chin Moyu gently shook his head, leaving only coldness in the depths of her eyes. Pitiful, ridiculous, and also hateful. Chin Moyu said no more, the authority of finality reviving as he drew upon future power to bless himself. In an instant, in Chin Moyu's hand, his second spirit, the Herrscher of Sentience Divine Core, was quietly released, and 9 scarlet spirit rings rose from beneath his feet. This was a predetermined future anchored by the authority of finality. It also meant that on some future day, Chin Moyu was destined to awaken his second spirit, the Herrscher of Sentience Divine Core, and his spirit ring allocation would be 900,000-year spirit rings. Herrscher of Sentience, all systems operating normally. Divinity grants me wings, controls the minds of all living beings, reverses dreams in reality, and crowns me the king of mind. Herrscher of Sentience, 9th spirit ability, Eternal Mangekyo. Chin Moyu's gaze was cold and sharp. Immediately, the mental force of the spirit Herrscher of Sentience Divine Core suddenly erupted. An invisible and colorless torrent of mental force forcefully invaded Bibi Dong's sea of consciousness with an overwhelming posture. Bibi Dong, who was deep inside the illusion, remained completely unaware, still immersed in the sweet dream she had woven for herself. She dreamed that she successfully ascended to the god position of the Rakshasa god, destroyed the Douluo continent, and personally killed everyone in the world for Yu Xiaogang, with no one daring to defy her. Her paranoid obsession was fulfilled, and her pathological wishes were all achieved. She was intoxicated in this false peak dream and unable to extricate herself. And in reality, Chin Moyu raised his step, slowly walking across the smooth and jade-like floor of the Grand Hall, step by step heading towards the Supreme Pontiff throne. Floating in his palm was a brightly flashing thought seal instrument capable of rewriting mental capabilities. Immediately, an invisible conviction penetrated the center of Bibi Dong's brows, reaching straight to the deepest part of her divine soul. There was no crude memory tampering, nor any distortion of her original personality, it merely branded an indestructible conviction within Bibi Dong's beliefs. Absolute loyalty to Chin Moyu. No matter what happens in the future, even if she betrays Spirit Hall or betrays the whole world, this absolute loyalty rooted in her divine soul will never waver. A moment later, the dim, bright light gradually dispersed, and the thought seal instrument fell silent. Bibi Dong's stiff body trembled slightly, the perversion in the depths of her eyes gradually fading, replaced by a heartfelt loyalty. That peerless, cold, and arrogant Supreme Pontiff majesty completely dissipated. From this moment on, there was no longer that paranoid, ruthless, and love-crazed Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall in the world. Strange, is the Rakshasa god just watching me so calmly? Chin Moyu was full of confusion, his eyes looking with doubt and uncertainty at Bibi Dong prostrating on the ground. He hadn't expected that by simply implanting the conviction of loyalty into Bibi Dong's mind, the loyalty she perceived would turn out to be this kind of prostrating, humble posture. This humble posture really looked like a contract beast. As expected, old habits die hard. As expected of a woman who, after becoming the Rakshasa god in the later stages, would rather abandon her own personality and willingly become Yu Xiaogang's concubine. Even if she just changed the object of her loyalty, that love-brained submissiveness for love still hadn't changed. And from beginning to end, the Rakshasa god never appeared. It was, after all, the divinity successor it had chosen itself, surely it couldn't just abandon her directly, right? Chin Moyu slightly raised an eyebrow. However, upon closer thought, the Rakshasa god seemed to have never regarded Bibi Dong as its successor. Aside from a cold Rakshasa scythe, rewards such as a god-bestowed spirit ring or an increase in spirit ring age were never given. Chin Moyu gently shook his head and thought no more about it. Meanwhile, far up in the sky of the Douluo plain, in the divine palace of the Rakshasa divinity in the god realm, the dead and gloomy divine palace was extremely desolate, with a pitch-black Rakshasa scythe emitting a chilling dim light deeply stuck into the ground. But the master wielding this divine artifact, that Rakshasa divinity presiding over the divine palace, had long since lost any room to resist and had quietly passed away. Chapter 37 Extra 1 BB Dawn's Supreme Punch.